4강이랑 결승전 다 태저전이라 4강 결승전 모든 경기 한번 다 보겠습니다.
crowd throughout the morning as much to everyone.
Time, I mean, I think that both here. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he completely had
사장님
an amazing series.
여기 계시네.
It's just stage. We shall see. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Time to head now to the stage.
And from Liquid, Cure.
오, 트로피 깔끔하다. 제가 경기 결과는 대충 알지만 내용을 아예 모르기 때문에, 경기를 아예 안 봤기 때문에 스포 같은 거는 안 해주셨으면 좋겠습니다.
Time for these two legends of StarCraft to face off against each other to kick off day
Top 4.
도비가 요새들 잘하네.
the last Protoss players and all of these other things, but I think he truly has made a lot of fans with his very, very fun and weird playstyle, a lot of his strategic choices and everything. So much fun to watch. I can't wait to see what Cure is going to be able to do against what Dark has to bring to the table.
You know, Cure can sometimes be seen exciting ones now, but it's Delta in the top left for Dragon Kaizi Gaming. He is Dark.
안녕하세요.
And down here on the bottom right-hand side of the map, the blue Terran player from Team Liquid on that upper side of the bracket
거기
is Cure.
팀리킬이었어? 어느 팀리킬 들어갔대?
Loving all of the signs out there, loving the cheers, loving the fans, getting excited and amped for the series, and I am also amped for the series Zombie Cup. I do want to actually bring it back really quickly as we get the game starting off with a nice early pool.
Yeah.
Is that Dark
선풀.
play exactly
오, 선풀인데 생더블.
TVZ series this
이거는
against Spirit.
저그가 유리하죠? 초반에 허무하게 끝났나? 무조건 웬만하면 저거가 이득 보고 갈 수 있는 상황. 잘하면 게임 끝낼 수도 있고. 게다가 생더블의 성가스야. 하지만 입구를 막고 있다는 변수가 있어요. 1.2배속으로 볼까? 1.25배속.
Almost ended up happening. Really long games, really interesting games, and Spirit might have even had more of a chance to take down Dark if he hadn't had his own little slip up there on the mental game, kind of forgetting a base for a little bit. We've got some really interesting openers though, right off the bat, not just your standard one racks versus that hatch pool gas. We do have Dark going for an early pool. Sixlings are on the way, but Cure, it looks like he was really greedy. A command center first can be set.
입구를 내 막을 수 있을 것 같은데? 팩토리에다가 서플 같은 거 하나 지으면?
By the time the lings are over. But the weirder thing about this is that
아, 사신! 생더블 사신이면 사신 나오기 전에 도착하죠. 입구를. 아, 이러면은 테란이 불리합니다. 아, 트리플을 이러면은 죽어야죠.
Oh no, he still is building both of those command centers right now, right?
그래도 저거가 6링에서 더 이상 안 찍고 하는 거랑 막을 수는 있어요.
This is actually insane. So obviously Dark was doesn't always go for a pull first, right? We know he's an aggressive Zerg, but a lot of the times those pull first, they're basically out of the meta, a lot of it. And so Dark gets in here and is like, wow, you were greedy with that command center first. Wow, you were insanely greedy with that third command center after single barracks, and it would be lovely to do something about it. But in that weird world, again, it's like, well, you got that army unit better, right? You got it faster, right? Well, once the wall is complete, you can only do so
이러면
much
테란도
with the
나쁘지
bare
않은데?
units, unless you want to add a Baneling Nest and actually break this wall while Dark is thinking there's not the time to do so. You're not actually punishing this fast third CC. Cure with some insane greed.
우리 올 수 있어서 벙커를 일단 지킨 지어야 되고.
But now has that wall up, has the reruns
트리플도
on the map,
받고.
checking to make sure it's not a Link Baneling bust, and Cure can do all of his build through his heart's content.
Absolutely. I mean, even if you did want to try and double down and go for that kind of all-in play or something, remember, it's when you go for that early pool play, you're also foregoing your gas geyser for a bit, so you don't have Zergling speed. You don't have all that early gas that would normally go into those things, so it already makes it such an awkward decision to make, and I actually can't blame.
이거 안 막혀있죠, 생더블이라.
How does Dark know?
That was a good check there. The Overlord drew out, at the very least, the Cyclone away, but also was able to see that the structures had lifted up, was looking for that really awkward timing. Now, again, you're up against a 3cc build.
이러면은 이제 테란의 타이밍도 늦추고 일꾼도 잡고 뭐 할지 다 보고
I don't think so. But you're basically hoping that first it's a couple of
테란이 엄청 배를 불리면서 했지만 오히려 저거가 기분이 좋은 상황입니다. 특이하게 바이오닉인데 사크를 4개까지 찍었네요.
Which Dark does favor a lot of Roach games, but I'm not sure he's going to play it here, as we do just have more drones on the way. The Overlord does finally fall. That's the only one that Dark has on Kier's side of the map. But Kier, with this build order that Dark's been able to see, there's only really one direction that he can push it. That is going into Bio, that is going into a greedy 3cc, and that is going to be Medivacs being the real first pressure that Dark has to seriously consider. Cyclones are annoying, I think we all know that, and Hellions are actually on the way too. But Dark wants to try and minimize the amount of army that he makes to maximize those drones. So he'd actually love to deal with this ASAP, but you can see Cyclones, man, they're freaking annoying.
Yeah, they really are, and I think especially if the Zerg player is trying to play a little bit greedier, they aren't making a ton of links.
이게 염차였으면은 저울링을 오히려 잡아먹을 수 있을 텐데 사클이라 속업도 안 된 사클이라 잡아먹히죠. 출발이 안 좋습니다, 테란이.
No, exactly. That's, I think, is still a big deal. Again, pointing out how Dark is basically recovering up against this extremely greedy build by making everything else in this game go his way as much as possible. The full surround of the Cyclones, the demolishing of the Hellion pressure, the Viking will probably not have that many Overlords either, so far on 0. It was Cyclone that killed that one Overlord. And Dark still probably doesn't feel maybe super comfortable in this game. His drone count's really never been that far ahead, only recently, in fact, getting actually ahead.
배럭이 근데 좀 이른 타이밍에 빠르게 들어가는 거 보니까 트리플 먹고 뽕일 가능성이 높은데?
And as we get to go into the movement where the Medivacs are going to be making their way across the map, they're going to be trying to put on little bits of pressure.
800까지 늘린 거 아닌가 지금?
Stim finishing up. Dark is saying, no, it's actually still my time to shine. He's still going to try and threaten around with Ling Drop and try and see if he can just defend. Mostly it looks like with probably Queens back at home.
Yeah, well, that's what you want to be basing a lot of your defense on. You want to be pumping out just drones as many as possible. But this little
이게 만약에 초반에 피해를 안 입고 원하는 타이밍에 맞게 했으면 되게 강력할 텐데 저걸링에 좀 많이 타이밍이 늦춰져가지고 아 알겠습니다.
in his series versus Spirit, but I think with the way that this game is open, he's had to change a little bit. But I still love seeing the Invitation Pit with Dark, and I still love seeing Burrow, especially on the way here for our Zerg.
Yeah, it seems to be a stylistic preference for him to try and go for that. Even with the earlier opening that maybe delays it compared to some of his other games, it still is really cool to see that Dark prefers that. But we'll see what he ends up using that for a little bit later on. As Infestation Pit usually is going to lead into that hive, but the way that he's used that in different series or games has been different for sure.
반응.
Very interesting slow Baneling run by into the mineral line. But again, you need at least 2 of those Banelings connect with all of those SCVs to actually get the big connections, and that really wasn't the damage he was looking for there.
No, not exactly. Kira is doing his Terran things, getting some drops out, very comfortable back at home on 3cc. I do want to highlight what exactly Kira is doing at this point. First, the insistent Hellion production has actually kind of worked out regardless of their inability to be offensive. They still helped out with dealing with some of these Ling run by.
지금 3월을 먹을 거면은 진작에 지었어야 되는데 안 지는 거 보니까 이거 무조건 뽕뽑기네요. 입구 세트도 멈췄고 8배럭 잘 돌리고 있고 팩토리에서는 기가병을 꾸준히 찍고 있는 걸 봐서는 기가병까지 활용해가지고 한 번에 확 2업 타이밍에 밀 생각인 것 같은데 글쎄 봐야 될 것 같은데.
I mean, especially even those Hellions being helpful with any of the run-by attempts later on when he does decide to finally go for that big push out. If he decides to leave them at home, we've seen that be a really effective tactic against Zerg players who like doing run-bys, which I think we've already seen Dark at least attempt 5 or 6 run-bys in the course of this 8-minute or 9-minute game.
Yeah, you're including everything that happened in the very early stages. Here is finally going to find a big reward with his medevac drops. That hatchery is a goner, and Dark just has to accept that. Also will supply block Dark. 4 Overlords are on the way, and there's no big battle incoming, but nonetheless, a good snag there from Cure, who has managed to keep both drops alive, of course, as well, looking to stop that creep from getting all over the place. It is starting to really get quite nice through the middle of the map, the halfway point, but if Cure's ever going to push through,
어디 보고 있었던 거죠, 도기?
more importantly, it's where Cure wants to actually send
가야 돼. 지금 가야 돼. 갈 거면
where his drop was just cleaned up. But now that the army's there, it's almost like an okay timing. It's a preferable
기갑병이랑 불공이 많아서 맹독충 웬만한 숫자 그렇게 무섭지 않거든요. 근데 이게 2업 되는 타임 맞춰서 바로 들어갔어야 되는데 좀 느리게 들어간 느낌? 뒤늦게 사컴 짓고
That could be a problem as we have Dark now committing more lings to the counterattack, but up against Hellbats and 2-2 Bio, I don't think it's going to do a whole lot. Meanwhile, Dark is once again forced to give up a base. This time, it is a very important base.
여기 맥도 많아.
Some amazing Baneling hits, but the Marauders are on the front line.
여왕도 많아.
He pulls back, and Dark is realizing not much is going his way this time.
No, definitely getting out microed over here by Cure's defensive setup. It snipes off the hatchery, and now Dark suddenly, maybe sitting on Hive Tech, may have ultras coming out with Chitinous plating.
아, 이거 울트라 나오는데?
Do we even call it 3 base economy? 10 minutes into the game, it's like 2.5, 1.5 base economy.
Yeah, surprisingly enough, there's still a red arrow leaning his way, but obviously at a 30 supply deficit, that's not quite enough. You want to have a 2,000, 1,000 bank where you're pumping out 8 ultras at once. That's the Zerg dream, right? Slow trickling in ultras, especially against someone who already has a
근데 이제
high amount of Marauders with this style.
울트라가 나오기 시작하면은 걷어낼 수 있거든, 저거. 지금 인구수 보면은 테란이 많이 앞서거든? 저거 7시에 있는 의료선 명령까지 와가지고 한 번에 밀면은 지금 밀 타이밍이 나올 것 같은데 그걸 또 분산시켰네요.
Also the fact that +3 weapons are going to be finishing up soon for Cure, whereas Dark is still just lagging behind and only just now finishing up his own +2 armor. He's also going to be an armor upgrade behind. Those ultras are going to be even less effective than they normally would be in a tied-up upgrade situation. Liberator harassment is going to be really annoying for Dark.
자, 그래도
as well, but Cure is rotating
나쁘지
around the
않아.
north side and getting ready to continue on with the aggression.
369 병력 이제
그
뒷방 수비 좋고 위치 좋고 야 울트라 세게 봐라. 테란이 못 지는 상황은 아니에요. 테란은 이제 테란이 후반을 바라보려면 유령을 준비하면서 고급일스 뽑아야 되는데
suddenly not looking nearly as bad.
Yeah, Kier does finally get a moment of breath to take here, and so he will rebuild his SCV counts, he will rebuild his bio counts, and he once again is at a stable supply, but it was the first time in 12 minutes that Dark had a decent-looking supply lead for a Zerg player, and I feel like that's just Dark's will coming into effect. This game has been difficult, I think, for any Zerg player looking at it. Can't believe this guy got away with 3 CC, really fast engineering base.
이제 서로 마무리 준비하고 나는 이제 그 테란이 트리플 먹고 완전히 뽕 뽑아서 힘줘가지고 이제 밀면은 이기고 못 오면 지는 약간 그런 사이즈를 생각했는데 적응력을 좀 양분해가지고 견제하면서 3을 먹고 무난하게 또 후반 넘어가고 있어요.
Dark and I mean even just a lot of Zergs even at this event find some massive fungals that really change the tide of a battle.
Yeah.
So if Dark, he's already in an okay-ish position at this point. Find a good fungal that really can set the pace of this game, especially since I mean this isn't really a siege tank based army that the blinding clouds and stuff are going to be the big play factor here. I feel like big fungals, that's going to be the money magic here.
Exactly, and I think personally this is certainly the bias coming in. I think Dark's the best with Infestors. He's always been one of the more insistent players of the Zerg race to actually go to Infestors, and
이제 하도 요즘에 저거들이 저런 간북 가면 중앙력을 잘하니까 펄에서 군데군데 지어놓고 있네. 앞쪽에다가.
So now this is just even better for him, and he'll be looking for the juicy fungals, no doubt. But Kier has taken to be a little more on the defensive side. He does have some drop, some harassment, as Liberator does cause some problems. But with the Ghost out and more bases needing to be grabbed by the Terran, Dark is now going to be on the defensive. We do have a push now, but it's not that tank-based competition that you were talking about, and that fungal is waiting to hit the big ball of bio. Not gonna happen. Good scan there, catches the Crypto and the Infestor.
Yeah, Parasite Bomb does get thrown out at the last second on some of the medevacs, and a massive Ling Ultra run by over to the south side of this third base. Gonna pull the entire army down to the south side as well.
이런 거 좋아요.
Absolutely has to respect the heck out of this, but funny enough, the Lings, a couple of them go down, but actually all the Banelings get preserved, so Dark finding some really not super significant damage there, but he shuts down the mining for a bit, and it's a very low-cost bit of damage.
He got value for sure. He pulled back the army too, so he's making sure that Kieran never feels comfortable just doing a push-out, like line in the sand, you come to my ghost ready to snipe you. That's never going to look very pretty, so it's very important that Dark gets those jabs. Somehow that drone escaped certain death, and the drop will continue. But we got ourselves our first nuke for day number 3.
근데 이 맵이 후반 가면은 테란이 별로 안 좋은 게 테란은 이제 멀티를 먹으면 먹을수록 동선이 수비 동선이 길어지고 멀티 숫자 또 많아가지고 저거한테는 괜찮고 그래가지고 별로 나는 테라한테 좋다고 생각이 안
I
되거든.
have no doubt in Cure's late game ability.
다른 맵에 비해.
But I also can definitely say, even in Dark Series versus Spirit, he played a long late game, 28-minute TVZ. He looked immaculate in a lot of it. He was just able to gradually play these little trading games and eventually choke out Spirit in that series.
버티 운영이 조금 빡세 이
So
맵이.
impressive Cure can manage to make it work against Dark. Dark looks so good in that series when he was facing against Spirit, who I think is actually really good at late game TVZ.
And it is always amazing to think about Dark when, you know, we have some of his opinions on things. And he has said, you know, I don't actually like playing late game that much. And I seem to always be pushed towards it, you know? And then he'll be like, oh, woe is me, I'm getting older, my hands are slower, blah, blah, blah. And then he plays some of the most amazing late game. And you're like, oh,
You made me do this.
Yeah.
You brought us here.
He's definitely doing that. And then he gets more angry, right?
다른 맵에 비해 저거가 한 2개 정도 더 먹을 수가
I'm
있거든.
just cleaning up your mess now.
But Dark is amazing, but Cure is also so spectacular in this late game position. All those Korean Terrans really, you know, having to play out this game when there was a meta where it was all 6-7 bases and ghost defense. They have the practice, that's for sure. Even though some of the mid games have changed a little bit and been a little more action packed, the late game is still something that Cure has practiced a ton, and he is set up for it. He's really got.
테라는 이런 멀티 먹기가 힘들어요.
Fifth base trying to turn into a sixth now actually.
거기 보면 동선이 엄청 길어져가지고 그러면 막 6시가
And then Cure
뚫리고.
waiting for that ghost to go out and get a nuke. I really want to see
병력 양분을 잘 해놔야 되고 저거는 또 그 점을 잘 활용해야 합니다.
This is how we get to start the day. Only going to be uphill, or I guess, you know, uphill, downhill. I don't know what's better in this situation.
It's only gonna get better.
It's only going to get better from here, I guess. Yeah, as we do have even, you know, a bunch more commands.
땅굴까지 이제 준비하고 있네요.
Because Cure knows he needs to have scans available against Dark, because that is something, again, Dark, even throughout all the little bit of talking that we've been doing for the last 2 minutes as they've been kind of moving around their army, he has had these infestors moving around, and yes, it seems like they haven't truly fully engaged on with their armies for a little bit, as we do have the first
바로 봤어.
But those infestors, they're lurking around, always looking for an opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, you do want to go ahead and get to a lower SCV count. That is the way.
첫 판부터 개빡세게 했네.
You want to have a higher army supply to then hopefully have a one big punch to end the game.
아, 나 땅굴 이거 봐야 됩니다.
Who is looking to rebound.
봐야 됩니다. 아!
Amazing bundle. Parasitic
결정적인
as well.
전투.
Followed up every single
어디를 보고 있었던 거죠?
And Cure's army supply plummets. A lot of that army supply that's there right now is just in production, and almost thank God that it's in production because he has to deal with the Nidus Swarm at his production now.
I think that was the distraction that led
잘 하다가
getting bungled like that. Dark with the
단 실수 한 방에 무너지는 테란.
The bungle goes down. Now the Banelings crash into that fifth base planetary and take it down. Dark with a humongous mineral bank is struggling on the
저것 때문에 6시가 날아간 거고.
He just built a ton of corruptors, I believe, preparing for that Broodlord transition. He doesn't have the gas to actually kill the Broodlords.
저걸 64만 찍혔어.
Actually, so. I mean, he has 17 corruptors going on 23, in which they'll be just good for dealing with the liberators, I guess. I actually don't think he needs.
이거는 4강입니다.
He already killed all the
4강 첫 번째
He's
경기.
going to find value in killing those at this point.
That's actually an insane amount of corruptors. I wonder if that's a mistake. We will see what he does with them. They certainly will take down the medevacs, and the parasitic bomb will not. They're going to go ahead and look at that planetary, and they can take it down themselves. Cure is trying to rebound from the colossal mistake versus the spellcaster, and he is
땅굴 또 뚫렸어요. 본진에, 테란 본진에.
over to the right side. Nidus Swarm, the main isn't taken care of, but it also has nothing in it.
근데 저건 페이커였던 것 같고.
StarCraft is so often a game of momentum. I have to
저걸링은
wonder
나오네.
if the corruptor transition
그러면서 또
is
6시.
a little bit strange over here in this situation for Dark.
테라는 저기 정면 쪽에 밀고 있는데
Dark needs a way to deal with his army, and suddenly all of those advantages he was garnering for himself, it's so difficult to actually take advantage of it. He loses a hatchery in the top right. The Nidus Worm is getting a significant amount of damage in the main base, but
타락기를 너무 많이 찍어 나서 지상 전력이 얼마 없긴 해. 우원기야 지금 19기 저거 의미가 없어. 그리고 우리 손 잘 잡아주고.
What do you do from here? He's still so close to max out. He can barely actually make units because the corruptors are so giving him so much supply. Do you kill your own corruptors? Like, what is the correct answer?
I guess they're gonna be overstepped anyway.
아, 그래 오줌이라도 싸야죠. 오줌이라도 싸야죠. 와, 존나 순식간이다. 뭐냐? 오줌들이 뭐야?
I guess so, but you know what? If there's no medevacs to heal them up, because the corruptors are killing every single one that pops out, maybe he can make some dark magic happen. But oh man, Cure, he is gonna have still a significant size army, and yes, a lot of it's weakened up, but those ghosts are still alive.
이게 인구가 비슷한데 사실 저 타락기 의미 있는 유닛이 아니거든 지금 이 정도 많고 오히려 지금 병력 상황은 테란이 괜찮은데 이걸 잘 이용해서 7시 그냥 버려야지. 저거는 버리고 그냥 1시 다시 먹으면 돼. 드론을 빼야 되는데 안 빼고. 유령 많거든요. 유령 많거든요. 아, 근데 울트가 잘못 터졌어. 아, 의료선이 없어요. 의료선이 없어요. 아이고, 지지.
Your logic is face of Dark. He does not care. He is going to obliterate most of this army. 2 ghosts are finally going to start to avenge some of their fallen brethren, but the Corruptors are now going to go uncontested with so many of the ghosts sniped off. They can just obliterate any of these command centers, and Cure is not in a position where he can afford to be giving up even more of his economy.
It really doesn't sound like it's the logical conclusion to a TPC. 20 Corruptors taking on all the Medivacs, and then the lack of Medivac energy and mobility, you're not dropping around everywhere without Medivacs, right? Ends up taking down the Terran. If Cure was able to take more of
굳이 7시를 자동 다 가는 게
that looks very, very different. A couple of
별로 좋지 않은 선택이었다.
army doesn't get surrounded, and then there's so much chaos and death.
호수병만 보내서 견제하고 그냥 의료선 더 나올 때까지 기다리는 게 나았을 것 같네. 끝났죠. 유령이 전부였는데 다 죽었어.
Forget a comeback, a mounted defense over here is going to be pretty tough, but Lings are going to be swarming on into a handful of the bio that don't have any Medivacs to heal on up. The Infestor looks like it's very close to a fungal, maybe doesn't quite have enough, and Widowmines are
그래 이런 걸로 견제를 하면서
but it's a little bit of damage for
버텼어야 되는데 까비.
He's not like he lifted, of course. The production is also going to be camped potentially by these Corruptors. A Planetary holding strong into Lone Ultra, but what about the natural? What about your production? Dark is looking to end game number 1 with 20 Corruptors flying in the sky, and Cure is probably in a little bit of disbelief. He got the 3cc opener. He got the great start to this game. He even got Dark's 4th base kill in the mid game, and yet here he is down 80 supply on his last.
이 게임은 사실
the villain of the Zerg player, Dark.
보기가 막 엄청 째면서 트리플 엄청 째면 빨리 째면서 2업 타이밍에 한번 세게 때리려고 했는데 초반에 이제 선풀이기도 했고 저걸 견제당하면서 막 타이밍 뺏기고 그래서 원치 않는 후반을 간 느낌? 후반이 별로 안 좋은 맵이기도 했고 생더블의 이제 선풀 시작이라 초반이 별로 좋지 않았습니다. 두 번째 경기 레더 스테이션 결과만 알지 게임 내용은 아예 모릅니다. 스퍼지 마세요. 그러니까 그것도 몰라. 몇 세트 누가 이겼는지 이것조차 몰라. 경기 완전히 그 결과만 알아.
Zombie, one of my favorite things when we have games from Dark is when after the tournament finishes up, people look at those games,
또 생더블.
and they say, all right, so how do I learn how to play from Dark?
이 맵은 생더블 할 만한 게 지상거리가 워낙 멀기도 하고 사신 더블을 해도 사신이 마땅히 정찰을 할 약간 그런 맵이 아니야. 생더블이 정석이기도 해.
Like it was entirely solid. It worked out fine in that particular game, but I think if it wasn't combined with some earlier epic moments, like the fungal parasitic bomb that even got the Medivac count decimated in the first place, then I wonder if that really would have been enough, as Dark would have had so much supply that even if they took down, let's say, 8 Medivacs, would have been a nice count to start with, then so much of the bio would have been left over, even if it was injured, but we just never really had that perfect scenario. Cure was always a little overstimmed, or he was always forced to micro around the units as opposed to make a stand, and the Corruptors ended up
저기 저그 11시 쪽에 누가 막 배럭 짓고 막 그런 짓걸 했나 보네. 저기 한번 서치하네요 살짝.
Yeah, and to be very clear, it's not weird to make those Corruptors, because Corruptors do have a lot of value. They snipe off not only the Medivacs if they hadn't already died to the fungal growth parasitic bomb combo, but even just the Liberator cannon. It makes a lot of sense to have those Corruptors available to knock out the Liberators, because you have those Ultras, you want to get the value from them. It's just the sheer number of them, and we were talking about this before.
적어도 이제 3머를 3시 쪽이 이제 짓고 하는 경우도 있는데 안전하게 그냥 12시 쪽에 먹었고.
Kind of halt a bit of that momentum, and you saw that was the moment where Cure started to snipe out factories, started firing back, and it seemed like it was such a strange moment there.
Yeah, and again, if it was one of those situations where we saw the Terran take a stand,
테라는 이제 전판이랑 빌드는 똑같습니다. 생더블하고 트리플도 빠르게 사신도 먼저 찍고.
Right? As soon as you try to retreat after sniping a couple of Liberators, the Ghost Snipes go down. But yeah, you're right. Of course, Corruptors are going to be found in the late game to deal with them Liberators. It was just the effect of having not many Liberators to begin with. You know, it seemed like, yeah, it was the next thing that was going to happen. You needed to now worry about the Liberator turtly defense of the Terran, but we're actually not kind of there yet. And even if we were getting there, you think he would trickle in 10 Corruptors first, then realize he needed more.
빌드는 전판이랑 완전 똑같아. 바이오닉 2배로 올렸어. 아, 사신 죽은 거 좀 아쉽네요.
It is Radisat Station, and it is a very macro-based map.
그래도 이제 레어가 아직 안 올라갔다는 건 확인했고.
No, absolutely not. We do have a couple Cyclones starting on up just for now, and and going back to the earlier game that we had, game number 1, we did have a couple of Cyclones make their way on the map, and we were talking about how they can be a nice little annoying presence, especially if a Zerg player, for example, is playing greedy or something. But Dark was able to get an immediate jump in onto those Cyclones. He immediately shut those down with the Lings, really caught Kier off guard. I'm really hoping, just for Kier's sake, that we can get to see him
잡을 수 있나? 못
utilize
잡네.
those Cyclones a little bit better for some of the early game utility they oftentimes have. And this is certainly not a great example of it, as Overlord survives.
Yeah, for now.
Yeah.
대회에서 맵을 선수들이 배나거나 푸나거나 그쵸. 칠판 5선승 7판 4선 5판 3선이면은 맵이 레드맵이 몇 개지 지금 9개인가? 밴 2개씩 하고 코인 토스 해가지고 이제 이긴 사람이 맵 먼저 밴하고 그 다음에 밴하고 서로 밴하고 선맵 정하고 그런 식이죠.
No, absolutely.
경기하기 전에 다 그 정합니다.
Perspective for both of these players, and taking a nice chill, easy game because they know that things will definitely be ramping up a little bit later on. As the Hellions and the Cyclones, the Cellions, you could say. I guess if you really want to merge those together, going to be poking forward. But actually, a couple more Cyclones being made there for Cure. So going up to a count of 4 now. It's always really fun to see where different Terran players have kind of landed on the early game Cyclone pressure. Like when do you stop? Where do you stop on all those Cyclone production?
Yeah, it seems to be. Sometimes very much just an opener, and other times like, I think I'm gonna kind of weigh with something a little bit more here. But for this, it's going to look for maybe a couple of queens and mostly a pushback on the creep, which really comes out from one direction on Radicet to begin with. Because you take that back base as the third, and the fourth, only has one entry. So the Hellion Cyclones are going to do exactly that.
구기는 약간 중화옵이고 강영우는 중상업 쓰는 것 같은데 그래픽.
Yep. Definitely playing a little bit on the greedier side with all of that. But
요즘도 다들 24인치 보이터 쓰나? 대회에서도?
Oftentimes thinking, I'm going to go for a fast infestation pit, but it's not going to be infestation pit. It's going to be a fast spire coming out from Dark.
Oh, I love myself some classic Zerg versus Terran play. Ling Bane, Ling Muta will always be the classic, even though Legacy of the Void has been a majority devoid of it, I suppose. I also love the idea of it on a large map where it's a lot about these like peripheral bases, not the contested bases on Radicet. So lovely idea. We'll see if it actually is effective. First, Dark has got to defend against a rather hefty.
다크는 죽을 것 같고요. 해병이라도 살려야 되는. 아이고 너무 많이 잡혔다. 너무 깔끔하게 막았어 저기 입장에서. 약간 사클이 약간 이런 싸움에서는 별로 도움이 안 되는 느낌? 굳이 내기까지 찍는 게 의미가 있었나? 아까 전판도 사클 그냥 내기 뽑아놓고 홈마기에 잡힌 거 보니까.
Yeah, and quite unfortunate for Kier, by the way. His supply is still, it's doable, but that could have been so many more units still hovering around creep, right? And instead, it is not even full 2 Medivacs going for the tiniest bits of damage. Kier knows that was a mistake. He is going to be playing from behind from here on out, but if he can get to a 4-base setup and max
대박 프로게이머실 완전 팬이었어. 어서 오세요.
Still might even have upgrades ahead, but I think that also is the fact that he does not know that it is.
세나는 탱크보다는 지뢰 위주로 마이오니.
And that's really going to change the tempo of this type of game where you think, well, I could always just be totally fine back at home, turtle here and let's go. But then suddenly mutas are appearing and perhaps even getting into numbers of 20 or 30. We've seen that in Heart of the Swarm. That stuff is really hard to turtle against.
I think mutas are one of those units that when they start to
이 맵이 그래서 지상보다는 공중으로 드랍할 공간이 많아서
after they're already at a high enough count. And these mutas are not necessarily at that count, but they are in still decent-ish enough numbers with 11 of them hiding themselves as they go across the map.
드랍 위주로 플레이하려는 것 같은데 뮤탈을 지금 깜짝 뮤탈이야? 뮤탈 모르고 있어. 본진 털이 없는 거? 박아놨네 하나는? 다행히 하나 박아놨네. 본진에 털이 있나? 아 근데 부서지면 다행이에요. 반응 빨랐어요. 야 여기만 딱 하나 지났는데 여기로 왔어. 지금 본진에 앞마당 하나씩 짓고 있는 것 같은데? 그러네. 와 이거 그냥 본진 들어갔으면 털 수 있었어. 도우기 그래도 저기다가 하나만 지났네. 뮤탈 오더라도 저기로 이제 올 거라고 예상하고. 아니 근데 너무 저거 뭐야 하나도 못 살렸어? 다 잡힌 것 같거든요? 이거 수비는 잘했는데 마감병력이 계속 다 잡히고 있어요. 저거 지뢰 신경 쓰느라 저거 못해온 것 같은데.
And now we do again have Dark recommitting to the mutas. He's going to get a few more. They do get into high numbers. They are obnoxious. Missile turrets will not deal with them. You're going to try and hide around those 4 Wood-of-Mine plays, which sometimes pops off, sometimes doesn't. And yeah, you are going to be deterred from getting.
아이고야 14개월도 감사합니다 매직원님.
어쩌다 보니 14.
Yeah, I think one of the
감사합니다.
solutions that Dark maybe has to exactly that kind of style here, though, is going to also be
땅굴을 좀 빨리
Not
준비하네요.
only use the mutas to be mobile and try and harass or be annoying, but he can also just take advantage of the moment that Kira feels comfortable moving out, throw up Nidus Swarms, and imagine a Nidus Swarm comes up in one location, the mutas are harassing another, and you're trying to move out and you're in the middle of the map. That's going to be one of the most infuriating moments for Kira if that's happening.
I do wonder if Kira wants to go ahead and mine out his third base and break down those rocks, then take the gold. Kind of condenses your bases around a little more of like that triangle that we tell you for 3 bases, but then it'd be 5. Just a thought, because I've seen more Terran, or actually all the races experiment with that idea. We'll look into that a little bit later. Kira might not still yet even be halfway on his 3-3, but he is confident that a push across the map is going to be a very
트위치 구독도 이제
player to hold. And I think he's right. At the end of the day, Lingbane
두 달, 최대 두 달.
perfect setup to actually go toe-to-toe
한 달에서 두 달밖에 안 남았네요.
I guess proper composition of Terran, you know,
할 수 있는 기간이.
Medivacs and a couple of Thors to ensure the mutas can't just pick away.
Yeah, and there's a very good reason why the mutas are often, associated with trying to buy time, is because the Zerg player needs to buy time and create openings for those Lings, Banelings, and mutas to find those big connections, to find those big opportunities. And so far, actually, I have to say, these mutas are actually doing a very nice job of forcing the army to.
테란 지금 그냥 저기 뭐냐 12시 쪽으로 그냥 드랍하면서 저 미네랄 파가지고 오 잠깐만 아 회심의 땅굴 눈치가 빨랐어 근데 그러니까 이쪽으로 가는 거 12시 쪽으로 가는 게 동선이 더 괜찮지 않나? 너무 여기 멀어가지고 추가 병력이 도착하기가 꽤 보이거든.
That's kind of what you got to do if you want to propel off a planetary. But he is not propelling off a planetary. He is just pushing, and Dark is going to go for the big surround.
Yeah, a lot of Widowmines are set up very defensively over here, but Dark is going to have no problem cleaning up.
아 싸움 너무 잘한다 저거가. 너무 잠깐만 너무 깔끔하게 잘 먹는데? 너무 압도인데?
Yeah, that was a really. That didn't actually look like it was going to go that great, even if.
아 여기 또 파요.
There are more medevacs than there are marines right now.
Yes, that's actually a problem. But I love the.
여기 파이면은 계속 또 저기 신경 써줘야 되거든요. 그냥 이거는 계약살인데?
That does open up an opportunity for the Zerg to do exactly what Dark is. You just don't usually have it. I love that he's so insistent on actually breaking down the rocks and then mining out the minerals.
I mean, it goes so well with even what he was doing in game number 1, where he was so good about continuously doing those little run by attempts, continuously trying to find opportunities.
아 올멀티에요 저거 12시 쪽 저기 테란 땅이거든요 12시 쪽에 11시 쪽.
He has his own little watchtower to even see that this has not quite been identified just yet. A couple of marines are there, but are a couple of marines really enough?
No, it is not. Here comes the Zerg Horde. Nidus Swarm coming along with it as well. And where is Kira's army? It went to go deal with potential attack up to the north side. It is coming down now. The reinforcements might eventually take care of this, but this is a successful 1-2 attack. The lack of planets at the top left will save the command center this time, but if mutas ever go over there, then they can take it out.
Yep, mutas are already still finding somehow some good value trades over here. It really feels like
도우기가 정상 컨디션이 아니었던 것 같은데.
How does Dark do it? He finds these opportunities where it feels like in the matter of just a handful of seconds, he hits at every single angle, and somehow Kira ends up not being really prepared for any of them.
저거가 잘하기도 있고.
I really hesitate.
아 이것도 뚫려요.
They're much better than I. But the so much trying to defend this top left base as you just saw there, even as Widowmine turning against them, where obviously you still have a problem dealing with being torn apart. That's what Zergs do best. But I feel like if you went for the bottom
테란은 완벽해야 돼. 실수 한 번 나오면 못 이겨.
and then that's your one attack path got to worry about for 4 bases. Move your army to the right side, then you have another like a second choke point that you also cover just with your push.
Yeah.
But that aside, we really are witnessing the dismantling of Kira. He has not been able to find a solid foothold in this game.
No, absolutely. Dark has just truly held the momentum for the entire
자원 저는 5천 3천.
He is continuing to just stay at a maxed out supply as he makes 50 or 60 lings at a time, adding on 7 corruptors, very reasonable count of corruptors to complement a couple of the ultras that are going to be coming on out, and he will be able to continuously just do what Zerg does best, swarm his opponent down, who has truly.
야 오히려 여기를 저그가 파버렸어. 본인이 파버렸어.
Even the last time he was maxed out, it hardly looked like it when the battle happened, right? It was a disjointed battle, and it was just for a 3-3 finish as well. It was not what you wanted as a Terran player. Kira absolutely has a second chance, third chance, whatever you want to call it, in this game to stabilize, to get his bases up, and to have that really great Terran army, the one that the Zerg players have to throw wave after wave of aggression at. But it's such a struggle for Kira to even get to that maxed out point.
Yeah. Well, the missile turret is going to act as a wallet over there for the mineral line, but it's not there that he has to worry about. The Lings, Banelings, Corruptors, and Ultras are all on the north side, and I actually really love the walling in over here for Kira. It's a great solution to the fact that a vast majority of this army.
테란이 여기서 이기려면은 한 5번은 막아야 돼요. 5번은 깔끔하게 막아야 돼. 하지만 소모전이 한 번이라도 돼버리면 저거한테 좋은 상황.
That might be a little overzealous, but Dark has got the bank to do this, even if it was not very good. And at the end of the day, it's pretty decent. A lot of SADs go down, a lot of bio goes down.
이거는 저거가 손해를 많이 봤거든요. 이래도 근데 저거가 좋아. 자원 상황이 너무 너무 좋아서. 테라는 이런 전투를 한 앞으로 아까 5번 했을 때 4번 더 해야 돼.
Yeah, and I think that Kira is a very capable Terran player. It's clearly he's already outperformed Maru in this particular event, but this is one of those situations where exactly what you were talking about before. If this was Maru in Kira's situation, I'd be saying, oh no, a lot of the value units survived. Exactly what you were talking about. We've seen comebacks from this exact same kind of situation happen before for the Terran player. It will have to be a comeback from this point.
저기 테란 쪽 금멀티까지.
But Cure still does have a shot in this game.
Yeah, I'm no believer of the Turtle Terran, but Dark is just... The particular point here is that Cure cannot get this base up, but he has to try. And that is the vulnerable aspect here. He was behind 3 planetaries and just content back on a choke. That is something different. But now the planetary is finally also going to be broken. And while Dark Supply also does dip down in maybe one of the worst trades in this game, he has the base to be okay with it.
Now that's absolutely true. As we already see the Remax 124 Zerglings
인구수 2배 차이.
and I hope someone's
저걸 130마리 지켰고요.
Okay, that's tap out.
GG.
Dark did not take
out and not a
he had duplicate open their thing, which the Terran going
이거는
out of macro map. Every single time he moved out, he was a
이런 의료선 견제 했을 때 항상 병력을 살아서 돌아와야 그 다음으로 가는 러쉬가 이제 세지고 그래야 되는데 병력이 갈 때마다 다 잡혔어. 다 잡혀가지고 의료선만 살아 돌아가지고 이길 수가 없었어.
Let's see if they no shot. Even when I think, you know, he thinks could I will get the 3-0 he's looking for. In the top right, that's the red Zerg for DKZ Gaming. He is
1.25 배속입니다 지금. 좀 빠르게 보고 있어요.
And down here on the bottom left-hand side of the map, the blue Terran player, ladies and gentlemen, make some noise for this guy. He needs your energy to try and mount a comeback in this series from Team Liquid. He is Cure.
오말로 볼게. 정상 배속으로 볼게요. 렛츠고 프로토스 이러고 있다. 사각에 프로토스 없어 이 자식아. 렛츠고 프로토스. 길드를 바꿨습니다. 첫 번째, 두 번째 판 생더벨만 하다가 이번에는 투배럭 더블. 똑같은 빌드 써가지고 너무 처참하게 말렸으니까 빌드를 바꿀만 하죠.
More and more convincingly as time has gone on. We do have Cure really changing things up. I loved his building game for 1. Thought it was effective, didn't work out. Game number 2 makes sense for the map 100%. Game 3 on the ropes here. He's not just going for the forward 2 racks. He's adding on the 3rd. He's looking to snowball and most.
프로토스 잘하는 사람 누가 있지? 해외? 맥스펙스. 쇼타임 말고 없나? 립은 은퇴한 것 같고.
Here. So how is this going to pan on out? Overlord is going to come on forward. He's going to see 2 barracks, the full wall over there. It does not reveal that third we're talking about. And when actually Dark realizes what he's up against is going to heavily
엄청 강한 포스를 뽑는 사람은 좀.
You do see the lack of command center if you're courageous with your overlord. Some Zergs aren't. They're scared of a marine popping out instead of reapers. So
국내 해외 통틀어서 프로토스 그래도 제일 포스 있는 애가 준호 아니야? 준호가 제일 잘하는 것 같은데 프로토스는.
There is a possibility there's a mind game and the command center is on the high ground, but there's also a real strong possibility it is actually a 3rd Rax, and that's exactly what it is. Dark still doesn't have speed started up here. He is in fact not going to have it. I think he's already taken off a couple of drones.
사신 몇 마리? 뭐야 3배럭이야 이거? 사신 3마리씩 나고 있잖아. 3배럭 사신이었네요? 2배럭이 아니라?
Yes, yes he is. That seems, you know, potentially difficult the more that Reapers appear here.
Yeah, I'm like, Zombie Grub, am I wrong about this? But if
보통 투배럭 해가지고 3-40만 쓰고 더블을 많이 가는데 지금 사신에 오히려 힘을 좀 더 줬어요.
I'd say the most important thing as far as not just getting bopped by this build is ensuring that your queens survive. If you lose 1 queen because you missed micro or didn't realize the Reaper was coming as fast, that snowballs really quickly. But this is the real issue with not having particularly fast speed.
저걸린 발업이 좀 늦어서 충분히 저 멀티 견제할 수 있는 것 같은데?
You're building 3rd hatch. It just doesn't happen. I mean, sometimes this 3rd hatch even dies to the 4th and 5th Reaper from a 2 racks.
취소시켰고 이러면은 테란 괜찮죠.
Yeah, so Dark is just going to take the loss, and he has to cancel that base, loses the drone, and says, well, at least I'll have an okay-ish drone count because I've just been continuing to make workers throughout all this. And you were talking about that Queen count being very important. The Reapers still not in such high numbers that they feel confident in actually pushing even against the 3 Queens, although I'm not going to lie, with Kira's micro, I feel like he could actually try and pull something out over there with some nice Reaper grenades as well. You have to be a little bit cautious there as Dark.
Yeah, the speed could be finishing at any second. As far as Kira's aware, we know it's 2 seconds away, so he has to be very careful being surrounded. But honestly, with this many Reapers, if Dark makes enough lings to get this around and get the kill, that's actually still kind of a problem for the Zerg who
자, 여기까지 하고 빠져야지. 저걸 10개 찍었어.
drones. So basically, Kira is
안 가나?
confident that even if there were enough lings, he'd skedaddle, he'd
저기 뭐야, 뚫려 있었어?
and the Reapers would still be effective enough, or that they actually will.
뭐야, 저기 사진, 와, 여기 사진 쓰기 그냥 졸라 좋은 맵이었네. 저 미네랄 안 뚫어도 저기 점프가 되구나.
As absolutely true, and we do see
300억 사실 할만했네.
of course of the spawn locations there as Kira's Tech Lab is a little bit more exposed if Dark decided to try and take advantage of that, but Queen's gonna try and engage against
사신 때문에 이제 12시 쪽에 멀티를 먹었는데 12시가 취소하는 바람에 여기를 먹었는데 여기서 또 사신이 전자 가능해. 이거를 이제 뒤에서 먹으려고 저글링으로 하고 있는데 사실 맞히죠.
Another highlight for Reapers on this map is what we're seeing exactly here. Dark has to break down his rocks in the middle of his gold.
잡으러 갑니다. 잡으러 갑니다. 잡을 수 있나요? 시작합니다. 과연 사신 컨트롤 봅시다. 봅시다. 오, 잘 빠졌어요. 잘 빠졌어요. 잘 빠졌어요. 폭탄 너무 좋아요. 컨트롤. 야, 이거 나였으면 사실 다 잡혔는데 도우기를 다 살렸다. 컨트롤 존나 좋았어 방금. 무빙 뒤졌어. 이거 뭘 다 잡히는 거였어. 나였으면 다 잡혔어.
It's supposed to be the safe zone. I really wouldn't blame any player for thinking I'm safe here. I don't need to watch them right now.
Exactly, but the juke was excellent.
이게 또 투우선 타이밍 때 저 사신이 또 도움이 되거든요. 은근히 괜찮거든요.
Dive into the main and be a secondary attack, or they could actually straight up help on the main. You know, they're still very effective against lings with the Marines. They'll soak a couple of banelings and the grenades. We've seen a couple of times grenades be effective, popping those banelings all over the place so that the Marines can even focus them down faster and more precisely.
Yeah, and remember, I mean, this is the kind of game where sometimes you'll see these sort of pushes happen before baneling speed is about to finish.
공이랑 방패 타이밍이라 이거 투요소 타이밍 빡셉니다. 저걸링 노업이에요. 이질 이름 눌렀어요. 그만큼 초반에 저거가 견제를 많이 받아가지고 맹독충 지금 발업도 안 돼 있어요. 야, 영리하게 하네요. 좋은 자리 잡으면서. 미네랄은 그래도 타왔네.
Especially compared to the last 2 games. His 3rd CC isn't even halfway done. He doesn't have double engineering bay, although he is now grabbing +1 armor. It is a delay on the economy, but the idea is that if the Zerg player has to respect this, then they're also going to be suppressed to a certain amount, and it's possible they don't even respect it enough and they just die.
Yep, drag them down with you rather than both of you.
한번 들이댈 법했는데
to the fight.
안 들이대고 그냥 넘어가네. 그래도 괜찮아. 탱크까지 와서
and has that opportunity to put on those little pressure plays. So far, has not been able to find those openings though. Dark has been on top.
여기 탱크가 저런 데다가 자리 잡으면은 괜찮거든. 좋은 자리 딱 보이네. 탱크.
It really is, and the Reapers are helping again.
이런 거 털리면 안 됩니다. 막아놨나요? 막아놨어요. 잘 막아놨어요.
Not gonna happen, however. He does have banelings forming off the left too, but that's a lot of bio on Dark's front lines before he has his hatchery done. So
테라는 지금 트리플 먹을 생각 없고 앞마당 뽕이야.
This position, that potential run by is going to turn into a bit of a surround that has now been tipped off to Cure, so he's going to be extra wary of that.
Has 3 medevacs, so can pick up some of these units if he does decide he has to evacuate on out of there. Even has 2 siege tanks that have joined the fray. Those siege tanks are going to get loaded into the medevac and look for an opportunity to siege up behind the mineral line, which is going to be extremely annoying, even going to be in range of one of these gas geysers. So it's going to put a little bit of pressure here for Dark.
Yeah, Dark is, you know, he's trying to figure things out, and he does have some time thanks to the Queens being so tanky. But this Baneling run by that he's got set up here really does have to do some damage or big distraction
맞죠?
A tank is sieged up to help at least guard against the potential. So I don't know what Dark is thinking now, as now his extractors are going down, his evolution chamber could be in trouble too, and he just can't get a great angle against this push point.
Yeah, I wonder if he's waiting for reinforcements to move out from the natural over to the third or something before he goes into the run by, because yeah, he has to do something, and I wouldn't even hate the idea of using the run by to distract while also trying to go for the breakout, just because it forces Micro on both fronts or something, but he just hasn't been able to find opportunity on either end just yet. The Lings finally forced to actually disengage against these Marines, because otherwise the Evo Chamber is getting so low on hit points, he's going to lose +2 weapons.
Yeah,
공업되고 있는 챔버 깨졌고, 그러면서 셋이 들어가고.
been able to get a second or third, I suppose, evolution chamber up to get it again, but not going to happen. Also, Cure with more army being produced, of course, finally has enough to feel comfortable to send 2 medevacs across the map. I say comfortable enough because that means he's going to have less back at home against the potential Ling Baneling run by, which finally goes for the throat. Third CC is taken down temporarily. 14 SCVs dead for that one, but overall, Cure chose a good moment to go for the drop as well. He's got 2 broken
12시 쪽 의료선 하나 있고.
Dark is under trouble. His queens are in trouble, and Cure is going to be able to recover from a 14 SCV loss.
No, he absolutely will. He is finding the equalizing damage over here. For whatever damage Dark has been able to do to him, Cure has been able to continue to find damage, but also still keep his solidified pressure play on that natural expansion, denying the gas guys and denying any drones that get a little bit too far forward toward those minerals.
Dark has had to just live with this bothersome, like, tumor on the left side, you know? Yeah, it's like, this is just my life now. But he has been trying to do what I think he does very well in these games, to make some of these comebacks happen, which is
야, 이렇게 보니까 이 맵 지형지물이 진짜 테란 맵인데? 탱크 위치 봐, 저거 어떻게 먹어? 저거 링링으로.
It works out. The Terran player is distracted or did underestimate his ability to gamble. You know, more of the army on the opposite side, where most of the Zergs would be, again, very scared to do that. So Dark is doing what he needs to do, but it is still a troublesome place for the Zerg.
It absolutely is. Now, a couple more Marines are going to try and find little bits and pieces of damage, even maybe sniping up a creep tumor or something over here. Dark is actually going to be forced to pull back a lot of his army, but is he pulling it back to the right location? Yes, he's going to the bottom right-hand side, and he's going to try and collapse in on this Bioforce. Widow Mines are eventually going to go off.
오,
Takes a while, but they do eventually go off, and Dark does.
그 와중에 저거 버티는 게 말도 안 돼.
Stabilize long enough that his +2 melee is going to finish up, which nearly ties up the upgrade.
He does, that's true. 3-3 starts up, lickety split for Cures. He's now
저기 한번 싸움. 오, 잘 살렸고요. 이건 또 잡히면 또 게임 이상해지니까 무조건 살리기만 하면 돼, 테라는. 살리고 딱 3-3업 됐을 때 끝낼 수 있을 것 같은데.
I'm fine with that. I took my gases elsewhere. He actually doesn't even need that many gases, apparently. Still very low on that one. But Dark has had a troublesome game from minute 1, and now push has come to shove. Cure's army supply 30 above his opponent, with the upgrade lead now no longer in effect. But the supply and the quality of supply.
야, 저 탱크 이제 좀 살려서 정면으로 움직일 것 같은데요. 뭐야, 왜 한 개가만 가? 한 개는 저기 그냥 냅두는데? 여기 나오고 하지? 야, 그러면서 양방 해방선 견제 들어가면서 이거 이제 적응 진짜 까다롭죠?
To reinforce, this is the point at which he wants to make the battle happen, of course, in his favor. Dark has added on Hydras to try and wait for some of these better upgrades too, including the Hydra upgrades. Only has the range, not the speed.
저거 빡쳤습니다, 박노씨. 많아요. 근데 저걸 링이 존나 많아요. 저 살려서 돌아오고 다시 또 모아서 3-3 때문에 들어가고.
How much of that is just in production? It looks like there's still a fair bit on this bottom right hand side, and they may be able to find one of the hatcheries. An easy pick off here for Cure.
Yeah, absolutely. No contest, but that's the decisions that Dark is making. The why.
진짜 적어도 잘 지어 짜낸다.
Let that one go. Try and get at least some more creep spread going, because that has been a sore point. Not a lot of creep to work with around his bases, which is why Cure is continuing to push this issue. Dark taking the engagement once again, but this is far worse.
참치?
No surrounds possible.
Cure is just
참신하다고
looking a
계속.
little bit too strong with his army. Now he's dropping it on the other location. It looks like he's going to be able to push on through. The Bailey count is not high enough, and Cure puts one on the board.
In a masterful display of that TVZ from
아, 이번 판은 너무 잘했다, 테란이. 지형지물 이용 잘하고 초반에 300 사신으로 이득도 많이 거뒀고 300억 사신으로 이제 처음에 12시 해처리를 한번 취소했던 게 되게 컸어. 3매 다른 데로 강요하면서 탱크 압박 저 12시로 이제 갔던 게 너무 좋았어. 12시 쪽 이제 자리 잡은 병력으로 이득 너무 많이 거뒀죠. 이게 사신으로 스노우볼 딱 너무 잘 굴려가지고 그 덕분에 이겼네. 야, 저 뭐야, 존나 큰 배트크루저 뭐야 저거. 카메라인 줄 알았는데 배트크루저였어. 아, 또 생더블 가나요? 생필패였는데? 생더블만 가면 다 졌는데, 도욱이.
I am happy to see it. Kira is an established veteran of the scene. Of course, both of them are playing for a decade plus at this point, I believe. So, you know, that's not usually something I have to worry about being phased coming into the round of 4, but it's always a concern. We do see even the best players in the world occasionally just have a mental break. But not for these.
첫 번째 판, 두 번째 판 다 이제 생더블하고 사신 한 마리 뽑고 트리플 빨리 가져가고 그런 식으로 갔거든요. 많이 째면서 갔거든요. 이번에도 똑같이 하려는지.
He really is one of those players that he doesn't just go into the semifinals and says, okay, well, I'm getting a little bit nervous. Can I really win? No, he moves in and he says, I am going to win.
근데 그렇게 무난하게 갔을 때는 강릉구가 다 이겼어.
The finals and be happy. I'm going to win this event. That is what success means to me.
이번엔 사신도 안 찍고 바로 선반응 넣어. 생더블 선반응 넣어.
Genuinely think that Dark is just he's won me over with his swag.
두 번째 가스 안 가는 거 보니까 이번에 트리플.
When he would do metagame styles and stuff at certain points in time in certain years, I'm just like, man, Dark, I really don't enjoy watching this, but goddamn.
미친 듯이 뛰는 거야.
We're not going to talk about what the composition was. I'm not going to.
그냥 존나 째는 거임, 테란.
I'm enjoying the heck out of his compositions and his gameplay. This particular series, I think that's actually been so much fun. Also, is that not only looking at this series in particular with the past 3 games, but even his series versus Spirit, they look so different. There's so much variety that Dark brings to the table.
초반 링링, 초반 뭐 바퀴개말 다 배제하고 그냥 말도 안 되게 그냥 찍은 겁니다.
One of the greatest things you can do without that factory, it's the catch-all defensive structure. It's got the Hellions against Lings, got the Cyclones and Tanks against Roaches. It's really nice. But if you think your opponent's not going to cheese you, which is quite the call against Dark, but I guess he's not so much cheesy as he is very aggressive, then you can get away with this. Expedite to the barracks play and get there on the best economy possible. Dark will eventually pick up on this. Speed kicks in as he gets some Lings into the natural. He's going to see no Hellions. That's already a good sign. And he's actually going to even see.
이저 지금 팩도 안 졌거든요. 화염차도 안 나거든요.
He's bothered by that one supply depot. He's gonna get that one.
He's like, you're not allowed to start walling this early. And I mean, even just actually a lot of the lost mining time, the SCVs didn't just go.
테란도 이제 저 서치를 안 갔기 때문에 링이 뒤에 더 있을까봐 함부로 못 나가요. 그래도.
I think he maybe got what was that? 2 Marines in the end and an SCV. For 10 Lings, how do you feel about that with the supply depot? I guess.
Yeah, plus the delayed mining time. Yeah. It is a 3cc, and I think that did give him a successful scout.
이 정도면 테란이 나쁘지 않은데 바퀴 가고 있거든 저거.
So it is most likely then 3 racks. Although I guess it could be a 2-1-1 follow-up, but it's these little things that he's probably also trying to read still as the Lings continue to bother. If it's a 3 racks, then we're talking about a much later medevac push, but we're talking about a much faster, perhaps, bio push on the ground, which Terrans will threaten the Zerg with when they think they can. Now, I'm not sure this is the game in which Cure wants to gamble kind of with that, but I think just the presence of this build, you know,
자원 상황은 테란이 엄청 좋아.
seriously, and Dark has opted for finally a Roach Warren.
Yep, and this is really interesting because this was also what he was doing in most of the games against Spirit. Again, and I keep bringing up that series versus Spirit because that is the ZVT he played during this event, the most recent ZVT that we can really witness of Dark. And he was oftentimes going up against Spirit, who was looking for Hellion.
스팀 양배 되는 타임 맞춰서 한번 나갑니다. 의료선이 없어도 이게 초반에 3배럭을 되게 빨리 들려놔서
There's an overlord in the
세긴
backside.
센데 바퀴 그게 맞춰가지고 10개
I think he
찍어놨네요.
was still looking for the starport timing because he sent his other overlord in. It's not too often I'd say pro gamers have two overlords on the other side of the map, but Dark does in this one. So one in the back guarantees that scout, one at the left just guarantees any other scout he might need. But the Ling still would have really wanted to be very cautious about
바퀴 봤나? 바퀴 보고 빼는 건가?
But it is really
아,
good that
봤구나.
Dark has that full information.
바퀴 보면
That
빼야지.
single engineering down the front line, if there was no overlord scouting, might have made him wonder if tanks were being hidden and it was like a 2-base push, which, yeah, again, with the overlord in the main, that's not the issue. So he knows exactly what he's up against, and he knows that Cure is going to, not really push with these Marines so much as hope to get a reaction from him, stop building drones, start building army. But at this point, Dark might want to be doing it anyway. He's already
박명호도 저기서
he's got one away, and Dark is entirely
해병 숫자 보고 바퀴 속을 가는 판단이 너무 좋았던 것 같아.
just waiting for his next wave of units.
Yeah, I mean, he already
어설프게 여왕링으로 막으랬다가 걸릴 수 있었거든.
I know that these roaches are inflated in supply kind of moves as he went from I think 80 supply to 100.
바퀴를 오히려 많이 찍고 있어요 지금.
I should say. As yeah, it's just pure roaches coming on out. Lings are gonna kind of poke on forward.
회전하면서 바퀴 뽑는 기준? 본인이 초반에 막 바퀴 개미를 뭐 찌르기를 할 때 찍는 경우도 있고.
He also wants to see if it's tank production and how fast and how many tanks there are. If you go immediately into tanks, especially with a more standard
뭐 기갑병 푸시나 이런 거 눈치 까고 나서 약간 수비용으로 바퀴 뽑는 경우 있고.
You still gotta do the right things, of course, but you're better set up than if you went right into Wood mines, for instance.
Does this medevac see any of the roaches moving across the map?
No, it does not. This is a problem. Cure? I'm not sure he's going to have enough back at home, and when the actual 1-1 roach push comes, so he's really got to scout out that this is Dark's intention.
Well, some of the roaches that were already, I believe, witnessed earlier as well, like maybe a few less roaches than that.
바퀴 저렇게 많이 뽑는 거 보면은 테란도 불곰 찍어줘야죠. 불곰 섞어주는 게 좋아요.
Surely you must have a few more, but how many more do you have? I don't see any, is this a situation where you can really reactively start producing a particular kind of unit like Sea Shanks or something, knowing that roaches are coming?
You definitely want to swap over into tanks if you haven't already. Cure has been building them. They just really haven't been for a very long time.
이게 탱크는 괴멸충 어설픈 소수 탱크 저 정도 숫자는 감집에 그냥 먹히거든. 그래도 숫자 많다 보니까 막고는 있는데
But the supply is still incredibly scary. We know it's quantity versus quality, but we know that Dark could also get mixed around at a really opportune moment. Cure wanted to go for the round.
단단해요, 단단해.
He is going to lose so many of these Marines. The Sea Shank barely purchased anything in the fight.
이게
Finally, a couple of roaches go in to snipe it on off.
혜택으로 어떻게 바퀴 개별 상대도 될 것 같긴 한데 은근히 또 잘 버텨 바퀴가. 불곰이 좀 있어야 돼. 아니면 벙커가 좀 있던가. 저거가
Army was there to properly defend with the SCV pull, with the tank firing. It
또
could
못
still
먹는
be
거라.
a quantity issue. Cure's gonna try
이게
and hold on
트리플이
for
들려버리면
bonus
힘들죠.
levels. He is on 4 command centers. He can take a bit of a bruising here and still recover in the overall game, especially if Dark then gets overconfident, tries to get us around, fails, and the quality of the Terran army works. But Cure has been pushed back. That wasn't the defense he still wanted. Even though he made a last-minute defense out of this, ideally I think he would have had even like a couple of bunkers to further delay. He would have had a third tank obviously positioned
3월까지 이제 커맨더까지 지어놨지만 트리플도 못 하시고 있는 상황.
Yeah, Roaches and Ravagers going to poke on forward, but I actually want to highlight our wonderful, incredible observers did catch a scan that Cure did on the third base location, I think, of Dark. And I think that's just checking to see, like, how committed are you to this? Have you already started transitioning out? do I still have an opportunity to bounce back exactly like you were talking about? Because Cure, if he can somehow manage to hold out just a little bit longer, if Dark takes any kind of bad engagement or something, there still is very much so a shot here for Cure.
Unfortunately, it looks like Cure was reacting to the information as he was getting his upgrades. No armor is done for him, but +2 attack ace. He's got the high ground tank working, a tank on the low ground, also getting tons of shots. The SCVs are being pulled in here as the Marines try to make this stand.
그냥 힘으로 뚫어버린 저그.
The second take is eventually going to go down, but it got so many shots off. There still might be some hope as Cure also has a drop, trying to decimate Dark's economy. But Dark still has the supply. He still has Cure choked up in his natural, and he's still out for blood.
Up 80 supply, and he's cleaning up back at home. The
잘한다.
Medevac gets sniped off. There's no sustainability to this push-in anymore. Whereas Dark is continuing to be so obnoxious with these corrosive piles, forcing these Medevacs back, even picking some of them off. Dark smells the grand finals. It's in his reach. This Grinch is ready to steal Christmas away from Cure, and he is finally going to get cleaned up on that other side of the map as well.
No one's coming in here to melt his heart, unfortunately. Dark knows that he is going to be the victor. It is a matter of time. There's no reason for Dark to pull away, to allow Cure the chance to get his third back on location, and to even double expand with that fort that's been hanging in the air forever. Cure does not want to tap out. It is his last life in this tournament, but the supplies are telling the tale.
결국 생더블 한 3판 다
Dark with the 3-1
져버렸네.
victory will go on to the grand finals.
무난하게 가선 안 진단 마인드인가 저거? 이게 4강 첫 번째 경기였고요.
먼저 우선 경기력은 전혀 좋지 못하고요. 지금 몸 상태가 너무 안 좋아서 오늘 이길 수 있을까라는 생각을 했는데 상대가 잘 맞물려서 이기게 될 것 같습니다.
Yeah, he actually says he doesn't think he played
Okay.
well because he's not in good shape.
근데 수염 언제 밈?
Somehow
이분 수염 언제 밈?
in his favor, so he was able to advance.
All the builds worked out. They got a little creative in Game 4. Tell us about the Roach Ravager mask you brought out.
4경기에서 그 김도호 선수의 플레이에서 어떤 틈이나 그 성향이 보였길래 마지막에 바퀴 갬블충 그 찌르기로 끝낸 건가요?
틈이 보였다기보단 3세트 때부터 뭔가 제 집중력이 확 떨어지더라고요. 그래서 이거 올인 아니면 답이 없겠다는 생각으로 한번 해봤는데 그게 잘 통한 것 같습니다.
Yeah, he says that it wasn't anything.
보고한 게 아니라 애초에 그냥 바퀴 찌르기를 하려고 했었네. 근데 이게 빌드가 잘 맞물렸네.
So he really needs to go for an all-in there.
Your concentration, that can't go down. You've got another match to play in the grand finals. It'll either be against Serral or Clem. What's your preference?
네, 결승전에서 클램 또는 세라리인데.
난 딱 보고 맞춰서 한 줄 알았거든.
다들 이제 젊은 놈들인데 상대하기 너무 힘들 것 같고요. 뭐
젊은 놈들?
지금
본인
오늘 컨디션으로 봤을 땐 테란전보다 저저전이 나을 것 같아요.
Yeah, he says those kids, both of them are going to be tough to face.
Now consider your
클램이 2002년생인가? 클램 존나 젊은 놈이긴 하지.
From the word like and hit
to try to break. He's so good at a free crown that.
Oh, you have to put it there? Yeah, put it there. That it's not.
세랄 레이너야? 둘이 같은 팀이었어?
I think you put
마실리스크?
it. Can you put it like however you want?
젠가 왜 하는데?
No, so you need to guess this one. No, not that one. I think it's this one. The power. The power.
Like it to fire?
I would have followed it. He's both people here.
And I hope you guys are gonna.
Right now, huge.
He'll take some.
야 유럽 원탑 저그 대 유럽 원탑 테란.
Gaming. He's the greatest player. It's Serral.
랭킹 1등 3,750포인트.
And his opponent spawning up in the top left.
랭킹
He's
7등
looking
클램.
for that Christmas miracle, that storybook ending. It is Team Liquid's Clem.
You know, Steadfast, we talk about this matchup, we talk about these players,
that have played so often 10 times this
야,
year. is an important thing.
강남 저그.
Has never beaten Serral offline. It's never happened.
스발.
Close home story cup in the finals.
테라는 저기 먹으면 예능 전략하네 이러는데 저거들은 저기 먹어도 그냥
Weird. He's taking the gold base as
먹을 수 있어.
Yes, he is, and it's an
대회에서도 저기 먹잖아.
15 hatch, the Eric opener.
정석이야 저게.
Brazilian Zerg player.
저거는 그냥 마음대로 먹고 싶으면 먹을 수 있어. 심지어 저기는 황금 미네랄인데 황금 또 가스까지 있어요.
Those ESL Open Cup weeklies, and just a very cool opener overall. Has been adapted to ZVT a little bit, and on Equilibrium, I'm really interested to see what comes of it. There's a lot of things.
먹으면 그냥 효율이 미쳤어.
If you bait the Reaper down to that gold base, Serral might be able to slip a couple of lings from the main across the map and maybe get a delay on his opponent's command center. This is a very interesting opener already.
It really is, but if we go back to what happened yesterday, Clem plays Solar, and you talk about, the Lings slip by, and this might be just a big bait.
테라는 이제 저거다가 안마다 없는 거 보고
Not quite as similar idea.
원베이스 오딘도 생각해야 되고
But Clem really was able to abuse that
내 쪽 근처 해처리도 생각해야 되고 저 근멀티도 생각해야 돼. 그러니까 생각해야 될 게 좀 많아. 없는 거 봤어.
Doesn't check the main base. He's not going to see the gas timing. He's not going to see the pull timing. Instead, beelining right back down to the gold base because this is equal.
다행히 바로 봤네요. 바로 근멀티 가서.
Wow, this is actually really big. Okay, so he checks for the creep, confirms that there's no weird 12 pull roach ravager, nothing like that.
저 위치의 벙커?
Does not see that his
무슨
opponent
의미?
was gasless from the main and is going to start mining the high yield gas base. Now he will figure it out.
야, 씨 미쳤다.
This is a
저거
super
씨
interesting play.
계열 봤죠. 금가스에 저거
To intercept units between.
금민이랑 계속 먹고
This is
있는데
already a very
죽이고
very
싶죠.
maybe unexplored scenario for Clem. Oh, an attempt to surround the Reaper, not able to get it. There is going to be a second Reaper popping out from Clem. This is so different from a normal ZVT already.
그러면서 바퀴 근물 먹고 이제 바퀴 가는 게 거의 뭐 정석. 그 와중에 투저글링 돌려서 안마다 견제하는 세랄. 와 사신 양만큼 뭔데 근데 그 와중에.
And actually, nothing else. Everything's in production right now. Eventually, you're going to be able to build Marines or whatever that tech lab is on, that reactor's on.
그러니까요.
Reapers don't kill roaches all that fast.
SCB 잡고 오 그냥 잡.
And that is going to be the next phase of this. Serral will be able to eventually clean up this bunker. Good juggling right there with the SCV from Clem. But this
그냥
is
부수고
a
가네요.
number of roaches. And salvage, not able to get the salvage there. For a second, it looked like he might have, but will be able to get the cleanup. Serral, that is. Nice save on the drones from Serral. And with the Ling slipping across the map from Serral, picking off that one SCV in the natural. Oh my god, the reactor. Holy moly.
오 깨질 뻔했어 투저글링.
Almost got that.
But he didn't, and that's the important thing. I like what's happening with the Reapers here as well. They're not going to help out in the defense in the slightest, but you keep him outside that gold base. It continues to be pressure to force Serral to multi-prong to deal with not only the attack, but this harassment.
그래도 앞에 지어놓은 원벙커가 은근히 시간을 많이 끌어줬어. 저 바로 도착했으면 굉장히 빡셌을 것 같은데 벙커가 결국에 좋은 수였네.
Even with the power, even with the economic advantage that gold base happens, Serral needs to get something done with this.
Yeah, he certainly does, and he is committing pretty hard. Clem fortunately did go into a third and fourth cyclone. This is going to be a very aggressive attack.
사클 저거 유리대 보거든요. 저거 컨트롤 진짜 잘해야 돼. 저 까딱하면 뒤져 저거.
And we do see some very nice corrosive vials zoning his opponent back on the
저 봐봐. 신발 차는데 뒤지고 있어 저거 사클.
We are going to see a very tenuous defense, if at all. Corrosive Vials finding even more workers. I do like the way that Clem has pulled the SCVs to kind of force Serral in towards the high ground, but that command center.
아파요. 사클 컨 잘해야 돼요.
Vision baits out a cyclone lock on as well, so these Ravagers, they're not dying just yet, and a big bomb workers go down here. And of course, you're not mining on the command center. Finally, Clem's gonna deal with this. Finally, he forces this back. But you talked about cyclones. Steadfast, I thought there are 2 Marines on the map. He doesn't even really force it.
I mean, yeah, this has not actually been fully cleaned up yet. Like, this is so much damage. We have seen a ton of workers go down, a ton of cyclones go down, and Serral is on the gold base behind this. Now, it obviously was a very dedicated attack. You talked about it needing to get damage done. It has gotten that damage done and then some. But that was so scary and Clem survived it. I really am impressed with both players. One, for the strategy from Serral and the execution, but two, for Clem just staying alive, and he's on 3 CCs.
That he is, but Serral's got his 4th base on the way at the same time. And I want to go back to this Cyclone idea for a second. It is very much the unit that has defined the meta here. This is going to get an Overlord. But Cyclones are not quite the end-all, be-all anti-Roach deck that they were before the patch when they did all that bonus
그래도 저거 막은 게
damage.
신기하다, 테란이.
Absolutely. But we saw, how little health they had.
적어도 그러면서 발사업 누른 거 보니까 바퀴 위주로
They didn't kill things quite as
바퀴
quickly as they
개멸
used to.
위주로 좀 유닛을 구성하는 것 같아.
I think that's the fact that there was like what
3월
12, 13
그러니까
units there. If anything, the
존나
fact that
빨라.
he's able to retarget instantly and he doesn't have to worry about the lock on, and it's he's able to react with them out. The Cyclone is definitely better prepared to deal with that. And I would go so far as to say that if Clem hadn't built a 3rd and 4th Cyclone, he would have straight up died to that, no matter how good the defensive micro was. But
테란 이제 겨우 3번
going to
돌리는데.
have to overcome a massive deficit right there. We are going to see Serral. He's not going to take a page out of Dark's book just yet and go for that 66 drone Roach Ravager, well, pretty much Roach Ravager all in that we saw.
전제로 풀어 가야죠 그래도.
before. But he will instead go for the Infestation Pit, the Baneling Nest, the Ling Speed, and the next stage of this game. Clem, he needs to get a lot done with his counter drop.
And while he does have a Cyclone that kills drones very quickly, he can snipe Queens as well. But a couple Roaches are already here, so Clem, instead of getting the economic advantage, getting damage
야,
down
저
like
바퀴
that,
살리는 거
straight
미쳤다.
from
저거 그 와중에 뒤로 빼가지고 개별치 면신하고 있네. 세랄 미친놈이네.
possibility to get back in the game. It's not going to be enough. Now Roaches on the other side. Luckily, there's a tank on what looks like the high ground, and that will force these back. Serral, I like the idea, but Clem's a little bit too ready.
Yeah, that was still such a nice play from Serral. And in the main base, there was a nice little Ravager morph against the Cyclone's lock-on, able to keep that alive. Brilliant little micro maneuvers from both players. And it does... it's interesting. I was talking to Rainer in the back, just a very quick ask. I was like, who do you think wins this series? He's like, Serral, obviously supporting his fellow Cabal member, and of course supporting his teammate. But I said, easy? Question mark? And he's like, no, not easy, not easy. But it will depend a lot on the first game. And both players are bringing an extremely high-level play to this first game.
That they are. Now, you would look at the supply for the moment, you say, wow, Serral's in his great spot. He's up 20 army supply. But again, remember, as Serral is still in a solid spot, he's got his 5th base up, his Hive is just about done, Adrenal Glands, whether he wants to go to Ultras or just get Vipers and stay on this lower tech. A lot of that is in the Roaches, a lot of that is in the Ravagers. Clem does have the opportunity to make something happen with this 1-1 before the rest of the tech, before Baneling Speed's done, before +1 attack is done, before +2 armor is done, before all of this stuff that Serral has committed to is fully on, really able to do something.
집요하게 챔버
Quite a nice pickoff.
하나
It
부숴주고.
wasn't the farthest along, but it's better than nothing for sure. Still, Serral does maintain a solid lead, but Clem is making, well, right there, nice little maneuver, and he most importantly didn't overcommit, didn't lose a lot of stuff. Serral will end up having a little bit of this creep getting cleaned up, but once more, he's gonna push this back. Clem does need to keep Serral on the back foot for a long time as we see those Vipers coming out, as we see the Ultralisk coming out, and as we see Clem not getting too far along on his 2-2, just now starting that +2 armor.
Yeah, I really like this Ultralisk guy.
이제 클렘의 주특기 의료선 양방 컨트롤하는데 양방 컨트롤 다 미친 듯이 하는.
He's not gonna have Ghosts for a while, Marauders not for a while, 2-2 not for a while, as these Banelings.
심시티와 반응 덕분에 피해를 안 받았고요.
Clem making sure that he doesn't die here, making sure that he gets closer to his upgrades, to Drilling Claws, to 2-2, to that 4th base eventually, to maxing out. That's what he's got to do right now.
Yeah, this is a scenario
까비 클렘 전성기였으면 저 맹독충 2개 점사하고 태웠을 텐데 그것까지는 못했어요 방금.
Putting himself into an even worse position, and the fact that this is Equilibrium does mean that if this game goes super long, there's a very good opportunity for Clem to force a split map scenario where those Liberators, where those Ghosts,
자 이제 테란이 금먹을 차례.
where those Widow Mines, those Sensor Towers become so much stronger. One of really the only maps in the pool where I think that's...
야 살모사가
But he's going to have to survive a big attack like this.
That's a big tech lightning cloud on top of one of the tanks, but still 2 on the high ground. 1 gets abducted, and there's 4th base for now.
야 이 타이밍에 투살모사 댕둥해가지고 던져주는 거 좋았는데 자 볼까요 싸움을. 테란들이 탱크 좋은 위치 잡고 충분히 막을만 했던 것 같은데 막아는 냈는데 오케이 이러고 지키고 돌리면은 괜찮아 테란도.
But it is enough to keep that aggression up. Great job from Clem though. He didn't collapse. Obviously lost a few units. It wasn't, in a perfect world you don't lose anything, but that's just not how that works at this level of play. So Clem I think is going to be happy there to 1, maintain the base, and 2, maintain Most of his SCV.
결국 적의 금이 먼저 떨어지거든요. 테란의 금은 싱싱하고 하지. 그러면 저기 9시 쪽, 8시 쪽 멀티는 뭐야! 야, 저기에 가요충 언제 숨어 있었어?
But that infestor suddenly out of nowhere, seemingly out of nowhere, getting a lot done. We do see the Widowmine drop on the bottom side of the map. Gonna be able to find a
그 와중에 지금 지뢰 드랍 가가지고 견제 한번 성공해주고 적어도 여기 주면 기분 나쁘죠. 여기 무조건 한번 깨줘야죠. 깨줘야 됩니다. 여기 적어도. 아, 깼어요. 유닛이 살모사가 잡혔고.
At the main fight, this is looking very dangerous for Clem, and he made a good hold initially, but this one, well, this is the start of the.
야, 국시세랄.
At the very least, he was able to snipe the ultra on the backside. At the very least, he snipes the Vipers down, so that's something. But yeah, losing
여기가 저기 깨지는 바람에
that shot in the arm, that economy adrenaline that a gold base gives, and losing the planet.
오히려 다시 또 기울어서 저쪽으로.
Something like that. Clem still has a shot in this game, but he can't keep doing things like that.
만약에 저 센터를 금멀티를 지켰으면 테란이 괜찮았는데.
And specifically the fact that he wasn't able to save that building command, so it was at like 99%. If that finishes, he's able to lift it up and immediately start mining from that gold base again. But Cero caught in just before it. I think he's even got a burrowed unit on the gold. Nice little Liberator harass coming in. Yeah, there we go, that Roach. Nice little Liberator harass coming in from Clem. Another big Widowmine shot.
이러면
once more. That he will, and this time though, Clem's on the high ground.
방 그게 컸네요.
The Widowmines, they're not going to get much for now. And Cero continues to run in here, continues to get more value. Ultra from the right side, looking to join the fray. And
중간에 그게 컸다. 잠복 감염충 그걸로 대박 냈던 게. 그거 덮치자마자 센터 밀어버리고. 와, 순식간이네.
Yeah, that was a textbook set of plays from Cero to not allow Clem to stabilize on that fourth base. The first fight looked pretty good. Nice army back into the
equilibrium was Cero's map pick. Now it's on to hard lead. It's a different map. It's not.
사실 여기서 끝나도 이상하지 않았어.
A little bit more standard, and honestly, yes, we saw Clem bunker the natural. We saw Cero take the gold base like that. If I want to talk about what I think Clem needs to do to win this series, it's getting into that comfort zone, that groove of three command centers and Hellion Banshee and heavy aggression coming out of Clem that has won him. Well, I'm not going to say so many games against Cero because no one wins so many games against Cero, but more than pretty much.
I would choose.
결정적인. 이게 결정적이었지. 이게 결정적이었어. 이거 다 잡혔더니 컸어. 와우. 저러고 확 밀렸죠.
Basilisk Gaming. Alright, he's up a game off a crazy opening. Let's see what he's got in store for us this time. From Basilisk Gaming, it's Cero.
And his opponent. Down 1-0 in the series, but still looking pretty damn good. It is Team Liquid's Clem.
You know, Steadfast, if I look at how Cero's reacting or how he's planning this game, this reminds me of one series. Cero versus Clem, Masters Coliseum. We're starting to see him do interesting builds. Starting to see him go the 8-minute, or actually before 8-minute Ultra build, but all of these 15-14 gas cancel builds, Roach builds, weird timings, start to really open the playbook a little bit when it really, truly matters.
Yeah, and I mean that's been characteristic of Cero's play for the last, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago. He really started doing that. I remember there was a series versus a Laser that he ended up losing 3-2. But it was a series where he had just started mixing in cheesing a lot more, and people were like, Cero, like, is everything okay? And he's like, well, I need to retool. And you know, anyone who's working
무난하게 일단 테랄 40더블.
happens, your production goes down a little bit, but Cero is back better than ever. He is now a fully complete player. And that gives him opportunities to do some really big mix-ups like what we saw in game number 1 and what we might potentially see in game number 2.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, for Clem here, this is a map that he can go and just play as he likes to play. Get the natural, get the third base, get Hellions, Banshees, maybe a Liberator if he doesn't want to go full Hellion, Banshee, not just get that third base and get himself set up, get that economic engine set up for the mid-game, for where he really
앞마당 타이밍 봤고요.
prominence as this guy that could beat Rainer, that could beat Cero in that macro game.
Yeah, I mean, he's always been one of those players that prefers the macro game. He has a ton of confidence in himself. He will mix things up a little bit, but definitely wants to win in the later stages. Now, we will see Cero skipping the Lings in this game number 2. Like I said, it is
가장 무난하고 안정적인 빌드로 출발하네요, 테란.
This Extractor Trick 15 hatch is you can skip the Lings. You're able to get those queens out 10 seconds earlier than you normally would, which means as this Reaper shows up, as we just saw, even if it's a little bit of a nuisance to deal with, you can still drop that extractor
그러면
morph or
스트리플.
Crawler morph or whatever it is, save that worker, and you don't have to worry about too much. Now, when you see Clem keeping the SCV on the other side of the map, Sterile, will he be able to get this queen down to the low ground in time? The answer is going to be no. So Clem, he's going to be able to deny this third base for quite some time.
Yeah, second drone goes down here as well, and that just seems like a mistake from Sterile. It's not like, I guess.
집요하게 방해 중. 아이고.
His third base is going to be miles.
와!
And he gets it. And he gets it.
Very nicely
이게
done.
별거 아닌 것 같은데 존나 기분 나쁘죠 적
Gets it
입장에서.
done with the snipe on the accuracy. Very well done from
컨 미쳤다.
Clem, and that's not the biggest of
살아있다.
deals. It is a huge confidence booster. That feels really, really good. And we got aim high to see the mouse accuracy of Clem up against the.
그러면서 트리플 우주공항까지 찍고 벤시.
Clem aimed high in that fight. The Reaper was south of the drones. He aimed high a little bit to knock things down, but again, massive play there, and it makes sense.
그냥 정석 중에 정석이야 테라는.
These two players are number one overall based on
정석 중에 정석이 되게 컨이 달라. 컨이 남달라. 세라는 지금 저걸 돌리고 있거든요. 하염차 안 들키게.
This is fine. I was down early. It doesn't feel great. Getting that third base delaying like that tells us that
잘 돌렸거든요.
he's already forgotten about game one.
하염차 빠져 있고요.
Yeah, no, I mean. He has certainly forgotten about that, but he
이게
is
이제
going
세란의
to
주특기죠. 저거리 돌리기.
back up on the SCVs.
이거 여러 번 했어?
It is going to be an effort to save these SCVs. Nice maneuvering with the Hellions. Gets into the pocket. Avoids losing both Hellions, but that is a ton of worker damage. 9 SCVs going down. There was more links in the natural. This is
이거
a
9개나
massive
잡혔어.
boon for Sterile in game number 2.
Yeah, Steadfast, he may have forgotten about game one, but he also forgot about the link run by opportunity. And we talked about getting comfortable. Reaper, Hellion, Banshee, all of these things that are just, that's Clem. In a nutshell, that's Clem. 3cc, that's Clem. Losing
10개나 잡혔어 일꾼.
forcing all of your aggression back home onto your side of the map where you can't.
이러면 지금 저가 좋거든요.
Well, Clem, he's going to have to find another angle.
He certainly is. Now, once again, we got to mention, he's still on 3CCs. He kept the Hellions alive. I hope he's repairing those up back at home. But Sterile absolutely had his game plan work out. There we go. Love to see that. Spore Crawler not quite done, but Cloak was.
벤시도 봤기 때문에 할 리가 없고요.
The exact same second as Cloak. Sterile. You know, I think he might have a future in this there video game.
Yeah, he might be pretty good at it. You know, might understand how things happen, but at the very least, there's not going to be any detection on this north side. Overseer's on the way. Not here yet. Actually, these Banshees, third base was denied. Fourth base gets killed, and the Hellions.
3월 치도 못했어.
They're not going to go. They not too many queens. But even killing that fourth base on top of delaying the third base as much as Clem did, you lose 10 SCVs, but that's still pretty good.
Yeah, Sterile's drone count is not amazing right now. He's on 52 drones. Did just fire up a handful more, but Clem, ooh, if he had gone right in with the Hellions, he
야, 그 와중에 벤시랑 화염차 움직임으로 커버하네.
Back to mining a little bit early there, starting to stumble a little bit against the Hellion Banshee multi-prong.
Now Clem did miss an opportunity, Steadfast. That was a second dead queen that could have gone down. You stick on it for half a second.
이러면 또 균형이 맞춰진 것 같거든요.
Even still, he snipes the queen. He gets a couple drones. He has this pressure on.
3월도 이제 취소 못해가지고 손해 좀 받고.
This is what we're looking for again, forcing Sterile to stay on Sterile's side of the map, not allowing him to spread creep wherever he wants, not allowing him.
벤시도 적당히 피해주고 살아가고
That's a
있고.
lot of bailings on the right side. Sterile's got an idea.
He certainly does, and you talk about playing a little bit off of what you normally do. This is the kind of thing that Sterile, he's started mixing in, and it does make him so much more difficult to play against. This is a little bit more like Dark, with the heavy counterattack style, with the constant aggression. It's not to say
그 와중에 세랄 또
but it is something that will catch Clem off guard. No
서로 진짜 존나 주고받는다. 또 1구 10개 잡았고.
And puts him back up another 14 workers. Ooh, the Lings will try and get the wraparound on Hellions to come back.
이러면 또 저거가 또 득점했죠.
So at least Clem gets the full cleanup, and all of a sudden he finds himself
저걸 또 다 잡았기 때문에
There's no Bailings on the map. There's only 4 Bailings.
이거 기갑병을 재활용할 수 있거든요. 저 화염차는.
Bailing speed was so fast for Sterile. That's why it caught Clem off guard. But you're right, Steadfast. With Stim here, with all of this bio, no medvacs there. Not with the army yet. Combat shields not done. 1-1 not done. And yes, this is a good opportunity for Clem, but I don't know that he's going to recognize that this is necessarily as good as it is.
이거 굉장히 빡세게 들어갈 수 있습니다. 세랄도 이제 맹독이랑 리그는 방금 많이 소모했거든.
This is going to be scary. Stim is done. Combat shields 1-1 on the way. 1-1 for Sterile about to complete. Great free sped on the Hellbats, and they are really zoning this army out. We are going to see Sterile coming in for the attack.
그 와중에 세랄 또 와, 그 와중에 맹독 돌려가지고 일꾼 피해주면서 이걸 막았어. 와, 미친놈인가?
10 SCVs going down. Still, that was an amazing hold from Sterile off of no creep spread in a very scary situation.
It's still 20 army supply Steadfast. It's still a lot of power here in the Queens. They're running out of energy, so that beef line, that beef wall that keeps you safe is going to start to get
야, 여왕도 따고 그 다음에 또 그러면서 양방. 야.
Not gonna get it. And Clem not gonna get this pressure. It's not gonna work out quite as well as you would like. The drop in the mineral line. Lynx can't get on top. And this
미친놈이다,
is a little bit more
진짜.
like it.
Oh, this is fantastic for Clem. He finds his opponent without
Whoa!
beautiful target fire from Clem. One side, two
Whoa!
sides. He's gonna micro perfectly on both, and now it's just Queens on their lonesome against these
미친놈인가?
This is looking very good for Clem. Lynx will come in.
방금 봤어요? 저거 다 점사 나왔어 잡은 거야. 양방 컨트롤하면서.
From the young Frenchman.
7 dead queens this game. That power that's keeping Cyril alive is just not there anymore. And yes, Clem is going back out of the main base. Yes, Cyril's 2-2 is a little bit faster than Clem.
미친놈인가?
When that timing equalizes again, this tempo, this power that
이런 와중에 세란이 계속 또막 링링 돌려가지고 득점을 하는데 그거를 또 컨트롤로 다 메꾸고 있어 세란이.
And he's gonna get an 8th queen.
He sure does, as well as a few extra drones. Cyril is in position with a few units. Will he be able to take the fight? There's a big minefield. Nice attempt to trigger the Widow Mines, and he does trigger most of them. But on the counterattack, we are going to see the Lynx coming on in. Widow Mines burrowing on up. Oh, beautiful hot pickup from Clem.
자, 또 그 와중에 또 견제 들어가는데 이번엔 또 잘 막고 있고요. 와, 아니 저 아니 일꾼을 몇 마리 잡아? 일꾼 50마리 넘게 잡아갔거든 테란 일꾼.
Oh my god, how did he even see that?
Clem's just on another level, and when you want to talk about this as well, Cyril, he's got a big bank, 800 minerals, 430 gas, all those queens going down, having to stay at the front line, spending their energy.
근데 이거를 그냥 순수 미친 마이크로 코너로 지금.
But again, Cyril's running out of larva. The queens aren't able to inject for a little bit. Maybe now it's going to stabilize.
병력을 잡으면서 득점을 하고 있어.
The ability to make the army that he can afford.
No, he certainly does not.
그 와중에 잠깐 사컴, 사컴도 날리고요. 세랄도 이건 장난 아니에요. 이거 맞고 맞는 거 아니야. 계속 카운터 쳐.
He is keeping his opponent on 3 bases, but Clem is just absolutely all over Cyril in terms of the pressure. There is so much aggression coming his way.
와,
As a result,
미쳤다,
Cyril's not
경기력.
been allowed on the
와.
ice. He just finishes his infestation bit. Looks like a huge Widowmine shot right there. Do you have how many kills? 31 kills! My God! Batting target fire, very nice right there. But Cyril will still force the pickup.
Value well now to the main base we go. Meanwhile, Clem, again, he's never just in one spot at the same time. And the Marines, they're going to split off here. The Widow Mines, they're going to get some of the Lings, but importantly, the Baneling count's not high enough. And into the main
이거
base.
다 지금 세라는 멀티하면서 양방컨 다 가능하거든요. 자, 스피드 좀 살렸고 여기 또 깼고 살리고 또 지뢰 방어로 적어줘야 돼. 스피드 미쳤다. 아니 옵저버 APM도 미쳤다. 저거 다 따라잡네. 옵저버 지금 봐. 옵저버 지금 마우스가 지금 어디로 가야 될지 계속.
Has all the momentum right now. Clem did start up just that +3 weapons. He hasn't been on the greatest worker count for a while.
와! 몇 킬이야 저거? 야야! 지뢰가 53킬 했냐 저거? 지뢰 킬수 53킬이야.
That Widow Mine deserves a promotion.
And unfortunately, Widow Mines, they're a little bit of robots. They don't have ranks. They just kill things. As now Widow Mine looks for another shot. Doesn't get
또 지뢰 신고 나머지 도망가죠. 와.
He's gonna get forced out. Cyril, for the most part, dodging these mines.
인구수 지금 40 차이. 테란이 40이나 앞서고 있어요. 이러면서 3월 돌리고 있고.
You know, I don't care if it's a robot. Put him in charge anyway. Oh my God, he gets another 5 kills. Finally, no, the Super Widow Mine. Our army is now leaderless, but Clem, he'll pick it up regardless. We are going to see more and more creep getting clear to the middle of the map. Clem has had such a momentum advantage for so long now. This time, Cyril is going to, well, not be able to get through all.
야, 해방선 저거 하는 게 진짜 까다롭다. 이 와중에 해방선. 그러면서 지금 몇 군데를 동시 컨트롤하는 거야, 세랄. 네 군데 동시야 저기야. 본진. 저기 트리플 지어. 여기 그 정면 메인 병력. 다 보고 있어요. 다 신경 쓰고 있어요, 세랄. 다 신경 쓰고 있어. 미쳤어. 와. 또라이다 진짜. 와. 야, 이거는 진짜 미쳤다.
Of course, Daryl's just going to take a little break.
I mean, look, clearly that Widow Mine is some chat GPT 5.0, 6.0 on the target fire.
아니, 미쳤어. 속도가 세랄도 못한 게 아니거든? 클램 저렇게 멀티 컨트롤 하면서 그 와중에도 세랄 뒤로 저걸링 닝닝 돌려가지고 일꾼도 한 50마리 넘게 잡았어.
God, that was such a nice play. That lack of a cancel on the 4th base definitely hurt. But man, what an action-packed game number 2. This series is already delivering.
It's so hard to look back at this game and identify. Game 1, we could say, hey, the Roach timing, it got something. You know, we can point to a moment and say, yes, this is why Clem.
진짜 이거는 진짜 속어서 하는 거임.
But in general, it's so hard to point out where it went wrong for.
중간에 한번 삐끗하면은 바로 무너지는 건데, 그냥 외줄 타기가 제대로 하는 거임. 저거 맥도초 한번 대박 나봐. 바로 이거 게임 기울 수 있는 그런 건데 저걸 다 신경 쓰고 지금 컨트롤하고 있어. 와.
Yeah, it felt like he was in a cylinder, and eventually there was just no more room to swim. He just ran out and got drowned. But very well done by a very or both of them.
But it's
아 미쳤다. 역대급이었다 방금은.
And his opponent turning on the jets when he needs it most for Team Liquid. It is Clem.
You know, Steadfast, I want to take a moment here as we're solidly into our series now to acknowledge just how loud the crowd's been, how awesome the support for both Clem and Serral is. I mean, I'm casting with one ear cup off so I can listen to him. It's fantastic here.
The vibe is just
클램
amazing here.
2002년생이니까 몇 살이냐?
And it really reflects, I think, the community at large. We love this game.
나랑 12살, 나랑 띠동갑이다. 22?
13 years later because it is alive.
한참
It's
전성기야.
not going anywhere.
게이머들
Long live the
한참
game.
전성기
Long live
올
these two fantastic players. This rivalry is just heating up, and I am ready to see this chapter inked in the annals of history.
All right, enough pandering to the crowd. Let's talk about the game a little bit because, again, this is a setup where in Game 1, Serral did something weird. He was able to make it happen. Game 2, Clem played a little bit more standard. He took his lumps.
세라의
He was able to
97.
get that mid-game, get into 2-2, get into 3-3, get himself into these
97도 어리지.
really, where he ripped Serral asunder. And Alcyone is a map where maybe it's a little bit more constricted on the 4 bases, but your pushes through the middle of the map with that Xel'Naga tower, well, it can be
클램 뭐 길드는 뭐 특별한 거 아니에요. 그냥 40더블만 하고 있어.
It's something where
길드는 평범한데 그냥 컨트롤이 평범하지가 않아.
really love their 2-base aggression. Those 3 racks, 5 racks pushes with siege tanks, +1 weapon, stim, combat shields. They can really get a lot of work done. But even
세랄 98이야?
Dark in the previous series, but that is not really the kind of thing that Clem likes to do as much. I would love to see him bust it out. But after watching Game 2, I am more than okay.
성주가
with
97인가?
this game and saying, yeah, I can just out-trade Serral. I feel really, really confident, as he damn well should. Because that game number 2, there was a lot of pressure from Serral early on, and it would have been really easy to crumble. But he didn't. The lean counterattacks, while they got a lot of damage done, Clem was able to withstand, and he never let himself get out of that game.
Yeah, he got 10 SCVs.
아, 성주랑 현우가 97이구나.
The 4th base gets canceled, the 5th base gets, or the 3rd base gets delayed.
세랄이
Really,
98.
really nice. Now, Serral will sneak a drone out this time. The 3rd base not nearly as delayed as it was in game number 2. So if we're keeping track here, it's already a bit better of a start.
길드는 또 똑같아요. 클램은
It's kind of a weird-ish start.
사신 트리플하고 스타포트 올려서 또 벤시 뽑겠죠?
Obviously, he didn't lose that drone, but
저게 그냥 진짜 정석주의 정석.
opening up 2 bases. Serral has been doing that for a while, and maybe was trying to keep Clem guessing. Maybe
아니면은 이제 기술실 안 닿는 거 보니까 저기서 해방선 하나 찍어줄 수도 있고.
My guess
기술실
right
다네?
there. But of course, Clem did have the SCV on the 3rd base, so maybe it was just Serral saying, okay, you're going to contest this. I still want this pocket 3rd. I'm not going to let you force me take the line 3rd. I'll just get an extra queen a little earlier. Maybe take my base a little bit later. There's a couple layers to the mind games, but regardless, he didn't lose a drone, he didn't lose anything else, and you're right, it didn't put him behind, per se.
Yeah, you know, with this setup here, though, how effective Clem has been with the Reapers, with the power of that.
다시 한번 염차 벤시하면서 무난하게 트리플 먹고 바이오니 가면서 또 클램 또 주특기 멀텟 유도하면서 바이오니 그런 싸움을 하지 않을까 싶네요.
He's too fast for me even to see.
You can't even see it. Yeah, blindingly fast. You gotta aim higher.
세라는 이번에 바퀴 속을 좀 일찍 준비하세요.
Yeah, I mean, it actually was at the top of the screen. No, I thought that drone was going to go down and then it just disappeared into the extractor, but it really does tell you how bloody fast these players actually are. Fantastic stuff. You talked about the Roach play. Yes, 2-base Roach, like you said, against Maru, specifically on, what was that big map? Bro, it was not Altitude. I always think it's Altitude. Neo Humanity. Yeah. It's the one I hate the most. That's how I remember it. But Neo Humanity, guess which race I am? The map where Serral just kind of did a 2-base Roach push and just ran Maru over. Serral, though, not going to be able to find that so much against Clem, and that's why Clem likes to open up this Hellion Banshee. It keeps you safe pretty much against everything.
그냥 클램은 그냥 이런 마인드 같은데? 그냥 무슨 빌드를 타든 그냥 무난하게 그냥 흘러가서 멀티 싸움 내가 잘하면 안 준다는 마인드로 하는 것 같은데. 바뀐 거 바꿔요. 딱히 뭐 생더블을 하거나 뭐 초반에 뭐 투배랑 사실 하거나 약간 이런 식으로 좀 빌드 이득을 보려는 뭐 그런 빌드 선택은 하지 않고 그냥 세 판 다 무난하게 가는.
Serral, though, no, he's got the queens in position. Roaches, Clem thinks better of it.
Yeah, that's one thing Clem is so good at, though, about really threatening that because he's gonna be one of those.
어우, 야 이번에는 세랄이 진짜 잘 막았어요. 좋아요. 이러면은 저거가 좋아. 염차 지금 아무것도 못하고 지금 다 잡혔거든요.
Until Stim is done, until these medevacs are out on the map, that's not really gonna be there anymore.
No, that was a fantastic pick off for
3월 무난하게 먹고 있고 아까는 3월일 이 벤시에 취소도 못하고 파괴되는 바람에 손해를 봤는데
Clem might not have been expecting that many lings, and he
그것도
was able to
없었고.
avoid losing literally every single Hellion. But I mean, he only gets away with one, and like you said, that's pretty much all the map control gone. Sterile shooting up to 77 drones now. He's got the infestation pit, he's got the 1-1, the roach speed on the way, and now a Hydra Den starts up. That looks like we are going to be potentially seeing very fast lurkers, and I wonder if Sterile is going to go for some massive lurker drop play like he has done in a few matches recently.
Huh. This build that we see right now, 1-1 Roach into Quick Hive, into 2-2 ranged into Lurkers, is something that was becoming pretty popular at the start of the year, maybe. We saw it a lot, and then it really did fall off. That being said, well, we got a bunch of Overlords on the
바뀐
way
걸 또
here.
봤거든요.
Getting ready, but also
일찍
a little bit of
봤거든요.
fly block before that.
봤어요. 또 개멸 준비하는 거.
Fly block, not the worst in the world, but definitely a little bit uncomfortable. And Steril's not going to be happy about that. He does hold himself to a very high regard. A little bit of a trade in the middle of the map, but 3 Marines for a Roach. I mean, that does favor the Zerg ever so slightly, but it's a small potatoes trade. Still, Clem on the other side, he's like, okay, I got to equalize that. Let me kill 2 drones steadfast. Now we're even. Are we even? We're even. Good job from Clem with the counter damage. A nice scan, finds the hive timing. Won't see exactly when it was started. Ooh, he caught that lurker den, right? He can see that. He should be.
그러면서 럴커 준비하고 있고요.
No! Oh,
못 봤어요?
It's a lie. That looked like it was in range. Damn, so he actually doesn't see the lurker den. Won't know exactly when that's coming. Might be able to infer, but I don't think he saw the Hydra den either, so maybe not. Might be thinking it's Lingbane, Roach, Ravager, Viper.
That is by far the more
이게 바퀴 개면이 있어도 저 투맨시가 압박이야. 그래서 그 와중에 또 들어왔습니다. 세랄 주특기 또 나왔어요. 항상 이렇게 세랄이 저글링 돌리면 항상 여기 서플이 열려있어. 어느 테란이랑 하든 성공 못하는 거 본 적이 없어. 자 이제 테란도 빡세게 지금 나오고 있고. 야 럴커가 근데 굉장히 빨리 나왔어요. 지금 8분인데 지금 럴커가 지금 4마리가 나와있거든. 또 들어갔어. 저거 또 들어갔어. 저거 또 들어갔어.
Yeah, absolutely. And Clem, he can't break up the ramp into these sieged up lurkers. That is just not going to happen. They will have the range in a moment.
빼야죠 저거. 살모사 지금 봤는데 살모사 럴커까지 있어가지고 빠지는 게 맞아요.
on that overlord speed as well as the adaptive talons. I think I'm going to keep my eyes peeled on that production tab, but I think we are going to see the Dropper Lords. There it is. That's a lot of Overlords right there. It could just be a big push at the front, but man, oh man, if he does get sieged up in the main with a bunch of Lurker, Roach, Ravager, Hydra, and specifically those Lurkers, this could be borderline impossible.
전파는 이제 막 의료선 양방 견제 계속 흔들렸다면 이번에는 완벽하게 그냥 뭐 견제 당하는 것도 없이 잘 막으면서 세라니까 원하는 방식 방향대로 지금 흘러가고 있고.
No, not in this situation. You certainly cannot. Lurkers are going to siege up behind the base, but a nice scan from Clem picks them off very quickly. Siege tanks will be able to deal with this counterattack quite well, but he still loses 2 tanks. Now that actually is a not terrible trade for Clem. In context, obviously it's a very good trade by the numbers, but a lot of those units that want to be sacked were the Roaches. Big Corrosive Bile does get quite a few Marines. And Sterile was looking to trade these units out anyways. Obviously not necessarily the Lurkers, but the Roaches and Ravagers specifically. There it is.
드랍.
Distracted his opponent, drawn into the top
럴커 드랍.
side, and now we've got a massive Doom drop. He says SC2, Brood War, we can combine them, put them together. Lurker
뭐야?
base, but the Vikings.
맵팩인가요? 아니 맵팩인가요? 맵팩 이거 신고해야 되는 거 아닌가요?
Players are so high level.
How does he know? He didn't. I guess he maybe saw drops, and there we go. He's gonna find it. Now, not a ton to go down at the moment. Everything's gonna get released, but even still, the fact that he can deny this, the fact that he can.
이거 진짜 생각이 이거 세랄이 많이 했나 보네. 많이 했나 보네. 그치? 세랄이 맨날 이런 식으로 하니까 학습이 돼 있나 보네.
If they get on top of the ramp, it's a disaster to deal with. Sterile was looking for maybe if Clem had potentially mined out his own back minerals, and if he did, that could have really hurt Clem.
이 타이밍에 사바이킹 떠가지고 저기 가는 판단 뭔데? 그냥 아무리 학습이 돼 있다고 하더라도 이런 상황에 저거 신경 쓰기 힘들거든? 기계처럼 하네.
He's got another plan. It's going to be a Nidus Worm, and I love that he was so quick to pivot.
Yeah, importantly though, and I would have loved to see Clem really capitalize on this. That was a lot of
정확한 타이밍에 사바이킹 가가지고 저거 걷어내는 게 참 신기하다. 말이 안 된다.
A push from Clem on the left, so that would have been an opportunity. Can't quite take advantage of it, and now, well, the Rocks, they're not even going to be properly defended. SCV falls, but Clem's going to be able to take this base, and now he sees the army a little bit, but the Zelnaga tower from Serral says, nah, we're going to back up a moment. And Clem has to run away. That's a massive blinding cloud, but he kites away, and there are tanks on the high ground. So Serral can't take this fight yet.
Yeah, that was kind of just a zoning blinding cloud. It was a little bit of a weird one too. Maybe afraid of some Banelink snipes. So he just kind of crosses his T's, dots his eyes, says, no, you can't do this. But here comes.
커맨드 이제 6개, 7개 올리면서 테란도 이제 극후반 바라보고 있고요.
Quick reaction time for Clem on the land. He should be able to get the denial, but it is going to be Ling.
땅굴 뚫리나요?
Causing nuisances in the middle of the map. Oh, okay.
뚫리자마자 바로 컷.
That was actually very close.
By the way, I want to point something out for Serral here. On that last attempted fight on the north side, this tank gets abducted. Fight happens. We'll hold on to that for a second.
저거가 뭐 테란은 뭐 견제당 것도 없고 먹을 만큼 먹고 비록 뭐 드랍의 의도가 들켰어도 저거가 뭐 손해 본 건 없거든요 지금까지. 자원 아주 잘 먹고 있고.
That could have found the value. Even still, though, Clem at 1.6 command centers on the way at the same time. He knows the way this is going. He knows that he's just got to get as much money as possible. So, buckle in, folks. This one is going a little longer.
It certainly is, and considering the situation after those Ling run-bys, after the lurkers pushed back the initial.
테란은 이제 유령이랑 해방선 다수 준비하면서 후반 봐야 되고.
Able to kind of adjust on the fly. Meanwhile, though, very nice move from Serral. He drops the Nidus Worm thanks to that changeling right next to the tank. I think we're gonna see the unfurl. Oh no.
근데 그래도 해방선 바로 와가지고.
At the very least, there are a couple of liberators. They're sieged up on top of everything. Viper runs forward, I guess, and Serral actually.
이거 생각보다 잘 막았고.
This is what Serral really wants, trying to break this down. Banelings looking for the shot.
어우 씨. 여기 못 부셨으면 대참사할 뻔.
Because even if the planetary survived, all the SCVs went down. There wasn't enough there for.
적어도 방금 굉장히 많이 꼬라박았어. 방금.
It was shut down.
그래도 저거 자원 많아. 깼으면 된 거야.
He counter-dropped his own main with a bunch of those medevacs and prevented the lurkers from sieging up on top of that ramp. If they get on top of the ramp, on top of the production, the Terran can end up just finding themselves suddenly and instantly choked out from a really great defensive position. Oh my god, that scan missed the Burrowed Infestor by a quarter of an inch. And like the Mighty Ducks say, quarter of an inch can make all the difference.
Importantly here, we're seeing 6 Liberators at a time as Clem gets really into that late game. Serral doesn't want to let him get there though.
한 번 더 행성요새 일꾼이랑 같이 부셔주고요. 테란이 제일 잘하는 거죠 또 이런 거. 이러다 보면 테란은 어느새 자원이 마르거든.
No, certainly not. And every time, Clem has a command center ready to replace, ready to get back in there and continue mining once again. Serral did something really nice by the way with that planetary bus.
근데 워낙 이 커맨드를 많이 지어놔가지고
He just ran them around the edges so that instead
금방금방
of
복구합니다.
having them die from, you know,
미리 또 지어주고 있고 커맨드를
just a little small move from Serral.
땅굴도 이제 잘 맞고 있고.
Like that, but it is a nice little move, and he did really cup and hug that planetary fortress well. Clem though is trading very cost efficiently on the defense, and he is able to continue to mine on 5 bases.
Before that last fight, he was up 5k. Now he's up 7k.
Oh, that reaction time! My God, he's fast.
야, APM 2300 뭐야 방금? 클레임 APM 2300 뭐야? 안 봤어? 클레임 APM 2300 나오는데? 어떻게 하면 2300이 나오지?
Since the patch very recently that has allowed him to take games off of Serral to really stretch him to the limit on the new play. Liberators, you wouldn't think they'd be all that great against Ling Bane, but the untouchability, the fact that, well, you have to commit Viper energy onto them, that Hydras have to run into range, it makes the fight so much more complicated.
It certainly does, and in that top side, on that bottom side, if you don't either have Corruptors, some kind of flying unit mutas, or a Viper to abduct, it is such a pain in the booty to deal with. As we can see, once again, the Liberator comes back in. He's going to be able to even a little bit more mining. Lurkers on the right side do get scanned out. Good job from Clem. Serral on the counterattack. He is in range of the sensor tower.
결국 이렇게 수비 라인 그어놓고 저 꼬라박기 유도하면서 결국 반 그으면 테란도 뭐 안 좋을 게 없거든요. 자, 행성요새 2개 지었는데 그걸 또 파고 들어와가지고 근데 저 행성요새 못 깨고 좀 아쉬워요. 저거까지 부셨어야 이제 저거가 이득을 거는 건데 방금은 손해를 좀 봤죠.
But I want to talk about what Serral's got on the building tab next. There's a greater spire on the way, realizing that this Hydraling Bane style by itself is not enough to break Fortress Clem.
No, it's not yet, and while a lot of the map has been gobbled up by Serral, he's got a fantastic bank. He hasn't been able to find that decisive killer blow. And the Broodlords, they certainly could be it. The upgrades for Clem are very good on the Thors. 2-2 on the Thors and 1-2 on the Vikings, in this case, Liberators. But you definitely want Thors, you definitely want Vikings to deal with those brutes. It's going to be really difficult without them. But with 16 Liberators, I mean, there is a world where the Vipers and Infestors are not on top of them. We could potentially see a bunch of Broodlords get blown out of the sky. That's going to be potential for that. I don't think it's going to happen, but there is a possibility.
That it is. Another Nidus goes down in this bottom side of the 6 o'clock base. Seral, no, you don't attack into that. Too many Liberators, too many tanks.
자, 이러면서 결국 저기 5시 돌리면은 똑같이 반반 먹는 거거든? 어차피 9시는 저거, 저 10시 쪽은 저거 못 먹고.
So much damage to the mineral line, so much damage to the planetary, but the repair is going to be fine for now. One lurker stays there just to really enforce the will, and the crack legs on the north side again. More bases get lifted. Seral, all of a sudden, he's all over the place.
He certainly is, and he is finding value. He is picking away at Clem. And for the last little bit, the resources
저거가 뭐 멀티 잘 먹고 있긴 하지만 테란도 같이 잘 먹고 있다.
Seral is outmining Clem. He's got a gigantic bank, but if you can't break the Terran, if you can't kill those ghosts, you can't, you know, smash through the economy. It does get difficult.
저거는 그 균형을 깨야죠. 반반 먹으면은 적어도 못 이깁니다, 테란. 이득 거둬야 돼, 여기서. 잘 들이댔고. 그렇죠. 깨야죠. 아, 근데 저 해방선을 같이 줄여줬어야 되는데 뒤늦게 이제 타락기 뽑아주고 있어요, 12기.
So much damage done. Now Clem has to deal with these lurkers. That's a problem. It has denied multiple orbitals, multiple bases, but now Clem on the map, rampant.
오히려 지금 해방선이 살아서 역으로 저기 5시를 밀어버리고.
And while Seral has had the map for the last 20 minutes, he hasn't taken a base from Clem. That's the big deal here. Eventually, Clem's going to be able to mine out of every base on the map unless Seral does something to stop it. And at that point, the inefficiency.
그렇죠. 와, 빠지는 판단도 좋아 지금. 안 빠져서 저거 다 먹혔거든. 빠지는 판단도 너무 좋았어.
That is a good question. We are going to see the Link Bane flooding on forward. SCVs will get out.
화면에 저 되돌아 들면 되거든 그냥.
But 24 having gone down in the last little bit. The counterattack from the Liberators though, finding 13 drones, and it is still alive, completely denying the top side base and the bottom side. It was taken out as well. Seral's income has
해방선이 쌓였어요. 유령도 쌓였고. 세랄도 이제 아차 싶어가지고 뒤늦게 지금 타락기 찍고 있는데.
All right, so for Dark, 23 corruptors were what it took to kill Kieran game number 1. Seral's at 17.
자, 여기 싸움 봐야 됩니다. 진균 좋아서. 근데 저게 진균을 잘 걸긴 했는데 유령을 잡아줘야 이득을 거는 거였는데 그때 태웠어? 그래도 해방선 많이 줄였고. 진짜 냉정하게 방금 저 유령 다 잡았잖아? 세랄이 좋았습니다. 게임 기울 수 있었어요. 근데 저거 유령을 못 잡은 게 되게 큰데? 잡았으면 끝났는데?
Which is unfamiliar territory.
진짜 한 끗 차이였다.
He's at 155 supply and 3,500, 3,500. But is it going to be Broodlords? What is going to be the attempt to end the game? Clem has really pumped out Vikings to try and survive what could be a massive transition into Broods. But you know what Vikings don't do so hot against? Ultras. And we have got a ton of Ultras potentially on the way. The Ultra Cavern just completed. Chitinous plating starting up. And there it is. Seral, he wasn't unable to spend his money. He was saving supply for that 4 Ultra switch. And Vikings, well, we've all seen the cinematic. Don't do so hot against Ultras.
No, they really don't. But there are still 16 ghosts on the map. There are still Liberators with plus.
바이킹도 많아.
Vikings, they don't do all that much, but they will be able to zone, hopefully, against the Corruptors. Allow the Liberators to siege up. Allow them to put those freedom zones down.
우리군주는 절대 꿈도 못 꾸죠.
For these ghosts to get the snipes off.
이 상황에서.
And honestly, my eyes, they're on the unit that's underground. These infestors that Seral has been so good with for getting the fungals. And if he can get one shot on those ghosts all clumped together, everything, every single thing falls apart.
It certainly could. Clem looking to secure the 7th base on the map. Seral does not want to let his opponent get up to this. Oh my god, the Infestor underneath. Widowmine will eventually burrow on up. Scan finds the Infestor. Oh, and the Vikings barely escaped the fungal growth. Only 2 of them getting hit. That could have been
너무 많은데? 2줄 이상 되는 것 같은데?
Will this be enough? There's so many ghosts and they snipe.
저거는 저 유령을 어떻게 잡아야 돼. 저거 아까가 저로 얘기였는데 그걸 못 잡은 게 좀 아쉽고.
Gonna try and keep moving forward. Widowmine's getting some big shots on that cloud of banelings. Seral, I mean, he has not broken through yet, even though this doesn't look He's still got a lot of stuff here. He can't find the connection on those ghosts. Oh, the Infestor on the top side, but a scan finds it. Killed by the Widowmine on the top side.
야, 유령 너무 잘 살린다. 아니, 유령을 너무 잘 살린다. 발키리도 많아서 감시공주 누가 없어요. 공표를 못 잡아요. 근데 클램도 지금 엄청 가난하거든.
It is completely gone at this point compared to where it was. At one point, I think he was up.
가난하긴 한데 또 커맨더가 있어서 멀티만 저기 5시 저기 또 지게 떨구면은 금방 미네랄은 찹니다. 세라는 저 유령을 어떻게든 한번 잡으면은 이겨. 저 유령을 잡아줘야 돼. 진균 제박을 내가지고. 근데 유령을 못 잡아요. 유령을 못 잡아. 계속 살리고 있어요. 유령도 산계해가지고 맹독충 피해도 최소화하면서 이러면 저격에 또 다죽수 타락기. 유령을 잡냐 못 잡느냐 싸움인데 또 살렸어. 해방선 또 4개씩 나오고 있고.
It cost Serral so much for that. The air army did go down, but Serral, he doesn't have the money for a Broodlord switch.
아무리 이게 저격이 너프됐다고 한들 저 정도 유령이 쌓이면 울트라는 별로 안 무섭거든요. 해방선도 이렇게 있고. 적어도 자원 없어요.
I don't see a way for Serral to do it, but Clem
Oh.
does not have a whole lot of if we look at oh my god, that Infestor. That Infestor, the Unburrow, the Fungal.
잡아야!
Does he have the follow up though?
왜 맹독이 없냐고. 저거 잡았으면 끝났잖아.
We are going to see the Lings and Ultras pushing forward. Corruptor's going to find a ton of this.
그래도 와 존나 아깝다.
From 3 of the last critical fights, and that has allowed Clem to keep these ghosts alive over and over and over again. Serral is going to burrow up some Lings. They will get picked off. This game is getting so close now.
더 다 잡을 수 있었는데.
Missing overseer is Clem acknowledging, understanding that the way he wins this fight. Infestor looking for it once again. Serral in the right position. Widowmine's not going to trigger off.
그래도 아니 그래도 이게 그 와중에 울트라 또 잘못하고
Ghost will stay alive here. Here comes Serral's army once again.
이거 많이 줄였는데? 이러면은 또 저거가 괜찮은데? 인구수 2배 차이. 와 역시 세랄. 근데 잠깐만 이거
Clem is so far down in supply now. Both players have no production.
아니 적어도 자원이 지금 많이 있는 게 아니라 이게 한 번 잘못 싸우면 또 언제든지 기울 수 있는 약간 그런 상황이야. 세랄도 자원 수급이 좋은 게 아니야. 헤라는 지게 로봇이 있거든요. 지게 로봇이 있어요. 커맨드 존나 많거든. 와 이거 순식간이거든. 이거 인구수 막 100쪽으로 차는 거. 자원수급률 미친듯이 올라가거든. 이거 빨리 이거 방해해줘야 돼. 저거 각기게 놔둬서 안 돼. 이러면서 또 지뢰드랍. 빨리 지금 가서 지게 로봇 저거 목회게 해줘야 돼. 그치 가야지.
And the Widowmine is actually going to get a big shot.
Gets out 2 big shots on the Widowmine, a 3rd one as well, but he is going to force the base back. However, so many Lings fell, and Serral, that is actually a really big deal. He's only on right now.
그 사이에 역전됐었어.
Did survive, so they're able to go back there and get into this again. We do see the inverted
아직 안 말랐고.
range of the missile turret. Clem wisely building his own missile turret right now. Clem is currently outmining his opponents.
아니 근데 이게 울레기 위제라.
Serral knows he must deny this base.
저기 울레기로 이거 뚫는 거 이거 쉬운 게 아니거든.
Serral is ultra broke.
탱크 위치 너무 좋아요.
No Viper in sight. They are going to survive the caustic spray.
오줌 발사.
Will survive. My God, this game is
진균.
but not on every single ghost right there. The kiting back gonna come on in. Ultra's
탱크 위치. 와 잠깐만. 미쳤다. 저거 잡아. 저 커맨드 깨. 깨야지. 잠깐만.
but he's got to buy more time. Again,
저걸링
he's
24개
pretty much
찍혔고.
not mining. He's got like 2 mineral patches. By the way,
저거
he lost
5시
the
먹어야
momentum
돼.
that
5시 뺏어
he
먹어야지.
doesn't have that position anymore. Looks like
저거
a
5시 먹어야 돼.
that, so there is no money on the
여기만
map.
신경 쓸 게 아니라 5시도 신경 써야 돼.
This spot right here.
He certainly does. The Infestor not able to get the fungal growth right there. We're going to see a lot pick up on the Gauss on the left side.
아, 야, 저 탱크 자리가 너무 압박이다. 저기 지금 살모사 있어야 되는데 살모사도 지금 유령 있어가지고.
Another mule hammer drops, but Cyril, he's got a new injection. Just what I was talking about. Starts up that base on the bottom side.
인구 아까 2배였는데 어느새 맞춰졌어.
But there is more than zero, and it is going to come down to the absolute wire right now. 12 SCVs versus 34 drones. There are 8 orbital commands, so the mule hammer is mighty. Liberator on the bottom side.
저것도 살리나?
Chased. Oh. All right. Yeah, he's gonna chase down, no problem.
Yeah, but that does unlock Clem a little bit on the north side. Tries to run forward here. And we talked about army supplies. They're equal 63 to 67. 18 of that is in Corruptors. Yes, they fight the Medivacs. Yes, they fight the Liberators. On the ground, though, importantly, it's 1 Ultra. A big deal. A bunch of Infestors just finished. If Cyril can get that Fungal again, if he can find that, and importantly, if he can chain it,
잠시 소강
that's what
상태.
he's gonna be looking for here. This supply is not as good as it looks.
둘 다 미친 듯이 가네 지금.
Absolutely not. Only 1 Ultra. 2 about to pop out, though. Creep being cleared at the 32-minute mark on Alcyone. Very nice hot pickup from Clem. Every
아, 근데 지게 로봇 때문에
massive. We are going to see the drop on the bottom side.
자원 수급에 오히려 지금 테란이 더 좋습니다.
The Corruptors are on their way down. Oh, it's an Infestor.
5시.
But all this can really do is potentially slow this down. Drones are going to be pulled. This is a huge boon.
5시는 저가 무조건 올려야 돼 이기려면은. 근데 여기도 깨지나요?
Infest from the left side, though. It hits the
그 와중에 태우는 거 뭐야?
No, here come the Corruptors.
잡아야죠.
He's gonna be able to knock this down. Drop won't find value, but does this unlock the north side? The other base, that position that Clem's been looking for. There's nothing here. In fact, the drones, preemptively for the most part, they're pulled away. Cyril, his entire
여기는 완전히 이제 테란이 다 먹었고 거의 다 파버렸고 5시 이제
As long as he holds his own top left base, he is traded efficiently.
전선 5시로 옮겨줬고
He is going to find with a small drop. I like this very non-committal setup. Gets 4 drones, which is actually quite a few in terms of percentages. Oh, the Infestor once again. Did he see the movement, the kind of rustling of the dirt? The scan comes down, he finds it! Clem, so nicely done right there. This base,
스캔이 이제 거의 무한이거든. 커맨드 몇 개야? 10개 있는 것 같은데?
With the siege tank in the back, the answer is no! Clem holds again on 8 SCVs and 8 orbitals. What a game on our hands!
Those 3 tanks are the only thing that has stood between Clem's victory and his defeat. And now that EMP on the Infestor meant that, hey, there was only one Clem. Because he's just that good. And here comes the slow Terran push. This is where it gets so hard for Zerg players on Lings and Banes and Ultras.
테란이 구도가 너무 좋은데? 저거가 이길 사이즈가 안 나온 것 같은데 지금?
Clem has this ability to retreat, to hold the high ground. But here coming, again, 5 Ultras, a couple Infestors. It's all about those Fungals. First one whiffs, there are still a couple more.
Yes, there are. It is also going to come down to, are there any goes available? Good job from Clem to deny the changeling that wanted to see where Clem's army was. Cyril, he is in trouble. He knows he needs a monster engagement as he falls further and further behind in supply. And Clem is really ramping the pressure up on this base. Cyril.
깨지기 전에 들릴 것 같은데 스테라는 깨지면 못 이겨요 여기. 들이대는데 아 잠깐만 상대 너무 잘해갖고 와 존나 많아요 뒤에 물고기랑 해병이.
Like a Clem finds his way forward here, and you shall not break him. You shall not pass. You shall not mine. It's a 40 army supply lead, and Clem feels like finally 35 minutes into this game has cracked this thing wide open. There is no more money for Cyril. He's mining a little bit, I guess, on the right side. But this, at this point, Steadfast not only
끝났네요. 이걸 또 이기네.
open this game, it feels like the winner of this game is destined for this series.
It certainly feels like this is the pivotal moment of this series. We will see the Corruptors looking for the Caustic Spray takedown on this base, and as the damage ramps, he will find.
여기 깨기는 깼는데 5시를 또 테란이 가져가 버리죠 이러면은. 마지막 들이대는 마지막 싸울 것 같은데요. 아이고 스캔으로 다 보고 있고 감염충을 마지막. 또 뒤에 또 감염충 그 와중에 또 숨어 있기 있었어. 와 진짜 한 끗 차였다. 경기력 미쳤다 둘 다. 와 사실상 이게 결승전이었던 것 같은데. 이게 사실상 결승전이었는데.
that was the best. I mean, honestly, in the Katowice, able. This might make it possible.
아까 여기 그 결정적인 장 여기서 만약에 맥도추 섞여 있어가지고 이거를 한 번에 다 잡아버렸으면은 세랄이 이겼을 것 같은데 이걸 또 다 살린 게 컸던 것 같아. 이것도 진짜 한 끗 차이였어.
Born here in the upper left, in the red for Basilisk, looking to send us to that game number 5 to keep the dream alive. It's Cyril.
And his opponent spotting down in the bottom right.
괜히 원탑 저그 원탑 테란 이유가 있다. 존나 잘한다.
And you know what? We've seen a lot of sad Maru fans. We've seen a lot of people who've been like, Maru, you got knocked out early. You haven't been able to do it in these offline tournaments overseas. Well, I've got good news for you, Terran fans.
이번에도 뭐 특별한 거 안 하고 40더블.
Help me, Clem B1.
그러고 보니까 막 전진명령 포커링하는 경기는 한 경기도 안 나왔네. 옛날에 다전자하면 꼭 한두 경기씩은 나왔는데 그런 경기는 없네요.
Absolutely, we have more to see. Oceanborn, it's another map. Cyril has shown us time and time again that he can come back from deficits. Clem pushed him harder than anyone in the regionals, in that upper bracket finals before Cyril eventually took the entire thing.
아니 왜?
Pushed him incredibly
참치?
hard, and he was still able to make it happen.
먹었잖아.
I say, wow, best game I've ever seen from Clem. Realistically, that doesn't mean the series is over. Not by a long shot.
Not at all. We cannot discount Cyril from this. This is such a high-level series. And, you know, it is important to note, even though that went very difficultly for Cyril, he did create a lot of opportunities for himself, and he is a seasoned veteran. He is not going to be shaken. He played an extraordinarily strong matchup, but Clem...
클렘은 그냥 빌드가 다 똑같아. 또 사신 트리플 우주공항 올려서 벤시 똑같이 가는 것 같습니다. 사신화차 벤시
making sure that it's not going to get the animation, but the Queen gets bounced back, and this third base is again going to be a really slow. Reaper actually regenning a little bit, so Clem's going to be able to sit around a little bit, thinks about diving on top. He's not going to be able to block the cancel, but wants to dive in. Once again, he's too low this time.
Oh!
Will finally, in 2 games, finally go down on time.
That was a beautiful little dance right there between those two players. The grenade coming down, the
신경전 미쳤고.
The Reaper pushing the drone away, then the Queen pushing the Reaper away, then the drone coming back in, SCV blocking. That was like the most micro you can see with just 2 units on each side. Man, they are both playing in absolutely top form. And Clem finally going to be mixing out.
근데 이번엔 좀 달라요. 벤시를 생략하고 배럭을 먼저 들렸습니다. 스팀이 좀 빠릅니다. 벤시를 생략하고 의료선을 좀 더 빨리 띄우겠다.
He has looked on fire with some of his early marine attacks. This could really potentially catch Cyril off guard.
트리플 2-on-1.
Make the adjustments.
And you know, not only we talk about this setup, how the third base was delayed a little bit, not as bad as game number 2, absolutely, but delayed a little bit. At least Cyril went for the delayed clash type of opener. He got a couple more drones out early. It's a 4-minute stint or 4-minute speed instead of 3:30. And also, there's a Roach Warren on the way. I talked to Cyril before this series. I said, hey, you know what? My read on this is you're getting roaches because the base.
자, 이런 빌드는
there's so much aggression out of Cyclones. Is he gonna see the scout here though?
그냥 컨트롤을 잘하는 사람만 해야 돼. 스타포트 좀 숨겼어요 또. 컨트롤을 어설프게 할 거면은 그냥 안 하는 게 맞아요.
For him to figure out what's going on. It could theoretically be reactors for a second and third barracks that are just on the way. Would depend a little bit on the timing, but I think Cyril should have the information he needs. However, he's gone pretty high on the drone count. He's still droning. Doesn't actually have a whole
염차도 딱 2마리까지만 찍고
could be a little bit scary, but there's the roaches starting on up.
진짜 빠른 투 우주선이거든요. 세 판 연속 벤시했지만 이번에는 좀 다릅니다. 우주선이 빠르고 그리고 또 숨겼어 그 의도를. 3원은 한번 취소시킬 수 있을 것 같은데.
but also has everything that he needs to defend. That being said, a little bit supply block. The roaches that he has are all that he's gonna
아
have.
근데 좀 일찍 내려서
Yeah, but as long as he stays on creep, he should be okay. Oh, the Ling's gonna get
아 저걸리 그 와중에 또
leaving the depot open. That is gonna potentially be a lot of SCV damage. Cyril will be able to push this back on the top side. Clem does.
와 세라는 항상 이 타이밍에 저걸링으로 이득을 보더라. 꼭 이 타이밍에 이득을 봐.
Losing two workers. Oh man, the attention to detail from these players is immaculate. Still,
바퀴로 수비를 해냈고.
We are going to see a very fast infestation pit coming down off of that extremely delayed second Evo. This is quite an interesting setup from Cyril as he does find himself on the ropes in the series.
That he does, but if he's able to make something happen here, get up to a really
또 저걸 돌리고 있고요. 바퀴 어딨냐?
Again, like he did tomorrow, and that's kind of what this build is looking like. Even still, though, Ling's again looking for that counterattack, but that high ground tank is doing so much.
바퀴로 수비를 하고 있고.
Can't get a ton done with this. The roaches are there, and he's not able to quite multi-prong as well as he would like yet because he does have problems at home. Even still, Clem. It's not about this push.
하이브 굉장히 빨라요,
It's
저거.
about when he can bring these tanks to bear, we can start to really lay into this, well, this pretty greedy Cyril.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be follow-throughs for sure. Very interesting.
아까 이제 전판이랑 약간 비슷한 느낌으로 가는 거죠. 이러면서 럴커랑 살모사 빠르게 띄우고
He might sit on 3 bases for a while and
운영
build
가겠다는
a
거죠.
hell of a lot of tanks and go for a big push. But just as I say that, he starts up the 4th command center. So no, we are not going to see a super heavily dedicated push that the likes of Ryung really loves. Still, little bit of extra tank production early on could be scary for Cyril. However, he is getting into that hive and will be able to add on Vipers.
You know, Steadfast, I love this. I am not opposed to playing another 40-minute game that mines out the entire map and just
시작됩니다.
I don't even know. Now,
클램식
because I'm feeling a little shaky.
우려선 양방 견제.
A little shot after that last game, but in terms of what I love,
이거 흔들리면 진짜 끝도 없거든요. 계속 흔들리거든요. 잘 막아야 돼요. 여기 한번 취소 당하고 뻥 살짝 늦었는데 자 시작됐어요. 자 또 태워야지. 그렇죠. 또 태워야지. 그렇죠. 양방견제 계속 하는 중. 옵저버 개고생 중. 옵저버 계속 양방 계속 확인하면서 옵저버 극한 직업. 잘 잡아주네 그래도. 또 태웠고 그러면서 3월 돌리면서 추가 의료선 또 합류를 하고요. 투 의료선 또 날아가고 있는데 전방 제거를 해주면서 또 태우고 가서 또 앞마당 쪽으로 한번 가는 척 했다가 저 주병력 또 멀티 견제를 해주고
No, he certainly cannot, and Clem is continuing to power up that mid-game army. Huge fungal growth. The hot pickup does save.
이러면서 아까 전판은 세랄도 저걸링을 돌려서 3번이나 3번에 견제를 줬는데 이번에는 그런 플레이가 안 나오고 있어요. 좀 흔들리는 것 같아 세랄도. 3번 3번 오히려 무난하게 돌리고 있거든 세랄 클램이. 우트가 나오긴 했는데.
No spore crawler from Cyril in the natural is allowing Clem to get away with this, and I'd really like to see something for that.
Yeah, I was going to say the one potential problem for Clem right now is that Ultra's already on the map. They're hitting the map right now. There's no Ghost Academy. But he got it started right at that time, so eventually he should have what it takes. Is now around the corner. Corners are.
탱크가 이 타이밍에 태웠어요.
Will force Clem back here, and this is where it gets a little bit scary. Ultras have been.
의료선 상대려고 했지만 이번에는 잘 빼지 못했는데.
But the tanks on the high ground, the Liberators, they say no, absolutely not.
That was a really good play.
이거 한번 쉬어야죠. 그렇죠. 의료선 수리해줘야죠. 의료선이 답달피랑
looking at a huge jump on his opponent's army, but
템포 조절해야 돼.
allowing Cyril to find a huge cleanup on that army. If there was infestors ready with the fungal growths, if they could have landed that massive connection, that could
이러면서 둘 다 그래도 멀티 계속 펴가면서 200 채웠어요.
closes the door on Cyril's dream fight.
That he does, but Cyril, he's got another attack here on the left side, knocks the rocks down.
세랄도 뻑뻑 잘 모았거든요.
For that +2 attack, for that upgrade parries. Here comes the army. Infestor on the north side. Pay attention to that one if the fungal hits, but for now on the bottom side, so many Banelings, and watch for the Infestor. It's not there yet. Cyril looks for the break. He will find it, and now here comes Clem on the
하지만 미리 커맨드 또 지났기 때문에
don't have that +3, so it's a dead planetary.
다시 복구를 해주고
But look at that Infestor. It's Sharkin. Cyril, he wants it. Is he gonna find it?
He is certainly looking for it here. It does have double fungal growth available Obviously, with the medevacs and with that nerf to the
이번에
damage,
럴커를 안 가고
the
그냥
fungal kill is a lot
울트라
more
쪽에
difficult than it
오히려
used to be, but it is still
더 힘을
something
싣네.
that Serral could think about if the army's low enough. However, he's looking for the actual catch on the army. The choke is going to work. Oh, the siege tank.
가는 중.
Snipe that infestor, but the Marauders will. Good job from Clem with the scan, looking for that. The double Liberator counterattack on the top side will get 7 drones. Triple Liberator.
해방선 3방향 건지.
Difficult to deal with. Serral is answering this, but Clem is just being so persistent.
You know, Dave, it's funny. The one moment, the one magic moment that Serral's able to get onto the map to start to try to enforce some sort of will on Clem.
야, 이러면서 잘못 섞었어요.
크거든요,
이거.
얼마나
잘못 샀는데.
멀티 깨고.
멀티 이러면서 또 늘려주고 테라는.
He is trading out of his damn mind. Double efficiency. By the numbers, by the math, it's right there in front of you. And man, oh man, Serral, yes, he's maxed out. Yes, he's got a bank, but it is nowhere near as big of a bank as it was in game number 3.
오히려 아까 전판보다 테라의 상황이 더 좋아.
He wasn't able to win it. Clem has gotten up to his 10 ghosts and will continue to add those on. He is about to hit that 3-3. The burrowed infestor, though, in amongst the army could be massive. But no, he's not able to get it.
야, 스캔 그 와중에 교전 중에 그냥 본인 쪽에 뿌리는 거 봐라. 다음 주 있을까봐. 안 당해줘요, 이제. 세랄이 잘하는 감시 플레이를 안 당해줘.
That infestor may have been a wolf among sheep, but steadfast. Those sheep have teeth. Serral keeps looking for this.
멀티 돌아가는데 숫자가 오히려 지금 테라리랑 저거랑 같아졌어. 12시 쪽이랑 저기 8시 쪽 지어지고 있는 거랑.
The map isn't liking him. Serral hasn't found that magic that we've seen from him time after time after time. And now, again, it's a rough spot. At least Serral, he's got every base that he could find. He's on 89 drones, even with that economic damage. So he's mining a lot. He continues to build this base, and these ultras should be able to defend this position.
They should be able to force the pushback. Clem, he says, well, you know, I got a little bit of time. I got the micro ability.
잘
Don't see any
막아줬고.
Vipers. I can trade a little bit of HP.
커맨드.
Get back out of there. Clem,
야.
every advantage he can find. He knows how close.
3커맨드 압박이다 저거.
Taste that grand finals against the final boss.
울렉이 크기가 아무리 작아졌어도 정이 들어가는 거는 쉬운 게 아니거든요.
He is a tenacious little Zerg. This is still very opportunistic for Serral, but Clem, as he secures his bases, as he techs up, adds on Liberators, adds on Starports, and continues to keep Serral down, this is looking better and better for the Frenchman.
And we have to remember, last game, Serral was down about 30,000 resources and still almost won the fight. That's a
자, 그래도 살모사 꿀 잘 쓰면서 들어가서 생선무새 부셔줘야죠.
It's gonna not really net Serral all that much. Snipes are gonna go down on the ultras on the backside.
근데 유령이 많이 쌓였어요 지금.
Who cares? You're gonna get another one. It's gonna be fine.
유령 지금 쌓이고 있고.
He got 10 SCVs, maybe got a couple ghosts. It continues to be.
유령이 쌓이고 있다는 거지. 울트라가 이제 조금만 지나면은 힘을 아예 못 쓴다는 뜻이거든요. 전판보다 상황이 더 좋아 테란이 지금. 멀티 지금 잘 돌아가고 있고. 전체 당하는 것도. 뭐 부서져도 금방 복구하고. 야 이거 감염수에 절대 안 당해줘. 스캔이 그냥 막 뿌려. 또 뿌리냐?
The scan will not find this army, but is there even enough for the chase down? Serral is not close enough to pull the trigger on that fungal, and Clem remains maxed out. He knocked out another base, and he's got a drop coming into the main.
We do have to remember that as good as this looks for Clem, as good as this economic damage is, this trading is, Clem hasn't started building a bank yet. He is only on these core 5 bases. He's got more command centers. He's going to try to take them eventually. But for right now, Serral's economy, well, is for the most part outstripping Clem. There's a Mule Hammer right now. But in general, Clem has had not as much money for a minute. He hasn't been able to build that bank. So as good as this looks, one really bad fight, one big infested shot can turn this all around.
It certainly can, and Serral, he has been so aggressively looking for it. He keeps putting those infestors in beautiful positions. Even when one gets sniped, there's another one ready to take its place.
이쯤 되면은 이제 클렘은 질 수 없다고 생각한 것 같은데.
Somehow keeping this medevac alive against the parasitic bombs, able to snipe down 3 more drones and saves the Marines. He's being such a nuisance with such a small number of units.
견제하면서 이제 멀티 하나만 더 먹으면은
That he is, but okay, parasitic bombs. You saved it.
우측에 들어가거든요. 저기 이제 2시 쪽으로 먹으면 될 것 같은데.
Oh, the infestor! Oh, too far away, but there's the fungal.
Oh, it doesn't get a ton though. Even still,
진짜 유령을 대박을 내야 돼. 저 정도 유령 잡는 거는 의미가 없어. 유령 4마리씩 나오는데.
Do we actually see Broodlords in this game? Last time,
야, 이제 무리군주 나오나요? 드디어? 한 판도 나온 적이 없거든요. 지금까지.
Never got a single Broodlord. This time, his economy, his bank, it's even worse.
Yes, but the setup for Clem is not as good either. There's no
근데 지금 나오는 무리군주는 크게 의미가 없어.
The upgrades are not really great for the air, and for the ground they are 2-1. But if it does have to end up being Thor's emergency mode,
나올 거면은 진짜 한 번에 확 나와야 돼. 부주에 한 번에 확 나와가지고 순식간에 밀어버려야 돼. 바이킹 쌓이기 전에. 어설프게 나오면은
Because Broodlords work when you're set up for them, when you're ready.
유령에 그냥 다 잡히죠. 세랄 자원이 많긴 한데 저 자원을 지금 쓸 데가 없어. 소모전을 계속 해줘야 되는데 테란 아니 클레임이 그 소모전을 안 해줘.
Steamrolls across the map. He says, "I'm going to get as much damage as possible. I'm going to snipe a base. I'm going to get drones. I'm not going to give you time for any sort of tech transition."
I just want to point out another fantastic thing Serral is doing during all this. As we do see one snipe managing to land, there's a changeling on the bottom side. Looking at that unit production tab, there's a changeling watching that Clem still has good defense on that bottom side.
가장 이상적인 시나리오가 뭐냐면은
But here comes the infestor. It runs into a missile turret. Will get taken out.
딱 반반 소모전을 해주면서 이제 그 비워진 인구수를 순식간에 무리군주로 변환시키면서 멀티를 밀어야 되는데 안 되죠 지금.
Will once again push Serral back, but 15 SCVs go down. The 6 base is not.
소모전이 안 돼.
A couple of ultras on a bad rally will go down, and once more Clem now has enough left over to counterattack and deny this base again. That was on the whole very good for Clem.
Serral's bank's big, but the ability, the time you need to reinforce is not there yet.
일방적으로 그러니까 저거가 지금 손해만 볼 수밖에 없어 지금 유령이 다 쌓였고 라인도 잘 그어놨고.
Drones and Draenlings. Why not? The position that Serral has had for quite a while now. It's broken, and hey, there's even more damage. That being said, bottom left side, Serral has taken a base from Clem, but he needs to mine from it. He needs to take advantage. Position doesn't matter. Money does.
Serral needs to win this one with the next bit of bank he's got. He's going to show the Corruptors, maybe going to try and bait out some Vikings, but the fact that he's shown those Corruptors means that the chance of surprise Broodlords drops massively.
그래도 일단 공중 공사원 찍어놨는데
Thors and Vikings necessarily. If there's enough ghosts, they will absolutely do the job. If you can't keep those away from the
함부로 못 가죠
Broodlords.
지금.
Serral not wanting to pull the trigger on the transition just yet.
길목이 지금 커맨드 막 3-4개씩 박혀 있어가지고 어디 갈 길도 없어.
And the sniper good in the middle of the army, beautiful accuracy. That's why he's number 1.
I don't even know what to say anymore about Clem. He's just playing out of
여기는 이런 식으로 견제 가능하고 탱크랑 해방선 사거리 가지고.
a lot of it here as Serral tries to make crack from Clem once again, but he can't do it. Not just yet. The Liberators, the splits, the readiness of Clem makes this so hard. And the Infestors, they're not finding their shots.
뭐야?
They're up and one away. Banelings on Marauders again. Not what you want, and 4 more Liberators at a time, +1 air attack on the way, +3 mech armor on the way. You said Clem wasn't in that position where he had what he needed to really have this high-powered air army. Give him a couple minutes, he's gonna get there.
몰라 나도 아무것도 안 하는데
would like to see a couple more starports, maybe a couple more factories. He's up to 3 factories now, but he is doing such a good job of constantly scanning.
벤다이어그램 부서지기 시작해요.
Ever come out, never actually being.
저거는 뭐 땅굴이 됐든 뭐 땅굴밖에 답이 없는데. 땅굴을 뚫을 데가 없어. 자 어쩔 수 없이 정면으로 들어오는데 유령을 좀 잡긴 잡아줬지만 이번에 그래도 잘 싸우긴 했어 진짜.
The crazy thing is that is finally what Serral's been
근데 여기서 이득을 거두면서 테란의 멀티를 밀던가 해야 되는데 안 밀어주면은
even still though Clem is able to keep most of those goats
똑같습니다.
alive. Get the medevac, they're able to run away. He's able to really maintain this sieged up position. But now, Serral on the map a little bit. He breaks the position. Clem has to run away, dropping scans everywhere. He needs to know, is there an infestor on the north side? Is there an infestor on the left side? Is there something I have to know about as this slow push from Clem works hard to deny the mining of Serral?
이 자리가 별로 안 좋아요 저그.
Once again, the Liberators are raining hell.
자리가 별로 안 좋아요 저그.
And this Sim City into the tanks, into the ghosts, into the Liberators. Serral has not been able to break that this entire series, and a couple snipes to boot.
Absolutely fantastic from Clem. The Sim City, more so than the army, was the starring role in that last fight. And Clem continues to deplete the bank of Serral. Serral is trying so desperately to mine from the
사이클론 뭐죠? 저거 실수로 뽑은 것 같은데 쏠쏠하게 이득 거두고 있어요.
He's going to start mining from the base that Serral used to have. There is a burrowed ling up here. That is good for Serral, but he cannot hold the
무조건
position
실수야.
long term. Once Clem turns his
해방선이랑 단축키 똑같아서 실수로 뽑은 거죠.
Beautiful ling run by on the top side, but it is not going to be able able to get through this massive Liberator anti-air. However, the Corruptors will. Very nice counterattack. Link Corruptor. But
어떻게든 지금 빈틈을 지금 노려보려고 하는데
from Clem. Both players doing the answer
여기가
to each other.
흥녀도 아니고 궤도인데도 지금
high-level game in series.
키를 못 주고 있어.
We were told that we were doing this series. I've been dreaming of it ever
계속
since I
이제
sleep a lot.
테라는 이제 저거 병력 쫓아다니면서
How could you?
I know, right? And I am investor. And that's a lot of Ghost all clumped together, but there's no follow-up ready right now. And the longer this goes,
어디 한 군데 뭐 뚫리지만 않으면 돼.
Stan goes down, Investor falls, but here comes Sarah once. He's gonna opt into the fight even without that crowd control. But we've seen what happens here. We've seen what happens when Sarah looks for the high ground. There's nothing there. Planetarians go down, or Planetarians do well. Missile turrets.
야 이제 테란이 더 먹어요. 여기를 먹어버리면
Anything.
테란이 오히려 저거보다 자원을 더 먹습니다.
Worst of the trade, and he is finding himself in a more and more difficult position as time goes on. He is doing everything he bloody well can to try and find a way. He's now long distance mining this base. That should tell you how bad the situation is. Sterile was out mining Clem for a very long time, but now it is all blue arrows. There is an investor on top of the army. The Bungle will come on in.
뻥글 잘 들어갔는. 또 살렸고요.
However, the Ultras are still there in massive numbers. Parasitic Bomb of the Vikings. The Liberators will be moved past.
행성 요새 저거 존나 압박이다.
Goes down, but the counter snipes from Clem are massive, and the ghost count is still at 15. Cyril is not going to be able to break through. Clem is on the verge of a date with the grand finals.
Now, Steadfast, we do have to remember there's
지은 것 같습니다. GG.
Cyril does not make the finals. Clem, for the first time in an offline event in front of a crowd like this, he will make that final.
마지막 판은 그냥 압도했다. 오히려 세라를 압도했다. 클렘이.
Clem with the performance of a lifetime. I don't want to hear that crowd.
야, 손목 괜찮냐?
Clem.
손목 부서지겠다. 그렇게 게임하면.
Those are what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it feels amazing to beat him in a offline match because I've beaten him online before, and recently I've also been struggling a bit against him. So it feels just amazing to win against him offline and get to the finals.
It was a stream.
그렇답니다.
I come back in Clem.
와 그래. 배틀크루 존나 커. 이거 모형 뭐야? 존나 큰데?
Be on this tournament is non-Koreans left, right, and center. The head, the tail of the tape here, 86 to the 92, and a drawn for the
player in the world. Power test.
Dr. He is also
Power rank.
It feels amazing being in the finals.
체급 차이 봐라.
선수들이라서 쫄지 않고 자신의 플레이를 계속 해갔던 게 더 열심히 해서 이제
He's a bit of a tricky one. Can cheese and he can
오래된 선수
and let's make.
The ultra
몸무게
confident,
두 배 차이 날 것 같은데?
experienced Korean Zerg up against his first premier finals. It's Clem versus Dark for a best of 7 to end our ESL Masters Winter Tournament.
I was already excited, but that's video too. At the moment, the finish.
Different player, more prone, I would
맵 그거 볼까?
say too, being very, very aggressive, throwing in some cheeses, and the confidence that
노란색이
I feel is unmatched amongst the StarCraft 2 pros.
보는
We do
거고.
have our maps decided, and I, for one, am already excited to see the 2 vetoes from our players.
빨간색이 벤이구나.
Alcyone is vetoed by Dark. Clem did look excellent on it, and Radaset is vetoed by Clem, which I do believe has been proven difficult for Terran.
클렘을 레드버스 때 그거 벤했네요.
Look, to prevent Clem from ever getting up to 4-5 and definitely 6.
Man starting on Equilibrium in the top left for DKZ Gaming. He is Dark.
랭킹 5등.
And in the top right side of this magnificent map, we are looking at the main base of the French kid who's been dreaming of this moment to sit on a stage like this, in front of a crowd like this, representing Team Liquid. Atlanta, make some noise for Clem. They make noise.
Yes, they did. Absolutely. Clem, fan favorite here. We all believe in the story. Well, kind of underdog as Clem is
모든 경기 40더블인 것 같은데 이번에도 40더블.
finals. You wonder if the nerves get to him, but he has proven now over the years he's getting more and more comfortable advancing in these tournaments, being up against the greatest players in the world. But if you're talking about experience in this position,
넘겨.
I mean, he kind of came into Katowice as one of the favorites for the entire event, or at least a dangerous.
세라는 아까 이 맵에서 금멀티 첫 번째 멀티 먹고 압도했거든요. 강영호는 가져가지 않습니다. 정직하게 합니다. 랭킹 1등 세랄입니다, 세랄.
That big quarterfinals victory. In the end, he didn't go all the way as he got stubbed by his Italian buddy Reiner back then. But these are the moments where he tanks so much confidence and also experience as a Frenchman, where you're like, all right, I don't just have to be that online hero. People can finally stop talking about me only winning online. I just made top 4 in one of the biggest events of the year. After that, you go to a Home Story Cup, you make it to your second Home Story Cup final ever.
Yep.
You lose against Serral, no big deal. So yes, Dark has the historic experience, but throughout this year, Clem is no stranger to having a couple of proper offline runs.
It really has been the year of Clem performing better and better in the offline tournaments. He was the online hero, the regional winner back-to-back in previous years, but had not been able to perform
이 컨보소.
on the offline format, where Dark is pretty consistent no matter where he finds himself in the international tournaments.
야, 체력 10 남았으면 집에 가라. 여기서 또 뭐 큰일 하려고.
For a typical opener for him, hardly can call it greedy nowadays. 3cc without that second gas.
And Dark, even though this is that map with the mega base, where we don't just have the rich Vespian guys, but you have the gold minerals to go alongside with it as well. It's the first time in StarCraft 2 history that we have
이번에도
one
역시
competitive 1v1 map that has both of those things working for you. We saw Serral
화염차 사신 그리고 스타부터 올라가는 거 보니까 벤시를 할 가능성이
It didn't end the game,
높죠.
but it's safe to say that Serral got himself in a very fine position with the amount of damage that he dealt. Dark has a much more normal setup for now. That doesn't mean that he's not going to take that base as his 4th or his 5th base. Clem obviously knows it, but I think just to shake off some of the nerves, some of the jitters that Clem may have been feeling, it is nice for him that he's going up against a somewhat familiar and normal start.
Yeah, as far as that goes, doing an SED scout actually makes a lot of sense. Sometimes that can also be, obviously, if you do believe your opponent's cheesy, that's where you would do that. But then also can be something that players don't want to do.
아, 이번엔 근데 해방선 한개 뽑았어요.
Facing someone that they're equal with, or they think is even better than them, it can actually be something.
벤시 대신 해방선.
But they do it. They really want to be safe. They really want to play their game. Then that's what the setup they get is. And Clem is set up 3cc. Haline's on the way. Liberator as well from the 1-1-1 follow-up. Very standard opener. There's some control as well as.
바퀴 타이밍 보니까 이거 한번 세게 찌르려는 것 같은데 아까 김도욱전 하듯이 바퀴 개멸 찌르기.
It's going to be the 5 roaches, right? Okay, he's going to make 4 more immediately, make it 9. You can always just make 9 roaches and still drone up behind this with 2 extra overlords on the production tab. This is a very large map, so it seems unlikely that Dark is going to make 9 slow roaches, then reinforce with Zerglings, run them to the other side.
이게 만약에 벤시 출발이었으면은 바퀴 상대 오히려 괜찮은데 해방선은 이제 바퀴 상대로 그렇게 좋지 않거든요.
But he does spot this one, and he's about to run into the other 4 that were already into the center. Dark definitely smashing that drone button behind all of this, but this is where Clem can maybe get a bit of value out of his Liberator as they're going for Queens at first. One Queen is about to fall. The Liberator also falls, and I don't really think that's for Dark.
Yeah, no, I actually think this is a fine performance so far. The Roaches do bully back someone who is only going to be making Hellions for a while. Obviously, the Liberator wouldn't want to pull back to handle this either. And so the Roaches do have to be respected. It's not the largest number, but you don't have the best fighting units for the
뒤에다가 벙커기 만들어주고 지금 사이클론을 뒤에서 지금 뽑아주고 있어요.
So Clem's going to be forced to micro here a little bit. Dark's going to try to save those low HP Roaches and morph a couple of them into Ravages, but it's so hard to
오히려
There's a bunker that Clem can fall back to as well.
사이클론 염차를 잡아먹는다?
Obviously, he doesn't want to lose all the units for nothing.
이게 오히려 지금 바퀴 개멸이 좀 어설프게 오는 바람에 잡아먹힐 것 같은데? 오, 이러면은 클램이 괜찮죠? 잘 막았죠? 아주 잘 막았죠?
No, I don't think so, but then I also looked at Dark's income and his overall bank. He went up to 1,000 bank at one point on the minerals. The gas wasn't actually set up terribly evenly. It looks like he was hoping for more from the aggression, yes, but then also, I guess, hoping that his bank would be a little more even as he does
그러면서
Inspire.
3월 5월 동시에 먹는 저그
No doubt going to be
스파이 올라가고 있고.
especially considering that he does not have link speed.
Yeah, that's what I was double checking there as well. I'm like, so we're going Roaches into Spire. We see a double evolution chamber being dropped as well, but that's just a little bit bizarre. It almost makes you wonder, is he going to build some Corruptors to deal with Metavax and try to reduce the healing? Because Roaches,
oh no,
he's going to drop a Baneling Nest as well. Did Dark forget that he does not have circling speed?
I think that he did. But he's still not realizing it. Even as the Lings are on patrol in front of his base, they do not have those little wings on them. This is going to get awkward real fast. Dark will, of course, eventually get everything together to go for a defense and go, hey, those Lings are pretty slow, and then start up speed. But the question is, how necessary are speedlings going to be for these early defenses? Usually quite a bit when your intention isn't to get Ling a Baneling.
염차는 뒤로 돌리면서 의료선 또 본진 드랍 가는 것 같죠? 양방 여왕 다 먹힐 것 같은데 여왕 다 잡힐 것 같은데 이거 이것만으로도 테라 이득이에요.
Just the oddest game to me, Zombie Grub.
아, 드론 많이 잡혀요.
The roaches, neither of those units is particularly fantastic against Team Bio.
No, it is not, as the direct engagement will eventually come. The Roaches will be outgunned. The quality gets better for the Terran. And then the Lings sometimes help out with some nice surrounds, but they still doesn't have Ling speed. Finally, Dark notices.
사클 또 개꿀밖에 살아갑니다. 라고 걸면서 빠지면서 또 살아가요.
He's now targeting that +1 evolution on the for the attack, and I think that might go
아,
down.
이게 바퀴 셔진데 여왕이 잡혀버리면 저 의료선을 잡을
Dark is just in all sorts of trouble.
수단이 없죠. 계속 흐를 수밖에 없어. 근데 그 와중에 뮤탈? 뭐야, 뮤탈 언제 뛰었어? 언제 왔어 이거? 언제 왔누?
Yeah, apparently that's going to be a thing. So 7 SCVs do end up falling immediately. Left a couple of Marines in the natural. I mean, this is somewhat promising for Dark, but he needs so much more because it's going to take a very long time before Dark will ever have Hive, Adrenal Glands, Sex-tier upgrades. Even though that Evo Chamber, by the way, in the end did not get picked off, and I kind of feel that Clem should have probably targeted that down. But even with that minor missed opportunity, we're still kind of feeling this game for Clem on a very.
뮤탈도 많이 온 게 아니라
The structure is there for the Terran and not so much for the Zerg. But that's actually kind of dark, to be honest. Whether it's because
그렇게 큰 타격은 없었고요.
mid game or because he sometimes makes these mistakes, he somehow, some way, still manages to make everything get
오히려
back on the
막자마자
rails.
나옵니다.
Totally fine. The terrain
금멀티
is
쪽
destination.
저기 위쪽에 좋은 언덕이 있거든. 탱크 자리 잡기 좋은 곳 거기 자리 잡으려고 하겠죠. 아, 여기 따먹는 거 좋고. 그쵸, 여기 자리 좋아요. 무조건 줘야죠 여기 그냥. 이야, 13번 잘했어. 잘 들렸어.
So Clem can now just kite back a little bit and he's going to try to gun down as many Zerg units as possible. The majority of the Banelings have fallen. Overall, not the worst fight for Dark, as Dark does get on top of these tanks rather quickly, and he is going to successfully push Clem back for now.
야, 그냥 줄 줄 알았는데 이걸 오히려 힘으로 걷어냈네.
With the aggression, he comfortably is on 4 bases as the planetary finishes up at the gold. He's going to have 2-2 finish up in about 25 seconds, and he's producing double tanks as well. Dark has opted for actually one of his classic playstyles, which is to include the Corruptors as far as that mid game goes. He was certainly one of the ones doing it for a while, then stopped, and I guess he wants to bring him back.
Yep, the Mula Link Corruptor, and obviously we have a bunch of Raptures in the mix as well. He is going to drop the infestation pin about 10 minutes and 20 seconds into the game. That is very late for modern ZVT standards if you want to play Hive Tech altogether. Dark is
약간 세랄은 이런 상황 오면은 저렇게 딱 테란이 한 방, 뭐야, 테란이 한 방 올 때 저걸 돌리면서 오히려 저기를 버리고 다른 쪽에 멀티를 피는 스타일이면 박영호는 그냥 오히려 힘으로 우직하게 막는 스타일인 듯.
Targeting the Terran unit, but Clem now trying to micro his little hard out. 4 tanks are anchoring this push. Make that still 4 actually. A 5th one had reinforced at the exact right time, and Clem is going to continue battling this as long as he can.
Dark's army is bigger, but Clem's army feels so much more powerful, and this has a lot more micro potential overall. Has a lot more momentum behind it. Like Dark is going to need to pull off some of these miraculous engagements that we know that he's capable of. He needs to sneak Banelings behind the Terran army because if we're just going to roll everything in from the left.
자, 이것도 힘으로 밀어낼 수 있나요? 탱크 위치가 좋긴 한데 개멸충 감즙으로 걷어내주면서 좋아요. 아, 근데 이 정도면은 반반?
desperately wants to actually grab a few to say that he was comfortable with that trade. He has lost his positioning though. Dark at the end of the day taking actually a fair resource trade when it comes to ZVT.
Yep, I mean for the Lairtech army, I think Dark actually took some pretty good fights there. Maybe Clem moved a couple of the Bio units a little bit too far forward, as Clem is now actually pulling a classic, as we like to call it, the Beyond, where he only started.
3월 5월을 이제 동시에 먹어가지고 잘 나온다.
Successfully made it into Hive Tech, and he can start working on some of these amazing Hive Tech upgrades that Zerg can get access to, like Adrenal Glands for all the Zerglings he's producing. So far, so good for Dark. I think he survived a couple of very scary minutes in this game, but obviously it's still going to take a little while before he can ever get Clem out of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're still approaching a late.
와, 진짜 우직하게 힘싸움만 하네.
Express frustration with, even though he's extremely good with it, and we just saw Clem perform great miracles even.
클렘은 그러면서 원유수 돌렸어요. 탱크 여기서 다 따야죠. 이거 주도 아, 잠깐만요. 여기서 다 잡히면 안 돼요 지금. 잠깐만. 순식간에 다 꼬라박았어. 우유수까지 들어가면서.
Getting a cancel on that hatchery as well. That truly was not the fight for Dark. Maybe some of those fights in the center of the map gave him some overconfidence, because I'm not exactly sure why we even went for it, right? You finally have Hive, you can make your army a whole lot more powerful, and Dark's like, nah, this is the moment I'm going to run into all these tanks. I guess he expected Clem to just have way less than Clem actually had.
I think that's exactly what it was, or hope that they were out of position, perhaps doing too many drops at once that didn't leave lead to success or having them guard different bases. But no, Clem was prepared and is kind of happy with how that went down. Lots of it off of creep, obviously. He also was able to get that hatchery, was looking for more with the drop. Won't find too much, but these players continue to expand, continue to develop their upgrades, and continue solidifying themselves into the late game. The problem for the Zerg is that they usually would be at supply max and a bit of a bank if they would really have their preferential TDZ.
Yep, and Dark had to spend all of his money to get close to remaxing, but he's not there yet. And he fire up all the expensive +3 upgrades as well. And that Adreno Glance is about to come online. We're even looking at +2 flyer attacks, so I guess it is going to be hard for Clem to keep these Medivacs alive, but it's going to be so difficult for that very Ling-heavy army to get great engagements against Clem off trip, especially now that Drilling Claws is about to finish up, and Clem is most likely going to sprinkle the map.
아, 이러면서 또 커맨드 마구 드러나기.
Yeah, exactly.
6시 견제 한번 들어가야죠. 그렇죠. 뚱싸움만해선 답 없어. 돌려야 돼, 병력. 매동충으로 이제 6시 한번 부수러 가겠죠?
At least for a hot second, but Clem's adding on Ghost, adding on a Fusion Core. He's still actually ramping up the aggression on the north side. Even though this isn't his entire army, he's actually keeping a bunch of it at the Zelnaga as if he's hoping Dark will get overly aggressive on that angle. However, that's not where Dark was planning to be aggressive. It's this planetary that's going to go down. Clem just acknowledges he was in no place.
한 번에 더 밀 수 있나요? 저 맹독충 많이 살았거든? 그쵸? 오, 좋은. 아, 네, 잠깐만. 저 커맨드까지 깼으면 더 좋았네.
So Dark definitely finding some success here, but we have to ask ourselves that age-old caster question: at what cost, Dark? As he now 40 supplies.
저거가 왜 손해본 느낌이냐?
Any better? He also had access to the gold a bit quicker, which means that that base is going to dry up soon. Like Dark is going to have a harder time to remax, and especially if he wants to take a fight on the other side of the map, he needs to be maxed out to even have a chance. Because throughout that entire best of 5 that Clem played against Serral, Clem very rarely grabbed all of his units. He left a lot of liberators behind, protecting certain bases. He leaves tanks behind everywhere.
테란 인구수 200, 저거는 180.
If we can't even beat half of the army, how are we going to beat the entire army? Oh my god!
오!
Lots of explosions going down there. Dark is going to back away as he's
지뢰 초대박 났어요.
I'm thinking about his ability to get to a very resource-efficient trade type of composition. Usually that would start with the Infestors. We saw it in the last semifinal, but we also saw it in Dark versus Cure semifinal too. Infestors can be a great way to catch some of these aggressive Terrans, but Dark doesn't want to add that on. He wants to try and get to Brood Lord.
자, 또 이제
If this map does continue to go and
이러면서 6시 또 가고 있거든요.
it can become more like a 6 o'clock for a 6 o'clock situation. Brood Lords would be great, but can you survive to that point?
I think Clem didn't even intend to be this aggressive, right? He probably expected, alright, the
또
entire
자리
is going to be
잡고
He's gonna have to hang in there for dear life, but a lot of these fights and these harassment opportunities just presented themselves. Clem's like, alright, we'll keep on taking them as he's now pressuring this base in the bottom left side, keeps that tank alive as well as a couple of those +2 corruptors do come in to work on these metavacs, but Dark is
유령 포지셔닝 너무 좋아 지금.
He's having a hard time fighting on trip, so I have no idea what he's supposed to do on the other side of the map.
빠졌다가 이제 막 들어오면은 그때 유령은 저격으로 다 잡아먹고.
And every time Dark over aggresses, he retreats, and then the snipes come.
태워서 도망가겠죠 또.
Big problem. Mostly Ling Bane though coming in as the Ghost do split.
오, 많이 잡혔어 근데.
Overly aggressive. Clem thought he had a moment there that was not necessarily true. Dark will push this back at least to the halfway point of the map, but Clem is always there with more reinforcements. It feels like at the very least he's not going to let Dark intrude on his side of the map over that 50% point, and he's going to be the one that keeps on aggressing.
We do have a +3 flyer attacks on the way now, as I think the Great Aspire has finished up. So a couple of those corruptors.
저 무슨 업그레이드? 의료선 체젠 업그레이드인가? 마나젠? 아, 저거 패치로 바뀐 이후로 한 번도 눌러본 적 없음.
Then you want the most cost-efficient army, and a slow army can be okay at that point too. But right now, Clem still has some mobility even on a map that does encourage.
야, 이러면서 또 지뢰 드랍 견제.
So like I said, I feel like Infestors are the way to go first as far as making these resource trades a little bit better, and then maybe if it goes to a 25-minute game, that's when you get the Brood Lords.
Burrow did come online, so maybe we can get some magic going with the Burrowed Banelings, but it's very difficult on this map because not that obvious where Clem is coming from. Maybe you can put it at one of these hallways on the top side or one of the bridges.
진짜 개꿀밖에 한다. 근데 별것도 아닌 병력으로 컨트롤 존나 하면서 막 질 것 같으면 의료선으로 빠지고 꿀밖에 안 해 계속. 그러면서 어느새 지금 반 긁고 있어요.
This is what Dark does best, as I was saying in the early game, but it's also what I was kind of mentioning in his semifinal versus Cure, you know? He did get into a weird position in that very first game and then still was able to bring it back despite some big losses, and then obviously won the entire semifinal eventually. So, I mean, it's still...
해방선 이제 사업이 돼서 사업방송 경쟁에서 들어가주면서
Let's see, as we have Corruptors getting on top of a couple of these Liberators. Dark showing us that he's definitely dialed in and he's on top of these Libs rather quickly. One more is going to turn around and get a few more shots up on these drones. Dark now 75 workers. I would say that's actually okay with the amount of bases that he can.
이렇게 되면 또 테란과 저그의 멀티 숫자가 같아졌습니다.
Yeah, Yeah, there's actually not that much mining to do. He is going to have to defend 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock against pushes from the Terran that bounce off a planetary.
Wow.
Certainly in the 6 o'clock position, that is the exact case here. We do finally have some Shark Festers walking around. Clem's been excellent ever since this series. Game 2, I would say, versus Serral. He's always been scanning anytime that Zerg starts to take a fight, but he has missed a couple of Infestors on the backside of his army.
My WoW had to do with the 161 Zerglings that Dark currently has out on the map, but it's so hard to find great fights when you're that heavy on the links.
잠복 가면 좀 아이고 한 마리 잡혔고 한 마리 뒤에 더 있긴 있거든.
Well sieged up there and is often very difficult, and a lot of these links have already melted without a real fight even taking place, as Clem is still finding some economic damage on the top side of the map as well. Clem is the one who's starting to accumulate a little
뭔가
bit.
저거 움직임이 개스트한테 쫓겨다니고 있어. 지금 안 되겠다. 그냥 정면으로 꽝 한 방 지금 들어가고 있거든. 저거 개빡쳐가지고. 가다가 그냥 나가버리네. 끝까지 도달 못하고.
Is going to take game number 1 after 21 minutes. But it was possibly one of the most awkward games Dark could have played for a first and a
깜노씨 가다가 말고 그냥 지지.
Two maps that are very good for Zerg, Ratu said, and Equilibrium. You're kind of supposed to win this. It's your whole to a win.
It was one of those the entire.
이런 식의 힘싸움은 또 답이 없네.
The only thing we really of those maps, the Broodlord.
오히려 테란이 좋다.
We are going to spawn on Hecate in the bottom left for DKZ Gaming. He is the red Zerg, Dark.
In the top right side, we are looking at the main base of the Frenchman, who has now won 4 games in a row on that stage, and he's starting to feel more than at home. Give it up for Team Liquid Clem.
오히려 지금 클레임이 무슨 느낌이냐면은 전판에 세랄이랑 하다 와서 손이 완전히 풀린 느낌?
Very different positions on the map compared to Equilibrium, and Clem. He's been very good about looking out for potential weirdness from Dark. Dark doesn't want to do anything weird. Another hatch first from him to the gas pool, and then for Clem, if he can get away with it, his comfort zone has always been that 3cc.
Yep, he loves it. But what's going to be very interesting is if we're going to see a more of a normal start and things are just kind of unfolding the way we expect things to unfold between these two, is how aggressive is Clem willing to be in the
스킬 좀 없애면 안 되냐? 저거 한 번씩 깜짝깜짝 놀래 이게 하다 보면.
Even and fair, because in the past, what often happened, I think back of some of the
개거 쓸려 저거.
games these two had against each other at big events like IEM Katowice, so we're not talking about the minor online cups where it's 4 AM for one of them, but no big moments, both of them traveling to Poland. Clem gets himself in good positions, but he just unsieges the tanks a bit too often and is too aggressive in situations where Dark wants nothing more than Clem to attack him, and obviously if you give Dark an opportunity to punish you, he is going to capitalize on it.
If we think about the history of these two players, most recently Clem has been winning more. It's not in those.
클렘은 그냥 모든 경기 다 사신 더블. 모든 경기 빌드가 똑같습니다.
Against, let's say, a typical European Zerg that he faces, but then he would really struggle against Dark, perhaps the style of play, perhaps because there's roach emphasis, for instance, compared to others.
뭐 다전제라서 판짜기 이런 거 필요 없다. 그냥 오직 한 빌드만 우직하게 한다.
A lot of these online tournaments seems to be more comfortable being both aggressive against Dark, but then also being patient and defensive against Dark.
Watching Clem's Reaper Micro, by the way.
무난한 빌드하면서 그냥 컨트롤만 넌 존나 하겠다.
Throughout the last 4 games, but he's always there. If he can get one more shot up, if he can get that 1 second delay on a hatchery going down, he is gonna go for it. And this really just
컨트롤, 피지컬이 곧 전략이다.
throughout this weekend. Where in the past, in some of these big games, big moments where he knew that all the lights were on him, he played a bit more cautious. And he
똑같죠. 사신 더블, 트리플을 우주공항. 딱 한 판만 이제 우주공항을 생략하고 그 배럭을 늘려서 우주선을 좀 빠르게 띄우긴 했어요. 그 한 판만 제외하고는 사신 더블인 건 똑같아. 사신 더블 트리플하고 벤시 또는 해방선.
I was looking for that creep tumor especially, but Dark was also counter microing in the less I guess evident way, right, where he's trying to determine where the Reaper's going, so he could plant the creep tumor on the opposite.
이번엔 바이킹 한 마리 찍어서 오버로드 잡으면서 가겠다.
Still 3cc and the Hellions and a starport. It's a Viking first, not a Liberator.
Nope. I mean, that Lib was obviously the least successful thing that Clem did in that previous game. He went for the queens in the end. He did get 1 queen, but obviously a Zerg like Dark has a lot of queens to begin with, so sacrificing 1 queen to kill a Liberator that's more expensive and then won't annoy you anymore is a trade that I think Dark will take any day of the week. It's one of these moments where Clem will maybe look back at it. He's like, yeah, I should have just right-clicked on the drones, because Dark was actually
바이킹 한 마리 찍고 해방선이네요.
drones away. And with the amount of time that the Liberator fired, which was like 4 or 5, maybe Clem would have been able to get a slightly better trade there, but that's honestly one of the very few things that could have gone better for Clem in game 1.
Yeah, exactly. He handled the roaches on his side of the map in excellent fashion. He had a bunker, he had the Cyclones pop in really good time, and then he controlled it from then on, especially because Dark was making some mistakes, and including that late metabolic boost. He finally gets it this time, though. Totally normal timing, also not going for any roach shenanigans. Layers being added on, trying to unsupply Flybach himself as well. 5 Overlords on the way. And then Baneling. So Baneling at the very least, Dark has shown more Muta Inspire builds, I feel like, in the last 24 hours than he has in a lot of other games, but it is maybe not the option for Hecate. I did like it on Radis.
맹독 동지를 좀 빨리 지었어.
But not sure about the other maps.
빌드는 다 받고.
Clem is excellent against this playstyle. Clem historically has loved this the most. When Clem made first a big name for himself, but that is when he started beating the likes of Sero and Raynor, and he did it.
염차 들어갑니다.
The Hellions are gonna go for the adventures.
대박.
Clem gets 10 drones in the best part of it. Zombie Grub. He gets out of there with the vast majority of the Hellions. Clem off to a magnificent starting game.
근데 잠깐만요. 염차 잘 잡았으면은 이러면은 만회한 겁니다. 염차를 다 잡았다. 살려가면은 이제 저그가 완전히 망한 건데 염차를 다 잡으면은 괜찮아요.
Clem's still gonna be okay with that trade. He's really okay. All right, that Hellion is gonna live.
Really though?
Is it though?
It became personal between Dark and the Hellion. Dark really
한 마리.
in the end. Yeah, I mean, in the end, at least Dark can feel somewhat decent about it because, hey, I did get to
저것마저 잡아버리네.
all of these Hellions and honestly could have escaped. They were already at the ramp.
Yeah.
The Clem would have just brought them back to his side of the map. I think the majority of them would have survived that. In the end, maybe Clem got a bit overeager where he's like, well, I'm doing so great, can I do even better? And
바이킹
kind of where his journey stopped. But
세워두고.
stuff that you're looking for. You get a great scout off. You slow down the creep spread a little bit. That's obviously what the Hellions and Reapers are
무슨
for.
건지.
And if you can then get 10 plus drones relatively early in the game as well, you gotta be feeling pretty good about yourself if you're Clem.
Yeah, absolutely.
이게 아까 염차가 살아있었으면은 저거 수비가 가능한데 염차가 없기 때문에 매우 쪽 이득을 거둘 것 같은데요. 보죠. 심실 해놨지만 신경 못 쓰고 있어요. 저거가 득점. 3점 슛 들어간 느낌이에요 지금. SCP 15기 더 달갑아졌죠 이러면.
He's not waiting for Baneling's speed. He's not waiting for anything else. He just knows at that point, I've killed the Hellions, I've killed the Reaper. I know that you picked up a bunch of units to fly to my side of the map. I'm going with what a lot of people say, the anti-timing, the slow Banelings. It doesn't matter.
어우, 저거 다 살리는 거 봐라.
Especially if you're focusing what's happening on my side of the map. So that was great for Dark, but that's also something he absolutely needed.
Yeah, I think so. But at the end of the day, it was the repercussion of losing those Hellions. 100% we've been seeing the Terrans.
세란이랑 할 때 딱 이런 상황이었는데 오히려 컨트롤 이런 양방 컨트롤로 이득을 받거든요. 잘 막아야 되는 저그.
Very nice for Dark there, who's also starting to control the.
와 미친놈아. 그 와중에 맥동 두기 잡고 태우는 거 뭔데?
He's got double drops on the left and a drop on the right to try and pull Dark apart. Dark does have the army, but it needs to be in the right place. Right now, he is once again having a larva issue, so his bank is a little too high here.
A little too much. When we're playing against Clem, you don't want to be floating 1,200 minerals. That could have been an extra queen or two. That could have been some spore crawlers on the edge just to make it a little bit harder. And on top of that, it could have been a lot more lings and a couple of banelings as well with that 600 gas that he was sitting on. I mean, Clem is firing at almost all cylinders.
클레멘 주특기 나왔어야지.
양방
견제 감염충 있거든요 저기 정면에. 오 대박. 역시 클렘도 사람이었어. 이러면은 확 기울었어요 순식간에. 저거 너무 좋아 지금. 한방 제대로 먹였어.
Now we have a fifth base getting set up at the same time as the sixth here for Dark, and a double expand while especially he has this room to do so. He's got some creeps right in the middle of the map and is starting to work on it on the opposite ends of the map, left and right. Clem also trying to get an expansion up to the top left, has chosen the bottom right to focus on.
감염충 있는데 저렇게 들이대는 거.
I think the next 2 minutes are going to be terrifying for Dark. If Dark can hang in
꼴 사다 왔겠지. 저거 입장에서. 근데 그 와중에 클렘은 멈추지 않아요. 다시 가는데 또! 근데 맹독이 없어서 대박은 못 냈는데.
I mean, the first beginnings of these 2 minutes that are very scary for Dark are not off to a very good start. And Widowmines could go once more for the Vipers or the Zerg.
야 저거 집에 또 타겟팅 컨트롤해준 것 같은데? 살모사 하나 점 산 거 보니까.
Everything together to really use it in a great fashion. Losing some overlords over here as well. The hot pickup will happen. Could be going over to Dark's would-be sixth, but not looking at it right now. Dropping the main base, finding a defenseless drone line. 8 of them are going to go down.
저거 원래 저걸 있어야 받는 건데 방금 살모사 때렸어.
Popping off, and while they don't get tremendous hits, it is still the annoyance that Clem is working off of. He's got the supply, he's got the macro, he's got the upgrades, he's going to have the technologies. I believe his Ghost Academy just finished, and Dark is once again just the Zerg who's catching up.
Dark is down to 4 queens, so even a medevac with 10 HP is annoying because the queens are just not always in the right position. He is lacking the anti-air. If you lack anti-air, Clem is going to keep on bouncing.
아니 분명히 아까 이득을 거뒀는데 왜 지금 테란이 또 오히려 밀어붙이고 있죠? 그렇죠. 저거 그래 적어도 이렇게 먹여야 돼.
Hey, Fungo on the other side of the map is starting to look a little bit more promising for Dark.
그렇지. 그러면 그래야 이렇게 해야 테란이 흔들린다고.
Successful connections than they did before.
That Fungo was great, but nothing to handle the Liberator makes this extremely awkward. Just 5 or 6 units from the Terran being a bother on the ground.
테란도 사람이야. 아, 클램도 사람이야.
Looking for the reinforcements. At the end of the day, the supply still remains somewhat even, but Dark might have just bitten off a little more than he could chew. No medevacs to heal this up. They send back to the Planetary. They will eventually defend. Clem also dipping down in supply. He did lose access to his third, at least temporarily. He did lose a lot of drones, and he was just completely pushed back. Something finally came around to deal with that Liberator. Dark gives himself much needed breathing room.
이것도 괜히 그 주변력 저 11시 쪽에서 대치하다가는 또 게임이 좀 불리해질 뻔했는데 방금 3멀 견제가 잘 들어갔어요. 저가 주도권 잡았죠.
I mean, a 10 out of 10 counterattack there by Dark. Because if Dark just stays on his side of the map, fights that army straight up, there's honestly nothing he could really do there. Clem's army was better, it was way more set up.
잠복 가면 또 숨어 있거든.
Real option Dark had, and I mean, one hell of a counterattack it was. Gets the depots, gets all the SCVs, and lives to fight another day.
클램도 가만히 있지 않습니다. 계속 또 해방선 견제해주면서.
Game number 2 of this best of 7, trying to reestablish the base at the top left, but he's at the bottom right. I mean, that actually I feel should have gone down to something on the drops earlier on, but it does have the
백골밖에 안 해 계속. 울트라 나왔어.
When you don't have dependable good old corruptors on the scene, so that has probably gotten even a couple of those queens. But Dark is back on the aggressive. He's back on Clem's side of the map, hoping that he's finding him. Not looking the right way. This time though, Clem with very little units committed to Dark's side. He is totally prepared on all.
저거 지금 움직임 보니까 흔들고 있는 것 같은데? 저거 주병력 우왕좌왕 하는데 지금? 자 우왕좌왕 하는데 저걸링이랑 울트라 여기 올 때가 아닌데? 흔들리고 있어요 지금. 잠깐만 맹독. 멀티 싸움이야 지금. 이거는 또 유효했고 잘 들어갔고 오케이.
He might be getting more and more uncomfortable not getting on Dark side of the map though. His Liberators are finally cleaned up. He's not had an actual push into even the middle of the map in some time, yet he's not completely turtled up. It's not like he's behind a bunch of command centers ready to defend. This is where things can get screwier. The Lings will find more.
결국 손익을 따져보자면은 저거가 좀 더 좋은 것 같긴 하거든.
And Dark again has that breathing room to build up a little bit of a bank, which he really could not do on Equilibrium. So that's finally happening. Plus 3 carapace is now done for Dark as Clem's attack finished, but he forgot his armor.
Yeah, it's funny. They both kind of forgot one upgrade. I mean, at one point Dark was just kind of broke, so we can't even really say that Dark forgot it. Maybe just couldn't afford it. Clem obviously had some resources in the bank, would have been able to fire out a while ago. Also starts off from custom shells as the Widowmines do blow up 1 or 2 Marauders, but a lot of additional Lings.
저기 잠복 감염주 숨어있지 않았나요? 여기 근처에? 있었을 텐데 잡혔나?
Well, that could be a problem in the future. I mean, it seems like he has enough hatcheries now to work with max out. Yeah, he's got plenty of.
우직하게 정면 꽝 그렇지. 병력 양방으로 펼쳐져 있다. 그러면 정면이 부족하다는 소리. 잘 들어갔어요. 그러면서 이 테란 병력을 막아야 되는. 오 지금 잘 들어갔고. 와 지렸다 방금 진균. 어차피 저 주병력 불곰이라 결국 저걸링에 막히거든요 저거. 앞마당에 들어왔긴 했는데 맹독 점사 당했고 이래서도 2개밖에 없어서 막히거든요. 저거 막히죠? 막히죠. 그쵸 저거 막히고 배럭이 다 깨져버리면 저거 이겼죠 이러면. 저거가 좋습니다. 기울었습니다. 이거 보면 서플로 다 깨지고.
And honestly, I feel like he's been kind of disappointed a lot of this game. He's been watching his camera, now he seems to be kind of smiling at the possibility of having a tap out in this game, because it really does seem like he is too far gone. He's lost all of his production. He's going to lose. Well, not those SCVs.
약간 에라이 존나 빡치네. 아 메라 모르겠다. 그냥 정면 가자 한 것 같은데 그 잘 먹혀 들어왔어. 약간 빡쳐서 들어간 건도 없지 않아 있는 것 같은데 잘 먹혔어요. 좋았다 이거. 양방으로 계속 견피니까 저 정면이 비울 수밖에 없다. 또 이 염차 여기서 드론 많이 긁혔는데 이 염차 잡았던 게 되게 컸어. 이거 7판 4선인가 결승?
100 are getting a little so.
Into game 3, Golden Aura is going to be
지금부터 또 반삼성이네,
left side. We are looking at the main base of one of the best Dark players in the very rich history of StarCraft 2. Give it up for Dragon Kaizi Gaming.
골든 아우라.
In the bottom right of Golden Aura, we do have our blue Terran for Team Liquid. He is Clem.
The moment Clem has been dreaming of for all these years, ever since he bursted onto the scene in 2018 we started to hear of it, but it took a little while. It wasn't the same trajectory as that other 16-year-old back then, Raynor had. Raynor turned 16 and was immediately one of the best players in the world. Clem turned 16 and we're like, oh, that's so awesome, we got a new good Terran player in Europe. But it really took a solid 2 years before Clem didn't just show up to be a top 32 or a top 16 player in some of these tournaments. No, all of a sudden Clem became a very serious contender. Started taking maps, started taking series of the very best players that Europe had to offer. And
저거 뭐야, 드론. 금멀티. 아, 전진명 서치.
Only thing he's really just wanting to do is lift the trophy at a big offline event. And the kid is close, but he's not there yet.
클렘이 근데 지금까지 전진명을 한 적이 없는데 그래도 안전하게 서치 한번 해주고 3멀. 클렘은 역시나 사신 더블. 또 원가스만 팔고 있는 걸로 봐서는
and that's kind of the presumption is that you will, because Clem, well, is going to be very aggressive in the mid game when he's got a 16 Marine, so sure, but he almost always does opt for the 3cc.
트리플 먹겠죠? 아, 가스다. 이러면 뭔가 할 수 있어요. 뭔가 할 수 있어. 투팩을 할 수도 있고요.
If it's just too late, if he's been playing for too many hours, he's like, all right, let's just go ahead and get it over with. Clem is not much of a proxy barracks enjoyer. What he does like is proxying different tech facilities. Every pro player on the European ladder is familiar with that.
일단 사신 트리플은 아니고.
Could be a good old Hellion drop here.
Yeah, it could be. Proxy Starport could be coming down here and saying ideas.
전진 우주공항 뭔가 합니다.
But it is still effective.
근데 저기는 기술실 안 닿게 한 거 보니까 안 닿게 저기 그냥 붙여서 지은 거 보니까 해방선일 가능성이 높고 아니면 의료선? 해방선 아니면 의료선? 염차 드랍일 수도 있고 아니면은 염차 찌르면서 해방선 들어가는 걸 수도 있고 좀 빠르게. 사클.
Only in a couple of slow circling, somehow block the Hellions, but in theory, on paper, I am incredibly concerned for Dark, but it's not a well, it's not a matter of fact. Yeah. It's actually going to be the Liberator. So we have a couple of Hellions going into Cyclones. Man, that's obviously something that Clem can't possibly know, but a 4 Hellion opening here with a medevac would have been an amazing start for Clem.
Yeah, exactly. He at the very least would have been able to bully around the drones. They wouldn't be mining, and they probably would be dying. But no,
둘 다 유선 마우스 쓰네.
the Cyclones also making a production tab. You do want to lean more towards the Liberator, as Cyclones don't really get added in the medevac drop super well. What they do is they add in with the Hellions, and speed or no speed, they can combine together to be a kind of fearsome early game harassment force, and then the Liberator shows up so much faster. So
해방선이네요. 해방선 한 개 좀 빠르게. 양방으로 들어갑니다. 좀 빨라요. 전진 우주공항이라 빠릅니다. 들어갔어. 방역 가능하긴 했지만 살짝 늦었습니다. 흔들립니다. 방역 흔들립니다. 자, 그러면서 염차는 또 트리플 지역 가서 드론 잡아주고 아 이거 흔들려요. 이러면은 한 마리 또 잡혔고 좀 성공적인 견제이지 않았나 싶습니다. 드론도 잡았고 또 사이클론 2기로 컨트롤하면서 이득을 거두고 있고 미친놈아 사클 저렇게 쓰면 버프 안 해주잖아 저거 사클 그만해.
Almost on the same trip. Not sure what that one was all about, but good micro obviously by both players there. Dark trying to save a couple of these low HP roaches, running them to the back, and then obviously if you morph them into a Ravager that come back with full health. Clem did a very good job in keeping those Cyclones alive for a while.
얼마나 이득을 거두려고 저 사클로
little skirmishes, even though at this point it's obviously not going to decide the outcome of the game. I always feel like they are important for Clem to build that momentum that we know that he's looking for. Because if Clem starts feeling it, if he starts almost over-microing certain units, we know that he's having fun.
Yeah.
He can kind of carry that pace into the next stage in the game where it could absolutely make the difference.
그러면서 바이오닉
Units is like imagining someone putting coal into the engine of the train, right? Like, you know that's actually going to get burning hot. And he's going to be playing pretty good mid game as well. It wasn't his typical 3CC situation. He now is on one. He's building up his bio. He is going into tanks, which is quite important. He has seen nothing but roaches thus far, and certainly
박힌 걸 봤기 때문에 또 탱크 오면서 또 위치에 박아두면서 의료선까지 들어가겠죠. 잡아주고.
a question that I'm not sure Clem has answered as to whether or not it is the 1-1 attack or it is going to be the melee upgrade, the infestation pit, and into the hive.
Yep. We obviously know that
스타크 한기는 저희 감스탑 잡으러 가면서 투에서 견제.
historically has been a hyper.
그러면서 3월 밀쳐줬고요.
He doesn't need to make a couple of siege tanks at all. We just go straight into the Widow Mines. We start Widow Mine dropping. We start taking fights everywhere. But it's just a little dangerous against Dark players that are as good as Dark to skip tanks completely. Because if Dark then just stops at 55 drones and rallies 40 roaches to the other side of the map.
아, 또 이걸로 이득을 거두고 있네.
I think Clem has been on the wrong end of that.
항상 클렘은
I think because of that he's willing to play it safe.
양방으로 그냥 뭔가 계속 견제를 하는 게 패시브야. 한 방향으로 뭐 안 해. 무조건 멀티싸움 유도해.
But you don't think about that versus Dark, I don't think. He is so prone to playing roaches, to striking when the iron is hot with them, regardless of his intentions to all in. Or yes, he will absolutely all in with them, as he did versus Cure. Now, he said that was a lot because he was starting to feel like tired, like off kilter, but it nonetheless is in his back pocket, especially in a grand best of 7.
이걸 또 시간 끌면서 지금 점막이 생각보다 많이 안 펼쳐져 있어서 탱크가 저기 좋은 자리 잡고 이 멀티 무조건 견제를 강할 것 같거든요. 야, 그 와중에 좀 탱크 태우긴 했는데 잘 덮치긴 했거든요. 네, 컨트롤이 허리 미친듯이 돌리면서 또 이걸 이득을 거뒀어요. 자, 그러면서 원을 돌리면서 이제 반대쪽으로 병력 움직이고 있고.
For Dark, he did manage to mitigate the damage. He didn't try and save that base when he couldn't. He let it go, save the drones, and still has the ability to get all those upgrades.
정면 오케이. 자리 잡기 전에 테란이 아니 클렘도 반응 빨랐고요.
He'll have the infestors to threaten the fungal to at least buy time.
지금
fighting off ramps. We're not exactly sure where those Widow Mines have burrowed. Dark obviously knows that they are there. All of the tanks are here as well, but the Widow Mine shots are massive. A fungal does land. Dark does have.
탱크가 자리를 이제 뭉탱이로 잡아가지고 저거가 잘 걷어냈어. 밤집으로.
An 8 marine drop that was still scary on the top side of the map. Yeah. And I gotta say that's very impressive by Dark because this is that situation where as a Zerg you don't have that much mobile anti-air, so just 8 marines showing up here and there while having to worry about big army fights. That is just the most infuriating thing until you have Vipers or anything else that is really good in dealing with these Medivacs. But yeah, Dark survives a potential very scary situation.
It is a very good defense there. It's still going to be a problem of multitasking and making sure you know exactly how the Terran has split, but so far so good for Dark. We've been finding Widow Mines being far too aggressive. It does look like some of them nonetheless popped off, which is good news for the Terran, but that was
이거는 좀 테란 실책이죠.
One little detail I also wanted to mention is that with that tank fire, he almost exclusively fired the tanks on that one infestor. You can tell
너무 대도하는 병력으로
as rightfully there should be for the fungal, but that also meant they didn't get their perfect 4 or 5 tank shot on top of their roaches. That's not going to be a problem for very much longer as Clem has moved away from tanks into the Widow Mine.
방금은 너무 급했어.
More bio as well. And something to pay attention to obviously is the infestor control, the shark attacks, and whether or not Clem is always on guard against them.
Not just that, there is still an Overlord hiding behind above the main base of Clem, and that Overlord is going to
좀 한 타이밍 빠른 땅굴 근데 바로 봤어요. 안 놓칩니다. 그러니까 이런 식으로 들어간 땅굴은 웬만하면 약간 이 정도 레벨에서 안 통해. 무조건 어디 뭐 정면 들어가면서 동시에 가야 통하는 것 같아. 방금 좋았어요. 우승이 잘 막았고.
Clem is behind on the overall supply. His upgrades are faster than the Zerg, but as you said earlier on, Dark really has had his best start yet for the ZVT. So his upgrades really aren't that much slower behind. He's getting into his ultras, he's getting into his Nidus Worm, he's getting into his
테란이 분명히 상황 괜찮은데 오히려 막 무리한 견제를 하다가 아이씨, 아 뭔데 지뢰 그만해. 아이.
That's obviously the way that Dark likes to play his series. So he can be aggressive, he can be that swarmy Zer, and he can just really put a serious amount of pressure on Clem. And then
왜 타고 잤다고 오지게 하네.
these terrifying remixes. And honestly, for the first time, we're going to see Dark make some real attacks. In the previous games, we often had counter attacks. First game was a bit of a desperation move almost. I don't think
지뢰 또 뽑는 속도가 버프가 되지 않았었나?
to actually see aggressive Dark come into play.
Yeah, very, very fearsome Dark. And in fact, so much so, I think Clem might actually have to seriously consider
잘 이용하네요.
the turtle game, right? The very slow siege hop of your bases and your Sim City, hoping that they run too many resources into your defensive posture, which he showed greatness with against Serral. He definitely can do it. It's just kind of recognizing that's the scenario that you're in. If the Zerg really is too comfortable, I suppose. Clem is adding on the Fusion Core. He's adding on the extra command centers. He's adding on extra starports. So we are definitely leaning towards that. And Dark is going to have to figure out a way to take very resource-efficient trades as he looks to be aggressive. Dealing some Widowmine drops as well. Always the annoyance. Ever the annoyance Clem will be. That Clem is also eyeing that bottom left base with his attack.
Yeah, that's a very important one because Golden Aura has a grand total of 14 bases. Now,
이 정도면 좀 냉정하게 말해서 반반인 것 같고.
like, alright, you get 6 and I get 6, but what we really battle over are the bases in the bottom left and in the top right. By the
7시는 테라즈에서 절대 주면 안 되죠. 군멀티기 때문에.
That's something that cannot happen on Clem's watch. Clems knows that. He's like, okay, you took a couple of minerals, that's fine, and now you're trying to take the top right as well. One of those two belongs to me because it can.
오, 잘 덮쳤어. 잘 덮쳤어. 아주 잘 덮쳤어. 저거.
Get an engagement. He's going to surround a couple of these ghosts as well on the high ground. Can't really chase the Terran army to the low ground though.
여기서 좀 이득을 많이 거뒀는데?
I think it was a very good catch. Clem was definitely in an awkward position. So much army on the very front trying to kill the hatchery, forced to retreat, and then the ghost kind of caught as they're reinforcing that line as opposed to actually having that steady front. And so Clem does take, I think, another not great situation, right? You really want those reaches from the Zerg off of creep against that's a very perfect late game army composition to go very well.
저거 괜찮은데?
But composition is one thing, being in position is another, and that has been a sore point for Clem in some of these battles as he once again tries to go for some drops.
Yep, Clem thinking maybe I should go ahead and prioritize the top right and just kind of harass the bottom left with a couple of these Widowmines. There's a few Banelings. Whoa, that wasn't it. Now the drones were going to be transferred there as well. In the end, the Widowmines fired at the Ultras, so that's not really all that exciting. Ultras are very tanky. Clem's gonna have to make up his mind. There's another parasitic bomb is gonna go off on this. Matter of fact, that's not quite enough, I think, to kill the Matter of fact, but the second one, Zombie Grub, that is going to be good enough.
100%. We do have, I believe, a third starport now on the way. Double armory being set up, triple Liberator coming in with soon to be the Lib range. No attack upgrades on them, but the armor upgrades at the very least. And most importantly, they will be able to siege up, draw the line in the sand and say, Dark, you come to me. Now, Dark's gonna do everything to either avoid that or get some Vipers in there for the Abducts, maybe get the Corruptors as well as we finally have the Spire. He did make 20 plus versus Kira. That was probably a mistake, but you do absolutely need Corruptors as the game goes on to help out against a no doubt growing Liberator count.
저기 비었어요.
Well, 50 plus Banelings, but we don't have a single infestor. So I feel like that's missing on an opportunity. It's obviously good to crash into a planetary fortress, and Dark is going to take out this.
지금 상황 냉정하게 저거가 좋은데?
You take one of my bases, I'm going to take out one of yours. Can't forget that Dark still has 2 bases more than Clem, as he has the bottom left and the top right. That's worth keeping an eye on. But I would really love to see Dark at least have a couple of those infestors. We know how amazing he is with the unit.
온진드라, 펜싱이 온진드라.
An army that has 50 plus Banelings. I feel like the infestors are mandatory.
I do agree. I would like to see some infestors. We got a big drop into the main base. The Vipers were there, and they will survive.
저거는 빨리 오면은 막을 수 있죠.
On the defense, that might be changing. That was very close to dying to the cycle lock on. But the main base will be defended. Not too harsh there for the Zerg. One thing that I really like to see, I do want those infestors. I'm with you, but I really love the Terran here going for the Caduceus Reactor as if he did queue them up after Lib range. I do think that is a very nice
잘 막고 있어.
situation. It's not what you die for, but you're going to be stimming a lot. You're going to be wanting to add on more Liberators than you may want to be replacing those Medivacs. So helping out their regen is actually very, very good. Love to see it, as well as the double armory kicking in with +1 ship weapons. All production tab going to Clem. As Dark, I guess, was thinking of what to do next.
진짜 견제는 진짜 끊임없이 한다.
Building a couple of units, and Dark's like,
가만히 있질 않는다.
what do we do now? It's like, well, in the end, we're gonna get a couple of Banelings. We are going to rebuild one of these hatcheries that we lost earlier, getting a couple of extra overseers in the mix as well. Dark still running around with 8 Ravagers. He has lost a couple, and I kind of felt it was a bit of an odd mix. I guess he really wanted the corrosive power ability to gun down a couple of these Liberators that are protecting certain locations of the map for Clem. That makes sense, but the Corruptors are a bit more reliable, and I do think this has been a missed opportunity, by the way, for Dark. Like, he's had that hatchery in the top right for quite some time,
자, 이번에 정면 꽝. 오, 납치 좋았어요. 좋은데? 정면 앞으로 들어갈 수 있나? 앞마당까지? 아주 애매하네.
When you find an opportunity, when the Terrans not quite prepared, they don't have the entire army there. The Libs are not siege. You do want to take it, and Dark will find some success. Eventually push back, yes. But
앞마당까지 들어갈 법하지 않았나 방금? 정령 좀 있었나 앞마당에?
where the Terran is completely and utterly broken. That was not it though. Clem does bring in the rest of his reinforcements.
이득 거둘 수 있었던 것 같은데?
Does have planetaries to fall back to, and even now getting some snipes at the very tail end of the Zerg's retreat. I completely am agreeing with you as well about the top right. This could still even be mining as Clem's command center is awkwardly hovering over it. Instead, it's not going to be that much of a nuisance. Get something over there to kill it, and then get your planetary up there too. We are getting to the point where their first 4 bases are
저기서 이득을 거둔 것 치고는 뭔가 얻어가는 게 없었던 것 같고.
are becoming important, so every crack on that is going to be a little sketch. So, for instance, if Clem has to retreat here, gets his planetary crack,
6시도 그렇게 막 방어가 잘 되는 건 아니거든요. 해방선 모드가 완전히 되기 전에 들어가서
Liberation zones, the Corruptors, Magnetic Bomb, and Corrosive Bile trying to take out that massive air fleet from the Terran, but it wasn't
좋은데? 잘 꺼줬는데?
Clem should have had way more, and didn't really feel like that was Clem's entire army, and he did have a few more units showing up behind command centers and stuff, but Dark clearly once more finding a bit of a gap in the defenses of Clem, where Dark had basically 200 supply of Zerg right where he wanted it, and Clem was like, oh, how many units do I need there? And slowly but steady, the additional forces trickled in, so Clem will survive, and Dark did desperately need, by the way, to take
저도 이제 가스를 좀 파야 될 것 같거든요. 지금 보시면 자원 비율이 조금 아쉬워. 미네랄 많은데 12시도 안 파고 있고 저기 9시도 안 파고 있고 7시도 안 파고 있거든.
do it forever if the Widowmine count goes up, if the bio numbers increase, if the Liberators are sieged up. Just the Zerglings alone is not going to be good enough. And I'm just sad, Zombie Grow, because early today we saw some of the finest spellcasting that the East has to offer. With those fungals, with the parasitic bombs, where is it?
Yeah, actually, I'm wondering that as well. Dark has sprinkled in some infestors, but hasn't really been.
지금 보시면은 저그가 이게 견제를 계속 당하면서 오히려 테란보다 일꾼이 없어요. 56기야. 테란 66인데.
He's not found Clem as off guard as he was hoping in the subsequent attacks into that natural. In fact, the last one was 100% Clem favored. Dark should have retreated, and Clem now is able to get that top right base at the same time. Something that I thought he would struggle with when Dark is threatening this location. That's why Dark is also threatening this location. But it looks like Clem now has a really strong Liberator count with their upgrades too, and he's got his.
이거 드론 한 타임에 좀 찍어줘야 될 것 같은데.
Watching the units lost resource step there. They are 600 resources separated after a 22-minute game. That is ridiculous, and that's obviously something that looks very promising for Dark, because we are used to seeing Zerg at least lose 3,000-4,000 more at this point, sometimes even 10,000 more against a player like Clem. Dark has been able to find great fights, but obviously Dark needs more than just finding a couple of great fights, because in the end, if Clem can take control of the top right base, it will always be 7 against 7 bases, unless Dark finds a way to get Clem out of
아 잠깐만요. 아이고 저 이거 맹독 아 잠깐만. 이거 너무 우왕좌왕해 갑자기.
Even though they were all alone, and the army came in all together too, so it was prepared to slap down those snipes, have them marauders on the front, and take a good engagement. We do finally have those infestors sharking around with the army, though not particularly cleverly placed, looking for the straight up fungal. They might be able to find it once again. It is the common zone of attack. Clem is finding himself a little underprepared there.
지금 정면 오히려 사슬로 들어가는 느낌이거든.
And the EMP takes away any further chances. Clem is going to be micring on the right side here, cloaks up his ghost, is going to be looking for the split as well as the Banelands trying to make some good connections. You hear those legs going down, but the ghosts are also starting to fall. Dark is cracking at least some of these command centers, some of the army trading, but he doesn't fully crack the Terran's bases. Third CC will get back up and running. Fourth is fine. Fifth is
아
fine.
잠깐 1시 지금 또 오히려 테란 돌리고 있거든. 지금 저기를 테란한테 주면 안 되거든.
Back to that planetary there towards the end. It looked promising for a while for Dark, but promising is not good enough. If this game just continues to go the way that it's currently going, Clem is going to get more and more comfortable. And Clem's like, alright, you had the bottom left, that's completely fine. Yeah, you mine that a little bit quicker with the gold minerals, but as long as I can mine from the top right, it is okay. And in the end, the Terran army should be able to
이게 은근히 저기 6시랑 6시가 그렇게 방어가 잘 되는 편이 아니거든요. 해방선 한기 해방선한기가 단데 이거 지금 이게 멀티를 계속 견제를 안 하다 보니까 오히려 테란이 상황이 좋아졌어. 자원 상황이.
absolutely correct.
저거 가스가 말랐죠.
To go. Eventually, Clem isn't going to care as much, shall we say, about perhaps more of the bottom left of the map. It's going to focus a lot on the top right. He's going to still have a bank that's remained bigger actually than.
이거 충분히 6시든 1시든 이거
He's going to be able to stay there and again. So you come to me, you try and break me, which Zergs can't.
견제를 하면서 유리하게 갈 수 있었는데.
Which Dark just has not been. And now we've got some more Sharky boys looking for the start of the fight. Clem must be wary of this. Using the scan comes down, EMP as well, and Clem is getting prepared for the fight. Dark still wants to initiate though. He still wants to go for it. Despite
병력이 거의 200이긴 한데 이게 저걸링 위주의 병력이라 이 병력 질이 그렇게 좋지가 않거든요.
But then it does not kill all the Vikings. The split eventually happens, and the snipes are still coming down.
Yep, the ghost count is high, the Viking count is high as well. The Liberator is sieging up in the bottom left side to rain some justice.
가스가 없어 저거가. 가스를 뒤늦게 파고 있긴 한데. 진작에 파사되네 아까.
It landed before the scan animation sound even went off. As Clem now has a couple of Marines and Marauders in the top side of the map as well. Dark does still have a crazy amount of Zerglings out on the map.
야 이러면은 역전이죠.
Only has 200 gas and Lings alone, Zombie Grub. I think we all know that is not going to do it unless we have magical spellcasting. But these Widowmine shots are starting to get bigger and bigger for Clem. A while ago they lost the same amount of resources. Now Dark has already lost 3,000 resources more, and I have a feeling that that number is only going to increase.
한시를 절대 줬으면 안 됐어. 한시를 절대 안 주면 6시를 깼어야 되는데 이게 너무 막 우왕좌왕 하다 보니까 이도저도 아닌 그런 상황이 돼버렸어. 오히려 테란이 자원이 이제 6,000, 2,000. 아 그래서 이제 정면으로 울며 겨자먹기로 가보지만 너무 늦었죠.
Absolutely. Dark not able to replace the units particularly fast, although his mineral bank is fine. He's still not maxing out on pure Ling with so few larvae. That is currently his problem. Not that 100 Lings might add enough here. Clem very comfortable at 170 supply.
GG. 이거는 조금 약간 아쉽지 않았나. 충분히 유리했는데.
It's just at the right moment to use the Mongols.
분명히 1시든 6시든 깰 수 있는 타이밍이 있었는데 못 깼던 게 아쉽네요.
Earlier this year, we had Solar finally able to lift the GSL trophy after so long. That was the narrative we chose when Clem versus Solar happened.
이거 옵저버 진짜 잘함. 이 속도를 다 따라가서 잡아줘.
And is feeling more likely than ever as he leads the series and looks ultra confident in this matchup.
Yep, and this is also a map where I feel Clem shines. Even in some of the series of the last few months that he's been losing against Serral, Heartlet often went his way. Heartlet went his way early today as well. We also saw different Terror players find some success on this map. Olivera, for instance, yesterday against Serral too.
또 신더블.
Kind of a must-win at this point. Falling down 1-3 in this best of 7 against that French kid that has all the momentum in the world. Is just honestly playing a fantastic tournament. Also in the beginning of the tourney already, we saw him on Friday in that winner's stage, getting the best of some Korean Terrans in TVT. That's something that definitely wasn't always the case in the past, but Clem has once more leveled up. It's been a long time coming. Whatever it is, but then
do so. I mean, he's not going to be throwing any of these proxy hatches that he might in some other tournaments, but again, some of the more fearsome roach pushes in the mid game, or perhaps even trying to really push the.
핵이 보소. 잡혀야지 저거는. 저거 잡혀야지. 와! 미친놈아! 체력 1로 살아나.
I wasn't even sweating. That's why I wasn't talking about.
Clem Reaper's never unless Link speed is on, or Clem has just had enough of it. But reminds me of one of the interviews we did once with Clem. I believe in IEM Katowice, where the ESL crew did a great job in sitting the players.
저건 잡혔어야 돼.
Like Clem, if you could be any unit in StarCraft 2, which one would you like to be? And a lot of them went for something cool that flies or something that's invisible, and Clem is like, the Reaper. It's really annoying. And I think that really shows as well how much fun he has with the Reaper in the early game. Not just in this matchup, by the way. Clem is capable of being just as annoying against Protoss players as well.
Yeah, it is. It's happening right now. Another drone gets popped up there, and the Reaper will live. Speed is done, and we do have Lings on the field.
저걸링 5개 돌려놨는데.
Lings are currently on Clem's side of the map. They are maybe looking to enter in the natural when they see those Hellions leave. The Overlord is their posture.
점차 나간 거 보자마자 들어가서 저걸링으로. 클랩 뭐야? 순식간에 저거. SC 뭉쳐서 구멍에 들어가 버리기.
And in the end feels that it's more important to keep these lanes alive. It's actually funny now. This is the first time in these 4 games that I feel we have a few random links early on trying to go for a tiny bit of a run by, which is something we saw a lot in our other TBCs. We had groups of 6 links, 8 links, 10 links running into the natural. We haven't really seen that a whole lot yet in this grand finals.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Clem's tech lab on his starport was scouted, but we can see that he's not actually using it for the
이번에도 원바이킹 찍고 해방선 견제.
just barely. You might presume that to have either, Cloak started up in Banshees or even a Raven, which Clem doesn't usually add, but can be a thing. Nope, and it's not going to be used at all. So I don't know if Dark's going to overreact to that, and by overreact, I mean get a couple of Spore Crawlers that he ultimately doesn't need for Banshees, but are still useful against Liberator harassment.
Yeah, especially against Clem's Liberators, because Clem is not the kind of guy to just siege his Liberator up and then don't look at it anymore and give up. Clem is going to siege and unsiege it over and over again. I've heard a certain Italian Zer complain about it a couple of times, that it's literally the most annoying thing in the world. So having a Spore or 2, even if it's not for the Banshee, to help out against the Liberators, not that bad for Dark.
This is the map where Dark brought out the 1-1 Rochalin versus Cure, I'm pretty sure, but more importantly than the map, it's the situation. It sounded like Dark was just kind of frustrated with how things were going. He was afraid he was losing a little bit of momentum, and he decided I'm just going to go ahead and go for the kill. And that worked especially well because Cure wasn't expecting it, but it also is a way to gain the power in the mid game. No doubt the Terran has to respect you if you are doing the 1-1 Rochalin. I am bringing it up because Dark is a little bit on the back foot. He just lost that last game, down a game and all that, and he is adding on a Roachhorn. So it's always that threat.
Yeah, but double Evo Chamber going down as well on the side of Dark, as Dark has taken that center hatchery and is temporarily preventing this command center from landing. But in the end, since Clem only lost 2 Hellions so far, that is obviously not going to take very long. It makes me wonder, does Clem have some Evo intentions with these Hellions, or are we just going to keep them alive for as long as possible, push back the creep tumors a little bit? Because he may be looking back at Hecate and be like, man, if I would have just survived with those Hellions, if those Hellions would have been at home, those Banelings wouldn't have blown up 15 SCVs, maybe I would have been up 3-0 by now.
Yeah.
And Clem might feel that he doesn't actually need to take crazy
포초 위치가
as long as he just keeps
하도 이게
Dark is firing up a lot.
그래도 이거만 하다 보니까 잘 맞고 있어요.
But the Liberator is going to move, and then the Spore is going to move, and the
내성이 좀 생겨가지고.
Clem is actually getting the best of that little dance, as Dark was focused on the Hellions there for a split second.
Exactly. It's the Liberator move and the Hellions move, and the Liberator moves and the Hellions move, and the Zerg is the one
둘이 신경전 막 꽃쪽대의 해방선.
everything's coming in, but Creepshoot actually is pretty decent, so he does have a heads up against the Hellions. The Roaches are obviously out helping too. Now Clem, he saw the Roaches. That was his reveal, I believe. Now he does really need to worry about that 1-1 Roach.
바퀴 좀 찍었거든요, 많이. 바퀴 많이 찍었거든요. 봤어요. 벙커 짓고 탱크 뽑고 있습니다, 테라는.
building Widow Mines, not tanks, and hoping this gives him control over the game. But Clem is building tanks. He is wary of this possibility.
Yep, Clem has 3 tanks already. He's currently working on tank number 4. That doesn't mean that it's going to be easy, because Dark is still going to show up in an insane amount of roaches.
탱크 위치가 절대 이거 못 뚫을 것 같은데. 탱크 위치 봐. 이거 바퀴 개멸로 지금 뚫으려는 것 같은데 절대 안 뚫릴 거거든요. 탱크 위치가 너무 좋거든요.
Double scan from him really is the cherry on top. I think he was already pretty sure of it, but he just wanted to make absolutely sure, and those would certainly do it. No infestation pit, not a tremendous amount of drones, and more roaches being produced from the larva. 1-1 is done for Dark. He's breaking down the rocks to give him the fastest push point from his reinforcements to Clem's third base. But this is one hell of a prepared Terran. He's been building tanks from the get-go. He knows what he's up against.
도와주기 사실 저기 슈트 던지고.
As well. Roaches come in with the biggest concave they can get, but that's a lot of tanks to take down. A lot of Marines piercing through the roaches, looking for the Ravagers.
탱크가 또 언덕 위에 하나 더 있거든요.
Trying to actually make this work. Another tank barely being repaired to the mineral line.
와, 이게 아까 김동욱전에서는 그냥 뚫렸는데 미친 탱크 위치, 벙커 위치, 컨트롤로 또 이거를 또 너무 쉽게 막네.
I don't think Clem quite expected that many roaches and Rev just come in from the right side, but I love how quickly he pulled back all these bio units. And Dark, even though he's still up in supply, is in serious trouble here, because Clem did build a 4th base during all of that. Clem did fire a +2 attack and +2 armor for his units. And what can Dark really do? Like more of the same layer.
이러면 지금 업그레이드 보시면 2업이 테란이 훨씬 먼저 되고 주도권은 이제 영원히 테란한테 지금 넘어갈 수밖에 없습니다.
More than anyone else has practiced with that, I do believe, and I have always said that he's one of the best in those positions. But it's not happening so far. He is just getting remaxed again, perhaps fearing the possibility of a counterattack, or I think more likely he wants to keep up the pressure.
잘 내렸고.
So Clem doesn't feel comfortable doing well, maybe something exactly like this. Finding Dark a little under the
깨지나요? 그냥 간격. 와, 내가 깨져버렸어요.
Lair tech Zerg becomes hatchery tech Zerg, and that just means things go from bad to worse for Dark. Dark knows that
해처리도 아니고 레어가 깨져버렸습니다. 안 되겠다. 여기서 그냥 해서 안 되겠다. 다시 한번 저울링이랑 개멸충 더 찍었거든요. 여기서 밀어버려야겠다. 하지만 뚫리지 않는 테란. 테란도 이제 알고 있겠죠. 이거 막으면 이긴다. 그러면서 또 뒤에 의료선으로 계속 끊어주고 있고.
Clem is no longer at a point where he can be surprised by a secondary or tertiary all in. He has the army, he has the upgrade, he has the tank count, and he has the knowledge.
And he has sniped Lair, so he knows there is nothing really to worry about. Dark is going to try one more time. A popular saying in StarCraft is look at these two flies, and that would think that this game is close, but Clem knows
탱크 전진?
all that close.
이거는 좀
all that close, but he's still going to try. Roaches, Ravages, +2 attacks, he can get one.
아, 하지만 뒤에 탱크가 더 있어.
But unless Clem massively fumbles, this should never go Dark's way.
No, it will not. Dark down to, well, quite a few Ravagers. That is an impressive number. 18 of them. That's a lot of corrosive biles, but it's also a
담즙 씨 무한으로 떨어지는 거 봐라.
that is going to be jumped on by Marauders and taken down if it does not have the Roach buffer, which it no longer does. Dark is attempting to at least continue on with the game.
아, 이러면서 테란은 계속 멀티가 늘어납니다.
I feel like he's also kind of like, well, maybe yes, maybe no.
3월 편안하게 돌리면서
He
5월까지.
really has no second plan here. It's just attack, attack, attack.
Yep, he's going to continue attacking, and at least until the +3 upgrades kick in for Clem, maybe the Ravages can shine. Ravages really are pretty damn good against Bio. It's something that can only work for so long.
홈피하기 미니게임 하는 것 같은데? 클램? 담즙 피하기 게임?
Clem once more massively makes a big micro error, absorbs a lot of corrosive biles. This current army of Dark is not going to be good enough. So he does restart at Lair. He's going to build more roaches. We've got +1 melee on the way now as well. It's just, it feels like an unfair fight. And you're looking at it, you're like, well, both players are maxed out. But Clem is heading to his dream destination, and Dark is heading in the opposite way of where he would like to go.
+1 melee is really all he could get. You know, there's not many other options without that Lair being done. He could also be at least adding on the Baneling as to time it out for some difficult hooks, but he isn't. He is once again, however, going for that third base. The tanks were left a little bit alone, so many of them are falling.
그래도 탱크밖에 없는 틈을 노려서 들어가 보지만 이 테란도 같이 들어가고 있거든요. 결국 이 괴멸은 맡길 수밖에 없어요. 하지만 이 클램의 해병 불곰은 못 막을 것 같은데요. 아, 결국 막히죠, GG. 클램 너무 날이 바짝 서 있어요.
One game away from lifting that premier trophy.
Match point.
He is the Blue Terran for Team Liquid, Clem.
What a weekend it has been for Claymore. Obviously started his journey on the Friday morning with a 2-1 victory over Classic. Wasn't totally smooth sailing, but in the end brought it home. Then he had to play TVT, and that's often where Clem struggled. I mean, I'm sure you've had the question plenty of times as well on your streams or the other adventures. Why doesn't Clem win big international tournaments? Well, in the past,
클램 이번엔 40더블 아닙니다.
there are some great Terran players in Europe, but
가 아니라 40더블 맞네요.
over in Asia, where you've got Cure, Beyond, Bonnie, Oliveira, and many more.
Sorry, 40더블이네요. 끝까지 40더블이네요.
And it's just difficult for someone like Clem to get up to that level. But it seems as time went by, and I don't know, maybe he studied more, maybe it's a bit of the meta change as well with the Neil patch, that Clem's TVT got to that level. And
그래서 안 캔 줄 알았어.
perhaps allowed
그래서
him to
캤었네.
advance straight into the quarterfinals after winning a TVT against the Gumigod on Friday afternoon. And here we are. Couple quarterfinals later, a semifinal.
진짜 그냥 뭐 특별한 빌드 같은 건 없어. 혁신적이고 뭐 먹고 들어가고 막 그런 빌드는 없어. 오로지 그냥 피지컬로 극복한다. 피지컬로 이득 거두고. 선아 기다려. 뭐하냐 둘이 강강수월래 하냐? 둘이 강강수월래 하는데요? 아니 야 드론이랑 했으면 강강수월래 하는데 사신이 껴가지고 지금 야 해병이 왜 저기까지 와서 오버를 때리고 있어?
trying to kill the SCV there. Clem does a great job in keeping it alive and also preventing the drone from morphing into an extractor. It seems that a single Marine did get picked up there in the center. As one low HP SCV is going to fall on Clem's side of the map.
오히려 지금
SCV getting stuck. Clem may be feeling some of those jitters right now.
Pretty sure he thought the Ring Around the Rosie game was gone, but now it's on the tag. And he has lost the game here. 2 SCVs and a little
너무
bother
신났어요.
counts as well from the Ling on the high ground, which I think is pretty complete even as the Clem's not really been shy about showing his build. Okay, not quite complete. Doesn't see the third CC. But you can also somewhat tell from the lack of supply depots at the front. Oh, hey, well, there you go. Now you know everything.
I was like, I'm going to do the same thing that I've been very good with. Deal with it.
Yeah.
Dog's like, oh.
It's probably still like, oh, I was really hoping you were 2-base all in.
Yeah. Come on, Clem. These 2-base all-ins are really good against me, man. I promise you should give it a shot.
이번에도 염차 해방선 견제로 시작합니다.
Clem with his first 2 Hellions on the other side of the map, as once more he has opted to go for the Liberator first, and we're going to get that bombo combo of Hellions and Liberators, and we can't forget about that opportunity that presented itself on Hecate, where a Liberator sieged up, and that forced Dark to pull the drones away, and once you pull those drones away to an unprotected area, that's where those Hellions of Clem can show up, and obviously 3 Hellions, 1-shotting drones is all it takes for a game to go from alright to a nightmare for the Zerg immediately, but obviously Dark should be aware of it, he should keep track of these Hellions, and hopefully will not take too much economic damage here in the early stages of Oceanborn.
No, not so much. Just losing a Creep Tumor, which is still very annoying. The Hellions going to pair up now with that Liberator harassment, which Dark's been pretty good about.
클램 사실은 이속이 좀 더 빠른 것 같아.
Basically good to great is what we've been seeing here. Lair coming down for Dark. A couple of gas is being added on rather quickly. Clem with the harassment is also going to be on the lookout for the scouts, of course. Third hatchery, not usually where you see a lot of the technology, but hoping to find a little bit of an unexpected Liberator siege up. Doesn't find the drones.
Yep, so far so good for Dark, but Dark obviously knows that the worst is yet to come as Tim is now 60% done as well. Dark again dropping a Baneling nest here, somewhat early. I'm actually surprised by the amount of Ling Bane we've seen in this.
여기서부터 또 피지컬 싸움 들어가죠.
Went through, I was like, the Baneling's dead, completely useless. You're never gonna connect with a single Marine again. It's like, okay, we know it's not going to be that bad, but I feel like we've just seen a lot of Banelings in this matchup over the last few days. Sometimes successful, often not that successful against Clem.
허리가 자꾸 나한테 뭔가 요구하는데 너 뭘 원하는데? 참치도 먹었고 놀아줘? 이것만 하고 놀아줄게. 알았지?
Out of the supply as he is just building drones. Usually would see that maybe preempting the Roach max out, but this is a game where you don't actually have a Roach Warren. Liberator will find a queen and a couple of
결국 또 이득을 거두어 여기서.
That's exactly what Clem grabs. He's constantly moving over onto his third base. He's got his 1-1 upgrades on the way. He is building tanks first. He's not going to play it loosey-goosey with Widow Mines first against Dark, even though in this particular game it would have been fine. It would have helped his first push as well.
Yeah, but that's obviously how Clem loves to play. Ideally, he never builds a tank, but we saw in that previous game on Hecate, yeah, there are many scenarios where you just need tanks, and often more than one. So Dark is going to be able to get up to 71 drones rather quickly as the grenade is going to bounce the Queen off creep, but there are different Queens showing up from the right side that will drop not one, but
저글링 잘 들어갔는데.
The tank on the high ground is nice enough, but it's going to deal a lot of friendly.
오히려 탱크 포격 이용해서
Tiny Link counter attack gets 8 SCVs. I don't hate that for Dark at all.
8기.
He doesn't take any damage on his side of the map.
And that is the question. Hellions are out, but more importantly, we got Marines on that left side looking to enter into the fourth base. The Liberator also does get sieged up. Hellions will be in control, but yes, this is really what we want to look at. The Medivacs aren't here. The Medivac turned around to deal with the Ling run by, but it looks like these
염차로 지금 저글링을 시선을 끌어주고 지금 들어갔는데 지금 스팀을 너무 많이 받았거든요. 그래서 상대밖에 없고 마침 2개 맞네.
Yep, the Lings and Banelings will surround that tank. The Marines are very low on HP. Combat Shield is about to kick in, and the second Medivac showing up as well is going to give a bit of extra healing power. Dark still needs to be careful because Clem is paying attention.
두 번째 메디박이 좀 늦어서 위험할 뻔했습니다.
Even off creep with Baneling speed, he is going to be fine there. A very quick hive on the side of Dark, and also a quick burrow. And you know something, Grub, that I love me some burrowed Banelings in this matchup.
If you say you don't love burrowed Banelings,
you're a hater.
Well, you're probably the Terran that just lost to him.
Or
yeah, that's the only reason. That's the only time. Otherwise, we love to see it, and certainly if you are cheering for Dark to make the comeback, then you got to be cheering for some juicy Baneling hits, whether they're just straight up or on the burrow. Now Dark
그 와중에 맹도 좀 살려고 하네. 저 와중에.
Away with the Marines, but Burrow on the way, Hive on the way. Could have those fast ultras coming in too. Clem, he's also macroing up totally fine, totally great. 2-2, a little bit late though. If we're going to be critical, his armory was not done.
Because he actually had 1-1 slightly quicker than Dark, and we can see on the production tab that Dark and Suit upgrades are already on the way. Clem is going to fire up Drilling Claws. 8 minutes and 35 seconds into this game. This Hive is about to finish up, and obviously
이거는
a couple of very quick ultras. These Marines are going to be a lot less successful. Clem was a little timid in the last 30 seconds of taking some of these fights. That I feel that if Clem is very confident, if he's vibing, he stands there and he guns down every single Baneling. Kind of feels like he's a little bit off his rhythm, or Dark is just always one step ahead.
Yeah, either one. But Clem is still trying to get some aggression going while
뭐야 살기 감시했냐?
we do have those burrowed Banelings being being set up on the ramp, the choke points. Now, Clem, once he gets Burrow Bailing Bomb once, he will be scanning ahead, but it's about that first one. How juicy are these going to be?
와 이거 봤어? 이거 어떻게 알았노?
Billy now scanning the bottom left side as well. If he does, no, he does not.
오 저기는 그래도
Dark does get a couple of connections
좋고.
there. I mean, that could have gone a lot worse for Clem, but as you said, this is obviously a big moment for Clem, because from here on out, you know that you gotta be careful everywhere you go. On creep or off creep, it doesn't matter. There is danger around the corner. Dark is doing all of this, by the way, of 78 drones. Like, that's not bad, but it's also not that crazy, overwhelming Zerg economy that we are used to. That kind of means that if Dark does not completely smash fights, he's going to be in trouble immediately, because this is kind of the way that high-level ZVT works.
Well, Liberator sieging up to 9, more mining as Dark comes in here with his lings, trying to get those Baneling connections.
아 여기서 이름 너무 많이 걷었는데요 방금?
Is going to keep this position. Dark's gonna need to regroup. He's coming in once again.
맹독 점사 탱크 방금. 이러면 해병을 잡을 게 없는데 해병 잡을 게 없어. 저 맹독 쪽 우선 뒤에 있고. 와 미친놈아. 와 맹독 뭐야? 맹독 다 잡았어 지금 컨트롤로. 뭐야 미친놈 아니야.
But now we see Clem in action. He is on both sides of the map trying to find that damage. And Dark's only relief will probably be with these ultras. The Marines gotta respect that.
But he's broke as a joke, and this is where those 77 drones are really going to hurt Dark. The 2-2 upgrades are going to kick in.
와 컨트롤이 지금
He is sniping every single Baneling that is in his side.
집중력이 떨어질 만도 한데 오히려 더 지금 빡세게 들어가는데?
A couple of ultras is nice enough, but he needs more than a few ultras. Has lost over 200 Zerglings in the last 2 minutes of this game alone, and he's not done yet, as Clem is just not stopping.
Yeah, the Lings do catch a lot of reinforcements on the left side, and the parasitic bomb does interfere with the medivacs, but still.
이생폭탄 맞은 거 바로 빼주고 해병 또 내기 뭐야 어디서 또 살아 돌아가지고 저기서 또 견제하고 있는 빡쳤죠 저거 빡쳤죠 가야죠 그렇죠 이득을 거둬야죠 참목 나만 당할 수 없다 커맨드 깨는 거 너무 좋았고 울트라 들어가 드론 뭐야 저 드론 뭐야 드론은 왜 왔어 같이 왜가 빨리 이래 드론이 어디 와가지고 싸우려고 하고 있는 드론까지 오면 안 되지 아무리 빡쳐도 드론에 가서 일해야지 아 드론 저거 드론 시체예요 저거 드론 잡혔어요 저거
Natural off Clem, obviously not what Dark was looking for. Do we have any tricks left, Dark? Do we have any burrowed Banelings? No, we have 0 Banelings on the map at the moment. So making 6 more, but he needs a little more than just 6. 4 Ultras, 2 Vipers. That's basically what needs to get the job done here for Dark. Dark knows it, he's in all sorts of trouble, does not want to lose the base, does end up losing the base. Still runs up
아 흔들립니다 저거 아 해방선 저기 또 견제 들어가고 있고 저기 그 와중에
He's harassing the base, he's pulling back his army, he's splitting his medivacs, and the Liberator just going to town as the Queens weren't even on attack command apparently. Dark knew that was his one moment when Clem had to retreat. Dark was going to try.
와 행동점사 방금 또 두기 또 해줬고요. 와 GG. 와. 이렇게 다전자하면서 컨트롤 집중력을 잃을 만도 한데 오히려 날이 더 서있다. 미쳤다. 오프라인대 첫 우승이야? 클램? 지렸다.
Clem, your first win at an offline major for so long. This has felt inevitable. Today it has happened.
4강전 결승전 오로지 그냥 피지컬로만 그냥 찍어 누르지 않았나. 개강되는데?
This crowd has stayed extra long. Strikedown is happening around us, but they had to be here to watch this incredible and historic moment. You took out Serral, the top Zerg as voted by so many of your peers. You took out Dark, who has been in so many finals. How have you done this?
I wasn't feeling too confident in my TVZ before this tournament, but now I definitely feel a bit better about it. I mean, I've been practicing for this so much, and the past few months I was at home practicing so much, and it was really nice. Yeah, pretty much seeing it.
야, 손목도 존나 얇아가지고 부서지겠다.
You talked about what it means to win in front of an incredible.
부러져 그러다가 클레마.
That is so happy to watch this achievement, but there's so many more fans that have cheered you on at all of these tournaments, who have cheered you on online, from home, from everywhere. So what do you want to say to everyone who supported you to this moment?
I just want to say thank you. Thank you to all of you here in Atlanta. Thank you to everyone watching at home. Yeah, thank you to the French viewer. Merci beaucoup les gars, vous êtes géniaux. Merci, merci.
From Team Liquid, your French Terran, Clem.
아 역시 클렘의 저우전은 예술이다.
Winter 2023.
저우전 8강 강민수, 4강 세랄, 결승 박영욱 이겼으면은 패저전은 뭐 그냥 원탑이다. 이거는 반박 불가다. 현 시점에서 내노라 하는 저거들 다 꺾고 우승했잖아. 태태전이나 토스전에선 좀 약한 모습을 보여주긴 하는데 저거전만큼은 그냥 뭐 동원이? 뭔 김동원이야 지금 여기. 동원이 대회 나왔었냐 여기?
Making StarCraft history. It was 7 years ago a non-Korean Terran was able to win a Premier. It was almost always going
동원이
to
태태전 지고 떨어졌다고?
finally done it. What a moment here in Atlanta. Amazing. Amazing. Final moments. Clem, congratulations. Cat.
아, 축하합니다. 인정합니다. 진짜 저우전 원탑.
Little moment that we have here. I mean, Clem really a man of few words, but he's an incredible person and an incredible friend and an incredible champion. And this is as well deserved as it gets.
태태전, 토스전도 증명해라, 클렘.
Not that much to say. I mean, this has been a long time coming. This is the current champion that we all deserve.
Absolutely. I mean, when he was able to finally get
뭐하냐
that
늦었어?
finally take Cyril down in an offline event in the 7th try, you knew we had something special. You knew that really it had to be an almost magical, an almost mystical performance from Dark. Something beyond whatever we would expect, but instead it's Clem.
다음 이제 오프라인 큰 대회가 카토비체인가요? 2월달에 하는 거?
It is special. It's a special.
카토비체도 재밌겠다.
Ladies and gentlemen, not only has the crowd been fantastic, not only has the tournament been fantastic, the games have been fantastic, but it almost everything feels right. At the moment, Cat's here with Clem now finally being able to take this championship.
태태전은 이번에 성주 잡았어?
After
그러면
being
뭐.
so close and not able to achieve it here out the very last tournament of the year. Clem's done it.
It's insane, right? Because it feels like he should have been a champion so many times over, but with the COVID era coming in and then his rise
재밌었습니다.
and everything that has happened since, it didn't happen until today, but it is so deserved.
와, 이거 전투장 갖고 싶다.
I mean, we were even informed. People may not know. We were
불나는 거 봐라
informed
이거.
the crowd would have to leave earlier because like DreamHack is closing and stuff like that, but they ended up letting the crowd stay, and what a magical moment and what a blessing that has been too.
And with that,
You know, it's fitting that we got Old Lang Syne as Clem takes it, because this feels like a new year for the young Frenchman. Finally you do it.
to him it may feel like a Christmas miracle, but it was anything but. Because
아, 재밌었습니다. 저게 몇억 하진 않겠지. 몇백 막 이 정도 하지 않을까? 아, 확실히 스타2는 태저가 재밌다. 태태나 저저별에서 나오면 토 나오는데 태저 아니면 태프가 제일 재밌는 것 같아. 진짜 이게 태저가 좀 보면은 진짜 이제 피지컬 게임이야. 극한의 피지컬 게임이야. 원래 이 게임 자체가 극한의 피지컬 게임이 된 지가 오랜데 태저가 특히 심한 듯. 아, 재밌었습니다. 이게 게임이 또 한 게임 한 게임 길다 보니까 이것만 보니까 4시간 됐네. 마지막으로 스톤게이트도 보고 갈래? 드림에게서 스톤게이트 했잖아.
Stormgate news on their socials, and we'll see you later from DreamHack.
스톤게이트 지금 클베 하고 있는데 요즘에 클베 저 열심히 하고 있는데 놀랍게도 재미는 있습니다.
Well, tell me a little bit about
Out early,
you know, all like that. Yes.
keep supporting.
아, 언제?
On this little that the community
time to be an RTS fan.
아토시스가 해설했네.
Noise, we're ready to get into the first ever casted Stormgate show match here with
피에로 대 마나.
All right, here we go in at the very top right here, playing the Infernals. We have none other than Liquid Mana.
주류 게임 바꿀까 고민한 만큼 재밌음. 솔직히 말해서
Over here playing Vanguard. It is
게임 재미는 스타2가 더 재밌죠. 근데 스타2는 워낙 확장팩 2개 거치면서 완성형이 된 게임이고, 이 게임은 이제 알파인데 뭐 비교하는 게 지금 좀 그렇죠.
Well, that is the secluded grove, right? It's
TLO라는 종족이 뱅가드인데 여기 약간 테란이랑 많이 비슷한 종족입니다. 테란과 약간 워크래프트 휴먼 느낌? 만화가 가는 종족이 저거 인페르널인가? 아무튼 약간 저그랑 비슷한 종족이라고 보시면 돼요.
Now you do start out with a scout with Vanguard. This is that small dog running around.
테란 느낌처럼 이게 지금 생더블 하고 있습니다. TLO가 생더블 하고 있는데 협동 건설이 돼요. 네 마리로 건설하고 있죠.
Yeah, and what you see right here, that's the scout from TLO.
나 이거 근데 봤는데 아 솔직히 내가 TLO보다 잘하더라. 아씨 내가 나갔으니까 우승한 건데.
Mana in the meantime, he went for that Iron Vault early on. And that allowed him to go ahead and make a Brute and split that into a couple Fiends, which are super fast attacking units that don't last for a long time.
자 이거는 이제 저 아까 뚱뚱한 몬스터가 저걸로 분해가 돼요. 약간 공생충처럼. 저게 굉장히 빠르면서 일꾼 잘 잡아.
Using that overcharge that makes the bobs a lot stronger for a temporary
Verox
going to force that fiend to back off and go
짓고 있고요.
into scouting into the main.
And really he's done a very good job so far. You know, even killing a single bob here is going to be
약간 저걸링이랑 비슷한 느낌이긴 해.
continue to harass a little bit.
저걸링이랑 비슷한 느낌.
He has taken a lot of damage. So obviously that fiend isn't going to last a lot longer. One thing about fiends is if they are not on that dark shroud that infernals have, they do run out of health over time.
그리고 저거 일꾼이 조금 반짝였죠. 커맨드에서 스킬을 쓰면은 일꾼이 공격력이 2배가 세지고 방어력이 높아집니다. 그래서 저런 거 막 위급한 상황에 마치 휴먼의 그 일꾼 그 뭐냐 그 변신하듯이 그런 식으로 수비할 때 용이에요.
It's really important to kind of balance your resources. I feel like that's one of the harder things about Stormgate right now that everyone's still working on. Like, where do we want?
급할 땐 저거 커맨드 스킬을 쓰고 수비를 해야 합니다.
Exactly how much do we want?
자 여기도 비전 캠프 이게 뭐냐? 워크래프트 캠퍼 느낌이긴 한데 요거를 잡고 저거를 먹으면은 이게 시야가 밝혀져요. 크립. 약간 히오스 느낌처럼 공성 캠프도 있습니다. 공성 캠프를 먹으면은 공성 그 유닛이 또 공격을 가요 자동으로. 그런 점은 좀 히오스랑도 비슷한 것도 있고.
In the meantime, we have a Lancer over here for TLO. You know, it's hard to really put that next to another unit, maybe like a Zealot or something, but a little bit stronger. And that is going to be a melee unit. He's going to try.
뚱뚱한 놈들이 러시로 왔죠. 커맨드 스킬을 써가지고 막아내주고 있죠.
And look at that, a great surround by TLO. And of course, you can split those brutes out into those fiends if you do.
저거는 팩토리입니다. 저 화염차 같이 생긴 놈들. 요 녀석이 지금 이 테란 같은 종족의 한 줄기 비친 사기라고 지금 불리는 유닛이에요. 벌처랑 화염차랑 비슷한 디자인인데 공중도 공격합니다. 딜도 세요. 그리고 저 중장관 상대로 추뎀이 있습니다. 해치오그. 근데 저거 팩토리 날아가고 좀 아쉽죠. 대신에 저런 저걸링처럼 저걸링같이 생긴 경장관 같은 유닛은 잘 못 잡아. 중장관장은 깡패야. 건물도 잘 부수고. 그래서 요거를 또 이속이도 빠르기 때문에 요거를 잘 쓰는 사람이 이 뱅가드 종족을 잘한다고 볼 수 있습니다. 약간 사클이랑 화염차 약간 섞어놓은 느낌?
But you know, I feel like the big victory for Mana here was killing off that mech bay, which is where you make your.
다녀가 근데 이걸 잘 못 쓰더라고. 요거를 되게 잘 쓰는 게 중요하거든요.
It does seem like a lot of the top players, at least the current meta right now, and again, this game is still it's fresh out of the oven, and we're still developing the meta, but a lot of players like to go for hedgehogs and try to do map control, and sometimes even take a third base. So we see those two hedgehogs out on the map now. TLO gets the confirm. Mana has not taken a third in that location just yet.
저거는 일꾼. 저거 같은 종족의 일꾼인데 저게 또 맹독충처럼 스킬을 쓰면은 맹독충이 됩니다. 그래서 자폭을 해요. 잘하는 저거들은 힘싸움할 때 저 일꾼을 맹독충처럼 이용해서 활용을 잘합니다.
Getting out. In the meantime, it looks like, yeah, Mana is trying to kind of gain control of some of this map. These are meat farms. These provide supply. And you can see little units that pop out, these Fellhawks. You can't control those, but those will help you to defend.
Yeah, and they'll generate up to 3 of them. So if you keep that up for a little while, it's too much of a nuisance to commit into that area. And it's interesting to see that he sets those farms up in basically.
이제 이 테란 같은 종족은 저 화염차 같은 유닛을 해치오고를 이용해서 짤짤이 치면서 멀티를 먹고 고급 유닛을 모아야 되는 게 정석입니다. 근데 지금 너무 흔들리죠? 이렇게 흔들리면 안 되거든요. 화염차는 지금 저기서 짤치고 있어야 되거든. 고급 유닛 상대로 컨트롤을 이득을 봐야 되거든. 그러지 못하고 있죠.
As long as you're able to hang on, you will outlast them.
Now, both sides look to have 3 bases up in mining. So that's a pretty quick build into economy here. We're going to see a lot of macros starting to come up from both sides. And it does look as those conclaves are being added. Mana is going to be going towards Gaunts, which is a ranged unit here for the Infernals, which has a really interesting upgrade that lets it infest units.
적극적으로 잘 쳐야지.
When a unit is infested and then killed, it then spawns 2 more fiends. So you can get to a situation where you can snowball a fight pretty quickly.
게임 템포는 느립니다.
That is exactly it. And of course, when you get
스타트보다 확실히 느려요.
masses of smaller units, these quicker units.
스타트랑 워크래프트 어디 그 중간의 느낌?
But it's going to be really time intensive, and you can see right now he's trying to utilize these hedgehogs.
다리오는 내가 볼 때 스타트 저거 했었으니까 약간 저거 같은 비슷한 종족 했었어야 돼. 뱅가드랑 별로 안 어울릴 것 같아, 다리오는. 저거는 이제 저 큰 코끼리 같은 거는 저렇게 갑자기 들려서 스턴을 걸어요. 그래서 저거 안 맞게 조심해줘야 됩니다. 마그마돈. 저거 스턴을 피해줘야 돼요.
Yeah, Mana's really switching up the way that he's doing this. You can see the hedgehog.
저렇게 잘라 먹어야 돼. 이렇게 고급 유닛을. 컨트롤을 좀 적극적으로 해야 되는데 봐봐 이상하게 저 다 먹을 수 있었는데.
Really annoying harassment here by TLO. I think he's doing a good job keeping some pressure on Mana.
Yeah, the problem for TLO right now, as far as I can tell at least, is that the Hedgehogs, while they're a threat and they can always run away, causing damage to accumulate over time, Mana seems to have
또 하임차 저거 해치우고 따먹히죠. 아이고 다리오야.
He tried to retreat back, but went through the army line there of Mana, and Mana's going to continue to press forward.
Yeah, you can see those Magmadons with their quick stuns doing a great job of
벌써 컨트롤하듯이 해야 돼.
And as he goes in for the attack, you can see quite a few
저거는 랜서라는 유닛인데 약간 탱커 느낌입니다. 탱커. 중장갑이고 좀 딱딱해요. 약간 질럿 느낌이야.
Yeah, he comes up and let's see if he can break through this third base.
Okay, we've got the Bobs over here with the overcharge. It looks like that's going to force Mana back for a little bit. And there's a lot of units falling over here for Mana. He lost about maybe 1/4 of his army over there. Now, whenever you force out the overcharge, you know that once it's done, there may be another opportunity to try to come back in here. So why not
합동전은 안 해봤어.
situation, take out this
별로 관심 없었어.
and maybe dive
있긴
back
있는데
if he thinks he has enough.
And that's really TLO's vision camp. So that's letting him see the positioning of
합동전 하는 사람이 별로 없는 것 같은데.
Once again, those Gaunts are ready, and they are starting to infest a lot of these units. So if he actually starts to take this battle, we're going to see a lot of Fiends pop out. And there they are. The Fiends start to come out of everything, and some damage being dealt here to TLO.
Yeah, the static defense does fall. I see about 5 Hedgehogs here continuing to try.
솔직히 많아도 좀 어설퍼.
No overcharge on them this time.
Yeah, nice little charge in there from the Magmadon, but it will get surrounded. It will get picked
저 이제 골략같이 생긴 건 벌칸이라는 유닛인데 저게 정말 셉니다. 키 유닛이라고 해서도 얘기하죠. 저거와 랜서를 많이 모으면 되게 좋아요. 고역 같은 유닛인데 약간 경장관 상대로 스플댐이 있고
When they are doing damage in certain areas, you really need to get out of there, or everything's going to melt. I'm speaking from first-hand experience here.
저게 이제 매드테크라고 약간 기계 메딕 같은 게 있어요. 그거 이제 스킬 써줘가지고 그러면 저게 안 죽습니다. 잘 안 죽어요. 단단하고 되게.
It looks like he has a base just to the south of the screenshot here. If we could check that. Yeah, so he's in pretty good shape. Slightly oversaturated. 12.
다리오가 하는 게 지금 뭐 하나도 최적화도 안 돼 있고 너무 어설퍼. 뉴비 느낌이야.
Just now takes a 4th base over here. So again, this game's very new. We don't know exactly how much each faction is supposed to have an even fight. but Mana is up in one base.
And in fact, he has taken the center and he's starting to make a lot of.
자, 이 맵은 또 센터에 보시면은 저렇게 멀티가 금광이 2개 있고 저 가스 같은 게 2개 있죠. 센터를 먹는 사람이 이깁니다. 센터 싸움이 되게 중요한데 너무 그냥 대놓고 주고 있죠.
Right now is it seems that Mana can basically go for control play. He can roam the map and gobble up all the other resource locations. And while TLO might not be able to be killed here, he certainly can't go out on the map and try to stop the growth that Mana's getting.
Now Mana coming in, he has a lot of Magmadons here. You can see those great stuns going out. But with enough Vulcans, it looks like TLO's getting pretty cost efficient here. He pulls his Bobs forward and is trying to overwhelm, but we will see Mana turn around.
And, you know, with the Bobs already going back home here, it looks like TLO's going to push it a little bit further. Now, there's a lot of Vulcans here. So we got to see how well TLO can control this situation. The kiting for Mana looking pretty good. It looks like he's going to come in from the side now.
And don't forget, these Vulcans can plow through those trees, so that might be something we end up seeing. Pushes forward towards the Shroud Stone. That is kind of like a cannon that helps to defend quite a bit. And it looks like Mana's starting to take a very good fight here. You got to be careful. You see a ton of imps spawning right now.
저 벌칸을 무조건 살려야 돼, 저거를. 저게 죽으면 안 돼. 저걸
With those imps,
잘 모으는 게
normally
중요합니다.
you would have to hyper commit to them, but the fact that there's shrouds so close by, you can always go back there and regen. Keep in mind that any of these infernal units that are on the shroud, they gain what we call white health. It's like an additional.
그리고 저 벙커 같이 생긴 저 건물 있죠. 저기는 저건 좀 특별한 게 특정 유닛을 넣을 때마다 그 벙커의 활용도가 바뀝니다. 그래서 저거를 잘 써야 돼요. 아이고.
And oh man, how did that even happen? We have a ton of Fiends going to the natural expansion as well. This is bad news for TLO.
Yeah, it's not clear that TLO could even hold this position over here at his
리퀴드 만화입니다. 저 만화가. 발효는 지금 리퀴드
It
아닌가?
does appear that TLO is going to drive him back, but the damage has been done, Artosis.
Yeah, this is starting to look very, very bad for TLO. He calls, GG comes out. And that means that Mana is going to go ahead
아, 리퀴드 메이저야,
and win
다리오?
that first game. Really right.
Able to, you know, I think, the shoe subtly these. It does appear that a bit of a nuisance if you've ever.
여기까지 봅시다. 아무튼 쇼매치 보는데 좀 실망했다. 내가 나갔으면은 더 잘했겠다 이 생각 들더라. 너무 못하더라 이 사람들이. 여기까지 하겠습니다. 내일 보겠습니다. 내일 봅시다. 오늘은 그냥 게임 하는 것만 봤는데 내일은 게임 할게요.